Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If Guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Fixed His Mistakes. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. When they first met, it had been terribly dark. It was so pitch black that Issei couldn't help himself from taking a page out of the creator's book and declaring, "Let there be light." And lo and behold, there was light. The abyss surrounding him surrendered to the power of imagination and his mastery over dreams, courtesy of a certain colossal dragon. It didn't require more than a dash of imagination. After all, this rendezvous occurred within the confines of his own mind. The bleak, suffocating void was swiftly replaced by a sprawling grassy field. It resembled the kind of serene, picturesque landscape where children might roll down hills with reckless abandon, much to the chagrin of their mothers. And husbands, often equally adventurous, would join the fun, swiftly earning their wives' disapproval. Or perhaps the roles would reverse, with women indulging in the thrill, trying to balance out the antics of foolish men like Issei. But they all knew deep down that they couldn't help but love these lovable idiots, including Issei himself. Although, in hindsight, he couldn't deny that his girls had engaged in more foolhardy antics than he ever did during his younger, clueless days. And somehow, they always managed to blame it on him. His two reptilian emerald eyes blinked open, irritated by the sudden onslaught of brightness. As the crimson-scaled dragon took in the newfound surroundings, his eyes widened in surprise as instead of the oppressive darkness, a vibrant meadow now stretched before him. Drag began, his massive scaly body towering over Issei. He surveyed the horizon before eventually fixing his gaze upon his partner, who was perched casually on the soft grass. Though his facial muscles were far inferior to humanoids and the like, Issei could tell his naughty yet loyal companion was raising an eyebrow at him. "Me," he replied, throwing in an obligatory hand wave. "Surprise," he added, offering a nonchalant wave. The Crimson Dragon Emperor bent down, his body now on all fours as he scrutinized Issei up close. In terms of appearance, nothing seemed amiss. Before him stood the same 18-year-old boy with unruly brown hair. Yet, Drag sensed that something was off. "You," he remarked, raising an invisible reptilian eyebrow in skepticism. "Me," Issei responded, still unruffled as he took a seat on the plush grass. Me. Unless Drag was dreaming himself, then there shouldn't be any human out there who could stand before a dragon the size of a skyscraper and hail them like he was just a sentient gecko on the wall. Now this boy wasn't high out to Issei. His host shouldn't possess enough power or the will or even the insight to be aware of the presence trapped within his soul, let alone summoning him to a meeting. "You're not him," Drag declared, a hint of suspicion in his voice. "But I am," said the human, reclining comfortably on the grass. "It's still me, Hayao Issei." Drag was unimpressed by Issei's easygoing demeanor. It was almost as if he were dealing with an entirely different person wearing his host's skin. Issei leaned back, propping himself up on his elbows. "I promise I'm not lying. You could ask, well, I'm not entirely sure who you can ask right now. Off-Eyes, maybe, or Great Red. Not sure if they'd remember me here though." A pair of draconic emerald eyes widened in astonishment. "Off-Eyes, the Ouroboros dragon, and Great Red. Yeah. How did you even know their names? Just yesterday you were fooling around in your school as per the ordinary, doing nothing good with your two idiotic accomplices." "Hey, don't talk smack about my buddies," Issei interrupted, conjuring an imaginary pebble and tossing it at Drag's massive head, causing the rock to bounce off harmlessly. "I know they are idiots, but they are my idiots." Drag's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You clearly know something I don't." Issei chuckled, his tone playful. "And that's what's bugging you, isn't it? Drake, you want to know something else? I also know that in dragon years, you're still a wee baby." Drake spluttered in disbelief. How did you know? Who supplied you with this information?" "You did, dingus," Issei replied, his smirk turning to a smile. There was something strange about that smile. Felt too familiar. All too warm and genuine to be faked. "Probably about some time within the next year. Hopefully we can lessen that into a month. I really could use a pal. Honestly, I feel my sanity's slipping." Drake blinked, utterly perplexed, and slowly sat down like a bewildered dog on its hind legs. He didn't fully trust this Issei yet, but he was willing to listen. Because like it or not, he was stuck with whoever this Issei poser was. "What else do you know?" he prodded. "Convince me that you're from where I think you are." "Well, yes, I'm essentially my future self coming back to myself," he mumbled. "But fine. I know that you accidentally melted Tiamat's golden goose egg at one point when you and your equally simple-minded rival couldn't stop fighting like a married couple who can't get enough of each other despite hating each other to the bone." Drake bristled, ready to unleash his fiery wrath. "You dare to insult a dragon emperor?" He raised his entire body, casting an imposing shadow over his host, who remained unfazed and shot him an annoyed look. Drake had to do a double-take and suddenly felt a bit nervous despite Issei's size being only a fraction of his. "A dragon emperor who didn't know better," Issei said calmly but not lacking a mild temper underneath, almost like a father lecturing his unruly child. "And yes, I do dare. It's in my middle name. Now, sit back down, Scalaboy, and reflect on your past deeds. Consider the havoc you wreaked upon the underworld. Consider how you've effectively halved their population and then some." Drake reluctantly lowered himself on all fours again. "But we were." Issei cut him off firmly. "No excuses. I don't care who you were or are. You two ended the lives of countless fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters. Were those lives nothing more than an afterthought to you? Did you not care as long as you got to duke it out with the white boy? But he's my eternal Riva. You have a rival? Great. But that's your rival. Why did everyone in hell have to suffer because you two wanted to punch each other into oblivion? How did you justify your duel as a license to murder everyone else? They interfered, our bat. They were at war. Issei threw his hands out of frustration. You think God could just hit pause and tell everyone to look, let's chill out for a bit, or the Satans just walk up to the Grigori generals and negotiate another date for the battle, or just count it as a stalemate? Well, now I'm imprisoned. Drake never cried, but in that moment, he felt like he wanted to. None of his previous hosts had ever addressed his past actions like this, let alone scolded him for them. That was in the past. What's your problem with it? Everything. Drake was taken aback. That's not reasonable. Yeah, right, as if what you did was reasonable to start with. Issei met his gaze firmly. Look, without giving away too much about your future, let's just say that the mess you caused back then led to major, capital P problems for not only the three major factions, but also for everyone else who had no part in it. It makes Aquino's depressing childhood and severe daddy issues seem like a sitcom in comparison. Drake cocked his head to the right, his curiosity piqued. Aquino the smiling devil. "'She's not the point," Issei responded, his tone growing more earnest. "The point is you and Albion wrecking so much shit that God died." "HRM? Which God?" "The bearded one." "Oh, the God of heaven." "Whatever. You know who I meant." The dream world trembled as Drake bellowed. "The Abrahamic God dead." "Dude, easy down, you're causing a tremor in my head." "I'm not that smart. What if my brain gets leaky?" "He's dead," Drake once again shouted, baffled. "Then how will I ever get out of this cage? Is my soul forever sealed?" "Look, we'll get to that later, alright, I promise. I swear." "Now chill down a little, seriously. I know you're a baby and all, but you're still a dragon. Where's that pride of yours, huh?" Drake went silent for a minute, calming himself down. "How did you know about that?" "Cockabeel dropped that bombshell. Look, he'll fill you in later, but anyway, right now, you and I have more urgent matters to discuss. We've got a jam-packed future, my reptilian friend." "Him not a reptile." "Details," Issei waved his hand dismissively. "We've got charity galas to crash, citizens to rescue, and an endless parade of generic evil organizations, Murder LLC, to thwart. Honestly, it's like they have a subscription service for evil." "Sounds fun." "Oh well, it was so fun that I wanted to kill myself." Suddenly, the youthful boy before him seemed to age a decade in a heartbeat. He sprawled out on the grass, staring at the imaginary blue skies with frustration etched across his face. Drake observed his annoyance, too genuine to be faked. "If you know all that, then I suppose you really are from the future, because I can't come up with any other reasonable explanation for it." Issei sighed, deflating like a punctured beach ball. "I swear, man, it's really me. You're one of the few I really need to convince." He knew his draconic companion could be a bit thick in the head sometimes, but boy if it didn't grind his gears. Then again, he wouldn't be called the wise dragon emperor if it wasn't for him, so Issei counted it as even. "Look," Issei restarted. "I'm sorry in advance. I'm not always prickly like this, I swear. I'm just fed up with things, self-hate and all that jazz. We went through a lot, more than I asked. I stopped knowing if I was doing the right thing anymore. That's how messed up I am." Drake mulled over the situation, gazing at his host's determined expression. It was an expression that seemed too mature for an 18-year-old. "I was never on the receiving end of a scolding like this," he admitted. "But strangely enough, I believe you. Still, I'd like to hear how you managed to leap back in time." "Ah, yes, the burning question," Issei replied, leaning in with a mischievous glint in his eye. "But before we dive into the complexities of temporal shenanigans, we've got to address our long-distance relationship, buddy." Drake blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Our relationship?" Issei chuckled. "I mean, who else can I chat with when you're the only dragon on speed dial? We're practically stuck together, so we might as well be friends, right?" The heavenly dragon seemed to be considering this newfound friendship when Issei continued, "Now, about the time travel gig. You see, in my timeline, everything's been wiped clean. It's like we hit the cosmic reset button. Stuff that hasn't happened yet or that I managed to change just poof, gone. As for proof, Off Eyes and Great Red were my go-to time travel consultants, so go ask them." Drake's curiosity was piqued. "We're acquainted with them." Issei winked. "Well, not exactly regular pen pals, but we've exchanged a few words. I can't imagine those conversations being dull." "Oh, you have no idea. It's like trying to have a calm chat with a hurricane and a supernova. But hey, at least they are reliable when it comes to timey-wimey stuff." Drake couldn't help but crack a smile. "So why did you decide to grace us with your presence, future boy?" Issei shot an annoyed glance. "Hey, I'm getting to it. Grew some temper, didn't you?" Drake noted, raising an eyebrow. Issei was momentarily taken aback, acutely aware of the anger issues had developed and carried with him. "Yeah, evidently," he conceded, his tone a mix of self-awareness and exasperation. The man with the appearance of a boy let out a sigh that only exhausted, overworked adults possess. "Sorry about that. My brain's small, but I've got a lot of emotions. See, I promise I'll put on my big boy pants soon." "You admitted your wrongs at the very least," Drake muttered, a hint of self-reflection in his tone. He was somewhat ashamed that he couldn't do the same. Look, but I had everything, but you were reveling in it as well. It was our glory, after all. Our name echoed from the realm of the dead to Asgard and Nirvana. People recognized us instantly, asking for photographs and autographs, telling us how much of an inspiration we were. Any chipped pieces of our armor were auctioned off to fund orphanages, but we felt like neither of us had the time to, just couldn't enjoy life anymore. D-Drake emitted a low rumbling sound as he contemplated. HRM, did I ever realize it? Dude, you're my only confidant, and we're practically stuck together. Not even death did us part. Issei admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. You died. Yeah, twice. I survived both times. Got lucky. Again, details. How far from the future are you? If our fame transcends even realms, then surely you would have a spouse or two and children. Of course I did, Issei replied, his tone bitter. But I only get to see my wives and kids once a year if I'm lucky. Just once. Not to brag, but the entire world's become pretty dependent on us. With great power there must also come great responsibility. Issei wanted to punch D-Drake because of how many times he had heard of that bullshit adage. D-Drake noticed his stern stare. I may not be in a place to tell you that considering what I've done, but if not us, then who? Yeah, right, Issei scoffed. You know what I think of that? It's a great load of baloney crafted by folks who'd rather sit on their laurels than find alternatives to relying on one guy who just wants to enjoy some family time. Yikes, D-Drake winced. How old were you again? I dunno. 23, probably. The dragon's eyes nearly fell off. 23, you're still that young, and yet your bitterness exceeds that of an elder dragon. Hey, man, show me another 23-year-old who has to battle evil gods, dragons, or brainwash sacred gear users on an hourly basis, Issei shot back. It might excite you, but even you got fed up. By the way, you were the one who pitched this whole time-traveling idea, just to set the record straight, though I'm the one that pulled the trigger. Fair point, D-Drake conceded, nodding. If a battle-hardened enthusiast like him was spewing such heresy, it was clear they were knee-deep in an epic crisis. Good, Issei nodded. Before I got sent back, I made some promises. Promises that we need to keep, because they are my words, and by extension, your obligation too. How am I included in your commitment? Issei raised an eyebrow and replied with a playful tone. Your future self was kind enough to agree on your behalf, so if you have any complaints, feel free to take it up with him. This would be a very trippy dream if D-Drake was dreaming all of it. Fine, great, awesome. Well, first off, once it's possible, we're grabbing off eyes. We keep her safe from being manipulated, and make her our friend, Issei declared confidently that D-Drake found it hard to doubt him. While surround her with good people who don't want to use her for ulterior motives. And believe it or not, that's the easy part. Very well. What would a great red request from us? Issei shook his head. Nah, that crimson rascal didn't ask for anything in return. He's just a laid-back, go-with-the-flow kind of dragon. Said whatever happens to him, happens. He's cool like that. Damn dragon just wants to be the coolest. But if not him, then who? You, Issei continued, his tone growing serious. I made a promise to the future Io. Or I guess past you. I dunno. Whatever. But here's the million-dollar question, do you really want to know? D-Drake took a thoughtful pause. Despite my curiosity, I think it's best you decide whether I'm ready for it. Classic D-Drake move, throwing it all back on me, Issei quipped, his grin returning. You must think you're pretty cool for that, huh? And I know, that's not what I meant to do at all, D-Drake protested, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his draconic demeanor. Issei gave his partner an understanding smile. I know, buddy, I'm just messing with you. D-Drake felt a strange sensation tugging at the corner of his scaly cheek, something he couldn't quite attribute to dragon emotions. Who else did you make promises to? Your spouses, perhaps? His smile fell off his face, replaced quickly by a frown. No, they'd never allow it. I mentioned it as a joke to one of them during those brief moments we had together before we were off to deal with the world's mess. Her reaction, well, it was like I told her I was filing for a divorce. In a way, she's not entirely wrong, I suppose. I see it must be a tough decision. A bold one, indeed, D-Drake remarked, his curiosity piqued. But isn't coming back to your past, in essence, a betrayal of the world you left behind? Someone once said better to betray the world than let it betray me, Issei retorted, his expression unapologetic. As Issei shifted his gaze to meet D-Drake's, the dragon was taken aback by the sight. Instead of regret or self-doubt, he saw a carefree smile, devoid of guilt, almost bordering on a smirk. It was the kind of expression that should have been weighed down by remorse, but Issei carried it effortlessly. The older I got, the more I regretted ever wanting to be a hero. I can't say if I've grown wiser, but I'm certainly getting older, Issei mused. I wanted a fresh start. Hit the reset button on my sanity. Living for the world felt like clinging to a palm tree on a sinking island, and every high tide that came along chipped away at it. I wasn't living for myself, D-Drake. We weren't living for ourselves. We became the world's janitors, tasked with cleaning up the mess everyone else couldn't handle. And you know what, the world can have fat one for that. With resolve in his eyes, Issei stood up and crossed his arms casually. Look, I know it's selfish, but it's not like him planning to go full in villain mode. Sure, I might have left those people in that future hanging, but after everything I've done for them, I think it's fair to say they owe me this much. And despite how sociopathic I may sound right now, there's no way for me to go back anyway. That future's been erased for me, and these hands are the ones that did it. Issei wiggled his fingers, the same way he would if there were a pair of S in front of him. D-Drake could only stare in contemplation, unable to find a suitable response. And don't you dare criticize me for it, D-Drake, Issei warned, his tone firm. You were right there with me, every step of the way. Right now, you might not be as disillusioned as I am, but I share my perspective with future Ayu. It's a confusing mess, I know. But worrying too much about a future that's no longer in your control, well, let's just say that's like trying to tame a fire-breathing chicken. Issei pressed on, recognizing the dragon's hesitation. You know, I could have just fed you some convenient lie about coming back from the future because everything went to hell, that the world just took a nosedive, plunged off a cliff, and we were left stuck in the pits with no ladder out. But that wouldn't be fair to you, D-Drake. You're the last soul in all these god-forsaken worlds that I'd ever want to lie to, even out of necessity. D-Drake held him in silence. Never had he become this conflicted, but there was a first for everything. Even for dragons. And here's the kicker, Issei continued, his tone taking on a more introspective note. In weaker than a week-old kitten now, thanks to the old me who never participated in anything meaningful and wanked his days off while being a delusional garbage to society. Huh, the common ground, Issei snorted. And I'm going to need your help if we want to ensure that our future is better than the last one, for our sake and for everyone else well come to care about. Well, mostly for my sake, he'll be completely honest. Him selfish like that. D-Drake snorted. You're the only one I can rely on, D-Drake. Without you, I'd probably be nothing more than a hopeless nobody or, worse yet, 6 feet under. So, here's the billion-dollar question for our lives. Are you in, or are you out? I'm in, D-Drake replied without hesitation. I had my worries that you might have turned, well, evil in a sense, but everything you've said rings true. Even if you were plotting world domination, there's not much I can do to stop you either way. Sacred gears, even a Longinus, are just tools. Most of your predecessors treated me as nothing more than that. I'm sure you've heard the stories. Ooh, this is actually the first time you told me that, but sure yes. Bros for life. Oh, D-Drake's emerald eyes blinked in surprise, a touch embarrassed now. Well, I don't need your pity or anything. It's not like I cared about those old folks, they are just relics of history now. Rather, for the first time since you became my possessor, I'm actually looking forward to the future well-shaped together, partner. Hey, absolutely, we're going to be the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, and everything in between, Issei exclaimed, punctuating his words with an okay hand sign and a cheeky grin. Now, about those promises. I made 2 with you. I won't reveal the crucial one since you made me swear to keep it, but there's another one. D-Drake tilted his colossal head to one side. And what might that be? I promised you that I'd never let anyone give you ridiculous nicknames like Dragon Emperor, Titty Dragon, or Oppai Doragon for our Japanese fans and those foreign weebs who insist on using Japanese Ramaji just because they are weebs. Stop, WH, what in the name of the damned are you blabbering about? Who dared to give me such demeaning titles? Well, the world did. Then the world will pay for this insult. Well, technically, it hasn't happened yet, Issei pointed out, raising an eyebrow. Remember, this is the past for me, and it hasn't occurred in your timeline. Gradually, D-Drake's rage subsided as he realized the truth in Issei's words. But to think that someone would dare to insult me with such epithets, what could have possibly led to this affront? How could they tarnish my honor as the Crimson Dragon Emperor and the proud Welsh Dragon? I don't think of nonsensical perversion that, within Fafnir's territory, not mine. Issei nodded, feigning empathy. I know, right, so embarrassing. It's almost as if you were hosted by some idiot whose life decisions were controlled by his penis. At that, D-Drake paused, slowly connecting the dots, and then it dawned on him. He had a very strong inkling that the perpetrator might be standing right in front of him. Surely it couldn't have been you, right? Well, technically, it's the past me who did it, so by my impeccable logic, I'm completely innocent. Unless, of course, I decide to follow in Pastma's footsteps and bestow upon you those delightful nicknames just to watch you squirm. Before they could delve any further into this bizarre conversation, their shared dream world was violently shaken. It felt as if an earthquake had barged in, threatening to disrupt their conversation. An all-powerful voice boomed through their surroundings. Wake up, sheesh. Master, if you don't wake up, I'm going to give you a big, sloppy HYOUDOUSA. Issei, with an exaggerated gasp, suddenly glanced at an invisible watch. Oops, would you look at the time at school? O'clock Sayagata. And D-Drake's anguished roar echoed through the dream realm as Issei abruptly left him, casting the dragon back into the depths of his own soul, where he could do little but sit and contemplate his existence. Before it all fell apart, Issei's newfound powerlessness hit him like a sack of magical bricks. No longer could he effortlessly contort steel with a mere flick of his fingers, soar through the skies with the grace of a majestic goose, or shoot colossal laser beams while yelling out absurd attack names. Even his night vision decided it had better things to do, leaving him feeling more like a mundane mortal than the larger-than-life hero he once was. But this was worth every bit of that loss. Regrets might sneak up on him later like a sneaky ninja, but dwelling on possible future bummers wasn't his style. He was living in the past, which had inexplicably become his present, and he had zero intentions of sulking about his own decisions. Sure, Head developed a slight cynicism, but his core optimism remained unshaken because, honestly, things could always get a hell of a lot worse. In the midst of the chaos, as he sprinted across the school's track field, a frenzied mob of kendo girls hot on his heels, Issei couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What the hell is wrong with you, Hayato? Are you seriously laughing right now?" On his right, the bald Matsuda yelled at him. "Did they get you in the head?" "They say only a man who has lost everything can laugh in the face of certain death," Madohama philosophized, his breaths resembling an overheating steam engine. "Oh, I've definitely lost everything," Issei replied with a grin, abruptly halting in his tracks, causing a dramatic cloud of dust to billow up from his screeching shoes. His two pals slowed their pace but didn't stop. Matsuda's eyes widened with realization. "Eyes, you moron, why are you stopping?" "You don't have to do this, man," Madohama pleaded, realizing that Issei seemed determined to sacrifice himself to divert the rage of the kendo girls. "We can still get out of this mess if we stick together. There's no need for you to throw yourself under the rampaging kendo girls' bus." "My friends," Issei said with that enigmatic smile of his, the kind you'd expect from a character ready to make a heroic exit. "Leave them to me. Live long and prosper, and remember my name. Tell my wife I love her." He raised his right hand, offering a confident thumbs up. "Eyes, you lunatic, you don't even have a wife." "Forget it." Matsuda Madohama held his friend back, preventing him from rushing back to face the oncoming deluge of angry kendo girls. "This is his decision to make. We can't take it away from him. It just wouldn't be right." As the stampede grew larger in the horizon, the baldy nodded sagaciously. "You're right. We should bail." Matsuda dropped their dramatic act as he knew the danger was very, very imminent. He knew he wasn't planning to receive another hit to his family jewels. "We won't forget this, Eyes. Next ramen is my treat, believe it." Issei nodded with a triumphant smile and a glorious thumbs up, knowing his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. Of course, he didn't just plan to ruin his future by having his balls broken by a wooden practice sword. As the sea of angry girls closed in, encircling him and dashing his hopes of escape, he focused on the task at hand. He might not be the powerhouse he once was, but his battle-hardened experience with mythological creatures gave him an edge even in his twig-like state. His body was yet to be strong, but his mind remained sharpened. So sharp it could cut positivity. Facing off against an entire battalion, however, seemed like a surefire way to land himself in the infirmary, effectively ruining the rest of his day. "Ha ha, you're a brave man, Hayato." The brunette captain of the kendo team stepped forward, addressing Issei as she emerged from the girl mob. Speaking of bodies, Murayama, their captain, sported the most formidable pair of S among the kendo squad members. It was purely coincidental that she was their captain, of course. But don't think your bravery will save you from your punishment. "What if I buy you lunch? We get free lunch." "Oh, balls." Issei raised his empty palms, causing the girls to instinctively back away from him as if he were emitting reverse-cooties. "I'm here to negotiate the terms of my release." "Terms of your release? You still think you can get away from this? How many times have you peeped on us?" "Probably more times than we've been caught," Issei quipped, and somehow, Head managed to avoid expulsion, even under the strict rule of Sona Citri. "Go figure. But hold on your horses before you swing those wooden swords. Consider this. Why oh why are we risking our lives biweekly in the age of technology? We could just Google whys and voila, unfiltered mommy milkers without the danger of getting clobbered." Murayama blinked, then pointed her wooden sword menacingly at him. "Disgusting. Get to the point, Hayato. What are you suggesting?" "The point is someone might be paying us, and might be paying us good money for a single picture, an amount of dosh that makes us consider our life is worth throwing away because we might be owing another person big money, forcing us to become the way we are now, as three shameless perverts." "Really?" Murayama lowered her weapon, a concerned expression now on her face, as if contemplating the possibility that her classmate was ensnared in a web of debt. "How much do you owe?" "Hello? No. I said might. I was just making stuff up so my boys could get a head start before you come after them." Silence hung in the air like a dark cloud after a storm. His friend's sympathy vanished as quickly as it had appeared when confronted with Issei's honesty. "All right then. Not only did you peep, but you also played with my feelings. Today is the day y'all regret being born, Hayato Issei." "Won't be the first," Issei shrugged. "Do I get a last request?" he asked, trying to buy himself some time as he surveyed the looming circle of angry girls. "I'm not armed, and I really don't want to hurt anyone, because I can't hurt anyone. Fighting girls just doesn't seem right. Goes against the way of the samurai, you know." "Yeah, and what do you think we should do? Just let you off scot-free?" one of the girls in the back yapped. "What's your face?" "A valid point, to be honest." "I can't believe him saying this," the captain grouched, "but no matter how vile you are, sacrificing yourself for your friends is still a selfless act. Even coming from you." "Sweet," Issei smiled. "So I go Mayamurasen. You stay." "And it's Murayama." Issei's triumphant expression faded. "Oh, we're still going to hit you, but I'll give you a chance. There's around 20 of us, but if you can endure everything I throw at you for 1 minute, well, let you off this time." "Oh, even try to dodge," Murayama continued, "but if you get hit just once, well, continue with our previous punishment, beating you half to death." "Be but captain." No buts, he could have run, but he chose to retain whatever left of his dignity. It's only right to give him a chance. And have faith in me, I'm your captain, after all. The girls cheered. Of course. You're so cool, Captain, Issei added. Quiet, you. Zipping up, Issei breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness for Murayama's fondness for Bushido. Things could have taken a much darker turn. He might have ended up not just regretting being born but looking like a corpse too once they were done with him. Even if the defenseless is a pervert, girl with short pink hair spoke up. Kades, despite her kind personality, could deliver a mean swing when provoked, and she was quite thirsty herself. Murayama, on the other hand, upheld her honor and principles with great conviction. Even if the defenseless is a perv, Murayama declared firmly, ending the debate. While each face him one-on-one. Kendo is a noble sport, not a gangbang. Heh, gangbang, this one's the reverse one. And not in a good way, Issei muttered quietly, then noticed the girls glaring daggers at him. Sorry, you'll be quiet now. Murayama took charge, ordering the girls to create a circle to give them room. She pointed her wooden sword at Issei. No running away, Hayato. We're giving you a chance. Don't waste it by betraying us. Yep, I cross my heart. I might be a perv, but I ain't no. Well, see about that, Murayama muttered as she readied her sword, gripping the wooden weapon firmly. He'll be your first. Please be gentle with that hard stick. Murayama did not appreciate that innuendo. Issei prepared himself, adopting a self-defense stance with open palms at chest height, face exposed, and feet spaced apart. While he could have fought back and inflicted some serious damage with his counters, he knew this wasn't about overpowering them. This was to see if his body could keep up with his mind. And if not, to what extent. He couldn't hit as hard as his strength was pathetic, but dodging should still be in his area of expertise. Murayama launched a direct assault, stepping forward and thrusting her sword straight toward his nose, attempting to knock him out. An intention Issei was thankful for, since that would spare him from the rest of the girl's anger, but getting hit at first strike would defeat the point. So Issei took one step back and watched the white tip of the sword hang just inches from his nose. Taken aback, Murayama retracted her sword, straightening her posture. You've developed some good reflexes, Hayato, she muttered. Not many can dodge my first attack like that. You should be proud. Really sure you didn't just screw up. I take that back. Her movement, trained as she was easy to read. He just didn't have as much time to react as he was a human boy with the experience of a world guardian, a made-up title to make him feel good given by the world. Whatever that meant. Issei continued to evade Murayama's strikes as she swung horizontally from his right side. He bobbed and weaved like a skilled boxer, darting to the right to avoid her follow-up attack, a downward strike that hit nothing but air and grazed his bangs. Having faced opponents with fancier and deadlier swords in the past, Issei knew their glaring weakness. They couldn't do much when he got in close. So he pressed forward, slowly but surely. As he continued to dodge Murayama's swings, he made his way to her. Realizing this, the Kendo club captain mitigated his advance by stepping back. For each forward step he took, she took one step backward, some slightly to her left or right so she wouldn't be backed against the live wall. The 60 seconds were nearly over without Murayama ever landing a hit and trying to regain distance to strike with her sword. Frustration and confusion started to settle, and her finesse was getting weakened by both fatigue and annoyance, and her white shirt became dusted with sand. Ha, she panted, taking a break from her assault to catch her breath. This wasn't going as planned. Issei's movements were efficient and economical, wasting no unnecessary energy. He looked remarkably fit, despite a bit of sweat on his cheek. This body isn't as half bad as I thought. Deedrag complimented. Oh, you can talk to me like this again now, sweet. I wonder if I can still mute you. Deedrag was muted. And unmuted. Pretty heckin' strong, dude. One sneeze and an entire mountain is gone, Issei said, and Deedrag couldn't tell if it was a joke or a simple truth. Anyway, talk to you later. Shouting her kiai, essentially a battle cry term for kendo, pumping herself up as if shouting it could make her strike harder or more accurately, Murayama leapt in, feinted, and aimed for another downward attack to his head. As she made her very linear slash, Issei shifted to his side and closed in on her like an oncoming train. The surprise charge was successful. His unexpected surge caught Murayama off guard, and she hastily retreated, losing her balance on the uneven ground and stumbling backward. But Issei managed to break her fall by grasping the wooden sword she still clutched tightly even as she lost her balance. Pulling it back, he then extended his free arm around her back, performing an impromptu tango dip, albeit with a wooden sword in place of a hand. Several audible gasps were made. And in Murayama's face of shock and bewilderment and the creeping red-hot blush that was starting to conquer her cheeks, an image of Ria's Gremory's blushing face instead occupied his mind. That would be nice. He did plan on redeeming himself for all the missed hints that were thrown at him during his early life as a reincarnated devil. How he could be denser than a black hole was merely due to his lack of confidence, and if given the chance, he wasn't going to break hearts this time by being a brainless dildo. Never. Not again. Hayato on Murayama's part, her heart was trying to jump out of her chest, which didn't make sense to her. This must be because he was a man, yes. A boy. He was just a boy and nothing more, and she was only flustered because he was the opposite member of her, who was also a massive pervert. Yes, that's it. Nothing more. Absolutely nothing more. So why couldn't she maintain eye contact with him? Guess I failed, Issei said, sobering up and helping Miriama get back onto her feet and unhanding her sword without even thinking about it. His flash of sadness wasn't caught by anyone present. He kicked the ground in a very mature display of expressing his disappointment. Dang it, I was doing so well. Miriama stared at him, befuddled. The Kendo Club members exchanged silent glances, and Cadiz finally spoke up, "See, Captain." Without a noise, they realized the fact that their captain and leader was frozen in place and face completely beat red was a very, very, very bad omen. And though they hated to admit it, his performance and the glamorous finish was something some of the girls had sometimes daydreamed about. No one truly expected they would witness a live reenactment of their daydream and be performed by the captain they adored and the pervert they despised. What, quit staring at me like that and get on with it. It's never too late to develop masochism, I guess, Issei said, resigning to his fate as he closed his eyes. While it wasn't within his plan to be sent to the infirmary, he didn't mind making several adjustments if things didn't go as planned. A good plan is a flexible plan, as he believed, since that way the plan never truly fails, only different degrees of success. However, Miriama was quick to protest. 3 refused to count that. That's not a swing I made, and you were holding me back from a fall. I refused to accept a hollow victory. Yeah, well, I mean, he did dodge everything you threw at him for a whole minute, Cadiz said quietly, not really wanting to be heard. But can't we take one hollow victory just once, just this time? Cadiz-chan, that's not fair for him, a girl argued. And the rest started to back him. Are we going against Captain's words? I don't want to do that. But as the girls bickered amongst themselves, Issei opened his eyes. He had stopped listening for quite a bit and now wondering what the hell was the damn holdup. So am I staying or what? You can go, but the next time we catch you peeping again. Yeah, don't worry. He slinked past the girls who ruefully gave way. Won't get caught next time. Smell you later, sword nerds. WHYU. Before they could even think of chasing him again, Hayato Issei had executed his greatest escape yet. As he moved forward in this second life, Issei contemplated whether it was considered a third life at all. He retained his memories and hadn't died or been hit by a truck. He didn't intend to completely reshape his future but rather explore the roads he hadn't taken while ensuring the results remained desirable. This was all about taking or avoiding responsibilities to make his future less packed with save-the-world missions. And if fate dared to try and mess with him, he swore to make her his this time. Just like Rainier, who had been waiting for his arrival by the school gate, steadily losing her patience, unaware that she was on course to make the worst mistake of her life. Rainier. His legitimate first ever non-2D crush that actually dated him. Their relationship was as genuine as a counterfeit Rolex. It involved deceit, a quick demise, and a complete lack of future prospects. Yet, in the brief moments they spent together, Issei felt a warmth he couldn't quite explain. Sure, it was all part of her plan to evaluate his worth before snuffing out his existence, but for a gullible guy like him, those moments felt real. His laughter was genuine, his awkwardness painfully so. He genuinely believed he was doing great on that faux date. But, in reality, Issei was once just a gullible young man with an awfully optimistic outlook on life and a steadfast belief in more abstract concepts, like hope. When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful. A miracle, oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the trees, well, they'd be singing so happily. Oh, joyfully, oh, playfully watching me. But then they sent me away to teach me how to be sensible, logical, oh, responsible, practical. Then they showed me a world where I could be so dependable. Oh, clinical, oh, intellectual, cynical. He had let his world fall to ruin to save theirs. Now it was his turn to rescue his world, all while ensuring his actions didn't inadvertently trigger another cataclysm. Not that he aspired to be a world savior anymore, the hero chapter of his life was firmly in the past. No, his motivation was much simpler. He didn't want to see his girls entangled in a world gone awry. After all, he yearned to spend quality time with them, not wait at home like a deadbeat husband while they were out carrying their duties and being responsible adults and such. The sudden, timid voice of "Will you go out with me?" shattered his thoughts, pulling him back to the present and the pressing matter at hand, Rainier. Killing her now was out of the question. Compared to her, he was a pathetic twig and she was a veritable weed whacker. Besides, revenge against her had grown stale, a pointless endeavor. More to that, her critical role in Asia's arrival and the expelled saint's tragic demise complicated matters. So, Issei needed to be exceedingly cautious to avoid drastically altering the future. He knew precisely how to utilize her to his advantage, get him to Azazel. The governor was a key player, the sanest of the major faction leaders, and conveniently, the only one who wasn't infatuated with none of his siblings, celestial or fallen. A strange coincidence indeed. Meeting Azazel early on would undoubtedly prove beneficial, especially considering the early incidents caused by his unruly cotter. And so, the plan begun with a rejection. No, Issei responded bluntly, his voice cutting through the tension. "I'm so glad. What did you say?" Still playing her facade, Yuma momentarily displayed a crack in her act. Confusion flickered across her innocent face, mirrored by the students lingering near the Kyo Academy gates. I am sorry. His blunt refusal whipped conspiracies in a flash. Did Hayato just turn down that chick? Nanny, is he stupid? Well, I mean, he is, but you guys know what I mean. Maybe one of the Kendo girls finally hit him so hard that he turned to the other team. Speculations ran amok, while Rainer teetered on the edge of embarrassment and bubbling rage. Issei, meanwhile, sported an imbecilic grin and explained his reason for shooting her down. "We just met, pretty sure, and what kind of girl wants to date a guy for no reason unless him being punked?" He turned around dramatically, scanning the area, while raising a challenging fist and wagging it in the air. "So where are the damn cameras? How you guys think this is a funny prank? I'll show you funny once I put your face in the dirt." Yuma, or rather Rainer, blinked in disbelief. He was just being an idiot, she surmised. Of course, why would she expect anything more than again? Why had Ria's Gremory kept an eye on him all week? Surely not because his perversion rivaled the most debauched fallen. There was something about him, a potential that needed to be unearthed. And, in the name of her Lord Azazel, she was determined to reveal it by any means necessary. "And I know," she stammered, maintaining her act as the blushing maiden. "It's not a prank, I promise. I'd never do that to anyone, especially someone too well-like." Issei paused. You like me seriously? Why didn't you say that from the start?" "All right, let's go," he agreed, not because of her adorableness, but because her act was nauseating to the point of inducing nausea. A younger version of him might have jumped for joy, but his tastes had evolved as he grew older. He longed for a scantily clad, long-legged fallen angel Penemu. The sooner Rainer vacated the premises, the better. "Thank you, I'm so glad." He noticed the genuine sneer before it turned to a fake smile, and rolled on with it. Is there anywhere you want to go?" Her fake smile contorted into a gaping jaw as Issei uttered a single sentence. "Tell you what, there's this one particular hotel I've been dying to check out." Nearby students erupted into scandalized chatter, oblivious to the fact that the two main actors had eyes only for each other. The hotel he picked couldn't be any better. Not only was it in the fringes of the Kyo town and belonged to the Gregory, forcing those good little devils to stay clear, it also meant that killing him here wouldn't bat any eyes, and neither would entering the establishment in this form. She knew the guards of this place, and they knew better than to mess with her business. "Please be gentle," Yuma murmured, lying on a rather lackluster bed. This love hotel was a regular haunt for fallen angels, and this wasn't her first time here with a human. However, it was her first time being led here by one. If she were lucky, she might even bump into Lord Azazel once this charade was over, considering he was the establishment's owner. Not that he was here often. He must be busy dealing with more important things. As surprised as she was, Rainer had half expected this outcome. After all, it was Issei they were talking about, and perhaps it was naive of her to think he would opt for a traditional, uninspired date. No, he had gone straight for the finale. She gave him credit for his directness. It was a daring move and an obvious indicator of why he had remained both single and oh well, she thought, it would all be over in 5 minutes, tops. It wasn't the method she had hoped to employ to confirm his hidden power, but putting his in her was still the quickest and most efficient way to gauge a person's worth, in more ways than one. He went for her S first. Typical. He didn't even bother to unbutton her uniform. She moaned, closing her eyes. She knew that guys liked to hear girls moan, and most of them were clueless about whether the sounds were genuine. Her moans appeared to be working on Issei, who was steadily picking up his pace. Rainer could feel his nervous hands attempting to unbutton her uniform, fingers fumbling due to his excitement. In reality, Issei was doing everything he could to keep himself from bursting into laughter due to the sheer absurdity of her act. It was fortunate that her eyes were closed, or she would have noticed his internal struggle not to break character. After a few awkward moments, Rainer decided to lend a helping hand by removing her blazer and unbuttoning her shirt herself. Her face remained a betrayed facade of modesty, eyes still shut tight, while her mind played out a vivid scenario of impaling that cheeky Gremory brat with a light spear through the neck. She would make for a pretty crimson gift for Lord Azazel. "Young, can you turn around? You imagine?" Again, Rainer mistook Issei's shaky voice for embarrassment and offered a timid nod. Unbeknownst to her, Issei was clamping his lips together, not to stifle moans of passion but to prevent laughter from bubbling out. Yuma was undeniably pretty, with her glossy black hair and a charming smile. However, Issei knew what lay beneath that facade, and it was a libidocular of epic proportions. She felt him climb on top of her back, straddling her legs next to hers. It was an unexpected move, but Issei reasoned that everyone had their own peculiar tastes. Consequently, she responded with a restrained grunt. Issei gently brushed her hair aside, revealing the nape of her neck, a particular weakness for all fallen angels. Akino had imparted this tantalizing tidbit to him. She would melt like a candle whenever he caressed her neck and teased her nape. Clearly, it worked just as well on Rainer. With one subtle bite, Issei managed to stifle a squeal from her lips, and this time, it wasn't faked. Yet Issei couldn't help but feel slightly disturbed. The faint scent of lavender was all too familiar to his nose. Was this a common perfume among fallen angels? Akino wore the same fragrance every time she initiated amorous encounters, which, frankly, was just about every time they met, 3 days per year, give or take a few more. Her mind raced as her eyes widened in astonishment. Before she could berate herself for making that pitiful noise, the boy had already leaned in for another nip, kneading her tense back and sending waves of unholy pleasure rippling through her body. It was impossible for a mere human boy to create such sensations without prior experience. Fallen angels were creatures driven by desires, which could either empower them or render them incredibly weak. Right now, horniness had reduced her to the latter, and with every crude he planted on her defenseless neck, her strength waned while her breath grew hotter and more ragged. Her loins burned, and she grew wetter and wetter between her thighs. At the slightest touch of his fingers, Rainier climaxed within 5 minutes. As she needed to concentrate to maintain her current form, her body arched forward as 2 black wings burst from her back, sending the boy tumbling off her with an ungraceful yelp. What the heck, you've got wings? Breathless, feeling like she was being consumed by lust itself, Rainier tried to locate him. Her vision had blurred, and her outfit felt unbearably tight on her chest. She knew her wings had torn through the white shirt and bra, but her body refused to cooperate. This is not favorable, she thought, unable to move. Eninga, she moaned as he flipped her around, mounting her once more. She hissed as her wings were forcibly folded, pressed against the bed. Although her vision was blurry, she could make out the smirk on his face, indicating that this wasn't his first encounter with a fallen angel's true form. Terrible news for her. Who are you? She managed between her breaths, now powerless and at his mercy for the next few minutes. If she could stall him long enough, this blunder might not be beyond redemption. You know who I am? You asked me out. Idiot, the boy responded blandly, his voice dripping with venom towards the end. Inside, he deeply resented how similar her true form looked to Akino's. The same scent, the same violet eyes. Even her hair was only shades darker than Akino's. But he had risen above personal vendettas because he wasn't a petulant child. Rainier could still be of use to him. I need you to get Azazel to me. Her purple eyes widened. How did you? Whose side are you on? He squeezed his hands around her neck, and Rainier writhed in a mixture of pain and pleasure. On this ate shit. Like that, did you? Issei monotoned. She even shared the same fetish with Akino. What was it with fallen angels and covert masochism? Not that he was complaining, just wondering. Not that he was complaining, he was merely curious. He wasn't placing any blame on Akino or her cousin for introducing him to the joys of sadism. There was a certain satisfaction in watching someone or something writhe beneath him. Perhaps he had become a bad person over the years, all thanks to his inability to be with his own wives. The bitterness and yearning had likely rendered him celibate because he felt nothing during this encounter with the alluring Rainier or her divine backside, which Volley would probably admire for a few seconds. Then again, this was Rainier, so Issei hoped his lack of Yule arousal was due to the current circumstances and not a reflection of him. Rest assured, I'm not here to kill you, because I haven't killed anyone. Yet, and I'm not you, I actually have a functioning brain. The statement caused her eyes to widen by an additional millimeter. Yes, I know you might be planning to kill me, and I don't care. He'll tell you why, because I want to meet your boss, and you're going to help me with that. You won't betray me to other fallen angels because you know him too valuable to be summarily killed. And should your boss discover that you've disposed of his prized asset, he'll likely cast you aside somewhere else. Realization slowly began to settle amidst Rainier's racing thoughts. It was impossible this pervert had outsmarted her from the very beginning. So are we good? This is your biggest chance, you know, if you want to get Azazel's attention. His tone suggested that he knew more than she had initially suspected. Despite this humiliating situation, his words contained undeniable truths. Meekly, Rainier nodded in uncomfortable silence. Issei grinned. It was all going according to plan. Excellent. Now call him and inform him that we're meeting here. He's probably lurking around this place anyway. With that, he got off her and settled on the edge of the bed, placing one leg over the other's knee, seemingly unfazed by Rainier's alluring thighs or the sticky fluid that was slowly trickling down. Hell, Lady Penemu, it's Rainier. Someone. She paused to let her breathing a bit more steady. Someone wants to meet Lord Azazel. Tell her it's urgent and that whiskey tastes like oil. Rainier paused, before continuing. He said it's urgent and whiskey tastes like oil. He even knew Penemu and the secret code to bypass any background check. Just who on earth was this boy, and how did he keep a calm face and attacked at her own role of a fool? Now waiting, Issei hopped off the mattress and took a seat on the couch not far from the bed, putting one leg on top of the other's knee, unbothered by Rainier's luscious thighs or the transparent liquid that was slowly dripping down. You're in for a wild ride, Rainier, he informed her, realizing that he might have altered her destiny, either for better or for worse. Buckle up your seatbelt or strap on, whichever protective device you prefer. Break. Before long, the Governor General materialized in the room with a burst of black feathers, scattering them across the floor before they dematerialized. Show off, Issei muttered out of habit, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. He was relieved to see his teacher and mentor once again, with the same black hair and tacky yellow bangs, and his unmistakable burgundy outfit. Hell, Lord Azazel. Rainier jumped out of the bed, standing straight, now dressed in her customary revealing outfit that left little to the imagination. She couldn't help but feel a tinge of frustration that the mysterious boy hadn't spared a single glance or comment on her appearance, but her focus had never been on him anyway. It was always Azazel who mattered to her. Unfortunately, she had never seemed to matter much to him. Azazel's 12 wings retracted as he addressed Issei straight. So hi out to Issei, I have to say this isn't the way or place I'd expect to have my first meeting with you. He chuckled wryly. Can't say I expected you to ever contact me first either. You do seem to pack a lot of surprises. Hey, surprises, sure, but none that you wouldn't like, Issei replied, still seated. But let's cut to the chase. I want to talk to you about something she is planning to do. She intends to capture an exiled nun with a sacred gear and take her twilight healing for herself. Essentially, it's a death sentence for the poor girl. If you doubt my words, feel free to verify with the mastermind herself. That so Rainer's eyes widened in fear, and Azazel's gaze turned piercing as he focused on her. Tell me that he's lying, Rainer. Rainer swallowed hard, unable to meet Azazel's gaze. Lying had always come naturally to her, but she knew better than to deceive Lord Azazel. How had this boy unearthed her plans? Asia Argento hadn't even arrived yet. She was probably somewhere mid-flight over China, and she had taken great pains to ensure that none of her underlings mentioned the nun's name. It's all been done for you, my lord. Her voice wavered. Now pardon me here, but how does acting out of my order translate to that I have enough troubles as it is? I don't need you adding more to the pile, Azazel seethed, gritting his teeth in a rare display of his anger. First Cockabeel had rebelled and now this, so where is the girl now? Asia Argento, correct, the one I told you to bring back to me safely. Rainer stammered. She should be on her way by tomorrow afternoon. And here comes my proposition, Issei interjected. Asia must stay with the devil. He wasn't going to let her be Azazel's guinea pig. You will convince the devils overseeing this town to take her in as a goodwill, a gesture of peace. Ria's Gremory is in desperate need of servants, which explains why she's been eyeballing me for a while, Both Rainer and Azazel stared at him, taken aback by his audacious demand and his depth of knowledge. Rainer was the first to express her disbelief. You know the devils. A bit, Issei shrugged. It's impossible. Rainer pointed out. He's never made contact with any of the devils. She's right. A very good spy, aren't you? But him also not telling a lie. Azazel studied Issei intently, scrutinizing his facial features, eyes, lips, and even the faintest twitch of a muscle. Yet, he found nothing to suggest deceit. And why would I want to do that? Azazel questioned further, his curiosity piqued. Are you with the devil, boy? Issei responded calmly. First, because the devils will treat her as one of their own far better than you ever will, Mr. Techno-Wizard. He noticed a flicker of surprise cross Azazel's face, not from the insult but from the unexpected moniker. And yes, I am on their side, as well as yours, the angels, and the entire supernatural world side that seeks peace. But we can delve into that later, Issei continued, his patience wearing thin, a side effect of his altered sanity. In exchange for her, he'll let you experiment on this. A vibrant crimson glow enveloped his left arm, revealing a red, fingerless gauntlet as it gradually faded into view. At first, Issei seemed a tad puzzled, but then he realized the reason behind the appearance of the twice critical. He was still weak as shit. Damn it, still this, how Issei muttered, a hint of disappointment in his voice. However, the simple fact that he had summoned his sacred gear with ease and demonstrated its existence was enough to leave the fallen angels surprised. Azazel's grin widened at Issei's frankness. Well, isn't this fascinating? I've been toying with the idea of running some tests on twice critical. Issei chuckled, not missing a beat. Yeah, you're itching to mass-produce them, right? Azazel blinked, caught off guard. You're dropping quite a few bombshells here, Hayao Issei. Are you sure that's a wise move? Of course it is, Issei said without hesitation. I trust you, and I know you will trust me. Azazel leaned back, musing. It's not clear if that's arrogance, ignorance, or a testament to the bond we've forged through years of camaraderie. Either you're some sort of all-knowing deity, or this isn't your first rodeo. Issei grinned playfully, pointing finger guns at Azazel. See, you've got it figured out. I'm from the future, which is technically my past. I'm here to change it because of Ed. The revelation brought a dawning realization to both Azazel and Rainer. It was a mind-bending concept, but it explained Issei's uncanny knowledge. And FYI, I have D-Drag, not this lousy thing. Issei knocked on the sacred gear in question, displaying his preference. I just need some time to buff up, and it'll be peaky. D-Drag, Rainer repeated, slowly grasping the gravity of her situation. Killing him would have been disastrous, especially if he was a Longinus possessor. Lord Azazel would have been furious. The boosted gear, you say Dragon Booster, Azazel whispered, and Issei nodded as his gauntlet vanished. Well, it'll be damned. I'm legally inclined to never say no to that kind of generous offer. Issei nodded, that's right. But there's more to it. I need you to take care of Fried, Asia Argento's escort. That insane priest is working for Cockabeel. Rainer couldn't contain her surprise and curiosity. How much do you know? Issei remained cryptic yet firm. More than enough. And I'm also keeping enough secrets to ensure none of you try to eliminate me. Changing the future too drastically could have dire consequences. You understand what I mean, right? Azazel picked up the breadcrumbs. You want us to keep this between us? Issei affirmed, his gaze unwavering. Yes, I can trust you completely because I know you are not foolish, and you understand the potential butterfly effects I might create. Plus, I can assist you in helping that burly man mend his broken family. Azazel's thoughts immediately gravitated toward one name, Barakil. Barakil had been a shattered man ever since learning of his daughter's affiliation with the Gremory heiress. If this boy had the power to rebuild that fractured relationship, Azazel was more than willing to support him. Barakil deserved another chance at being a father. Azazel's curiosity couldn't be contained any longer. Just what did I do in the future to earn this much trust from the Red Dragon Emperor? Everything you've said seems to check out. I don't sense any signs of deception from you, and it's clear you are not strong enough to mask your desires. Issei chuckled, acknowledging Azazel's astute observation. "You fallen angels and your sin sonar. And as for trust, have you heard of Trihexa? The beast?" Yes, at this point, nothing he said could surprise him as Azazel assumed he knew everything. He probably knew of his taste in women. "What about it?" Issei's expression turned grave. "Let's just say something really bad is on the horizon next year. Something very, very bad. The revival of the apocalyptic beast, all orchestrated by a particularly nasty evil man. At this point, I think they are still going by the Chaos Brigade, but eventually, Ryzen will take the helm, and his reason for it is as moronic as devils are supposed to be evil." Azazel froze, the implications of Issei's words sinking in. The Chaos Brigade was no longer just a rumor, it was a threat that needed immediate attention. Perhaps it was time to send Volley on a different mission. Seek out the Chaos Brigade instead of pursuing Cockabeel. "Yes, that would be very bad indeed, but I don't think you telling me this will be of any help. We're at white peace with the devils, and if I just send them a message implying the descendant of Lucifer is planning to bring the end times himself, none of them will ever believe me, regardless of my impeccable natural charisma." Issei couldn't help but roll his eyes at the diplomatic dance of it all. "Well, I've got a plan to sweeten the deal for the devils. I'll use my status as the red dragon thingy, flaunt it a bit, and make them eager to shake hands with you." Azazel raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Issei's audacity. "You're quite confident in your ability to master that longinus." Issei's gaze remained unyielding. "Confidence is my middle name, right after dangerous. I know I can do it, and when I can, I do." Azazel nodded slowly, seemingly willing to give Issei the benefit of the doubt. "All right, tell me more about Trihexa. Why is preventing its unsealing your endgame?" Issei's expression grew grimmer as he delved into the grim details. "Trihexa can't be unsealed. When the seal broke, it took nearly all the leaders of the three major factions, along with gods from different pantheons, to prevent it from devouring everything we hold dear, like our favorite foods and Yule activities." Curiosity gripped Azazel as he pressed for more details. "But what exactly happened? Did we manage to defeat that thing?" "Unfortunately, no. You all bought time by sealing yourselves, joining forces with Adjuka, Michael, and even the Nordic pantheon, tossing Trihexa into another dimension, a desperate gambit to isolate it from the world. That was your last-ditch effort." Issei's face showed genuine sorrow as he continued. "It took Volley and me 3 years to find where the heck you guys were in the gap. 3 years to reach you and try to help. By the time we got there, Surzech was the only one left. We couldn't save him. No one could save him. Honestly, I don't even know what kept him alive, probably his desire to protect everyone. He died moments after we arrived." The memory weighed heavily on Issei, a reminder of his failure as a hero. It was a painful memory, one that had set the stage for the countless trials he'd face in the future. Abandoning his own family was a choice many labeled as selfish, but to him, the true selfishness lay in expecting him to bear the burden of their weakness. "So, our first priority is stopping Ryzvim, and above all, preventing the return of Trihexa," Issei concluded. "I see you know about Volley too," Azazel muttered, a hand under his chin, deep in thought. "And you came here because everything was a complete mess. That's the gist of it," Issei huffed. "There's way too much shit I had to take care of that I didn't even get the time to think. The beast ate many gods, Zazel. Gods. And without them around, guess who had to take care of the shit they are supposed to handle?" "Ah," Azazel smiled, leaning to the velvety red wallpaper. "Unwanted responsibilities. They are, aren't they?" Issei couldn't hold back a snort of agreement. An understatement of the century. "It devoured my personal life. Missed the birth of my sons 3 times, and my daughters twice. When I finally met them, they were already mastering the art of walking. Every time they saw me, they stared like I was some strange, mythical creature, and they'd clutch their mother as if I were a living enigma." A surge of anger flickered in his eyes as he vented his frustration. "I didn't save the world 1,000 times so my children don't recognize me." He ground his teeth, his lips curling with a mixture of disgust and regret. "How can I even call myself a man at that point? Just a marionette. Those problems were the strings I kept cutting, but for every one I cut, 5 more latched on. Every damn time. If that goes on, he'll eventually reach a point where one day I'd stop putting out the fires and just sit there and watch the world burn. Millions or billions will curse my name and forget everything I've given up for them. Then my wives would grow to question and likely hate me for it, and my children would have to grow up learning their father did nothing while countless die." Issei's eyes blazed with brown anger for a brief moment, but he then took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. "Fortunately, I never reached that point, and that's why I'm here now, so I don't have to teeter on the brink anymore." Azazel was left momentarily speechless, the weight of Issei's words sinking in. Those experiences were all too real, and he knew it. He decided to employ his usual approach, humor, in the hope of lightening the mood and finding common ground. "You've been through quite a lot, haven't you? It's rather bizarre to see you as a boy when your mental age is probably what? That of a World War I Great War veteran." Issei couldn't help but snicker, finding humor in his own challenging past. Despite his bitterness, he knew he didn't have to be perpetually grumpy. More or less. "You see, Zazel, I'm just an exhausted guy who wants a good night's sleep, surrounded by exceptionally pretty girls with exceptional bodies." Azazel chuckled heartily, his laughter echoing with warmth. "Those shoulders must be stiff from carrying the entire world. I need a massage. I'm sure Rainier here won't mind." Rainier wouldn't argue, not like she could either, but despite his sad story, and despite he wasn't lying, she still wasn't completely sure if this wasn't just one convincing act. Maybe because he had tricked her earlier and she just didn't want to believe him. She felt like a child, and it angered her that she was acting like a child, but she couldn't help herself. Thanks, but no thanks, he replied flatly. The blunt rejection stung Rainier this time. I don't stick my in chicks who want to bite my off. Ha, Azazel laughed heartily with his chest. Very well, how do? I'll pitch in as I can. Let's try and reshape the world so you want about it, yeah. Issei allowed a grin. Yeah, sorry for in. Had to let it out else I'd explode. Understandable, Azazel reassured him. But, can I ask for some insights into what Cockabeel is up to right now? It'll help, but on my terms, Issei stipulated. You can make requests, not orders. I'm not obligated to agree, but I'll explain my reasons if I refuse. In exchange, you can experiment with my long anus, longinus. Just don't even think about getting close to my rear end. Azazel chuckled. Sure thing. Whatever you say, Dragon Emperor. Or should I say Secretary? Issei pulled a face at the mention of titles. Ugh, no please. Just call me Issei or Eyes, like a regular person. Stop giving titles to folks. Titles make me cringe. Azazel raised an eyebrow, teasingly. You're quite temperamental, aren't you? Look, Issei let out a sigh, his irritation fading, replaced by a worn-out resignation. Just call me Issei, or Hayaudu. I've had enough of titles. All right, Hayaudu it is. Azazel sniggered. He could only imagine what this man inside a boy had gone through to be so grouchy. Not being able to watch his own kids grow up repeatedly was probably it. This guy made Barakiel's issues look like a joke. I assume you want to be left to your own devices so you can enjoy your life. Yes, if so, I promise to only am asked to tamper with your sacred gear not more than once per week. He'll do it when I feel like it, Issei replied. While Azazel was an old friend, they were still reacquainting themselves, and Issei wanted to keep some control over his schedule. He'll be quite occupied in the coming weeks, so it won't be this month. Today's Thursday, so Sere. Azazel burst into laughter. I'll clear my entire schedule for the day. Great, because I'm planning to start giving all my body parts to D-Drag. D-Drag had to interrupt. I know what I'm doing, Drakey, Issei retorted internally. He'll do it piece by piece, not my entire body all at once, you dip. D-Drag conceded. You can do that, Azazel asked, intrigued by the idea. Sacrifice one part to gain power, yes. Just give me a day to activate the boosted gear, I'll meditate or some shit. Azazel contemplated his options. This plan was too well constructed to be a scam, and even if it were, he couldn't help but respect the effort put into it. Still, he couldn't rule out the possibility of treachery, and he knew he'd have to deal with Issei if he discovered any deception. On the other hand, the opportunity to test his theories on a god-killer class Longinus was too tantalizing to pass up. Azazel grinned as he considered the possibilities. All right, sad it is, and then I'll leave you be for the rest of the month. He nodded, staring at Rainier, whose brain had short-circuited for a while. Now, what do you want done to her? Rainier's heart raced as she was suddenly thrust into the conversation. My lord. Issei considered her for a moment. She heard our entire conversation, and some things are best kept secret. Do you trust her? No. Want me to dispose of her? Rainier's world seemed to crumble at the suggestion. What she stammered, her voice trembling. Cruel as it was, Issei knew this was part of Azazel's ruse. Issei was quick to clarify his intentions, smoothly adhering to Azazel's scheme. Now don't say that, he told Azazel. Give her another chance. It's not as if she's murdered the nun or me. Besides, she could be your best bet as a double agent. Cockabeel likely won't suspect her true allegiance. She's an excellent actress. You think one eyebrow was raised. Azazel considered this suggestion and ultimately agreed. Very well then. What do you have in mind for her, in detail, other than her role as my spy? Rather than her, Fried is the one who needs to be dealt with. He's caused too many problems for what he's worth, Issei explained, recalling Fried's role in Cockabeel's plan to steal the Excaliburs. And since he's a priest, the devils aren't allowed to attack him first. Fine, you can count on me. He'll handle that mad dog, Rainier said, eager to prove her worth to Azazel. What else? Before you do, you gotta make sure Asia's safe. Don't let him use her as a bargaining chip. Worse, I'll probably kill her if he finds out he's being duped. Azazel acknowledged this revised plan. Right, that's a valid point. If he's aligned with Cockabeel, he'll likely be cautious around my people. In that case, we'll need to adjust our strategy. Rainier, he turned to address her, since you initiated this, I want you to be the one to put an end to it. Don't mess this up, understand? Rainier straightened herself, her wings visibly stiffening. Yes, my lord, she responded with newfound determination. That's the spirit, Azazel commended with a smirk, instantly making her melt. Issei thought to himself, rolling his eyes. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but reflect on his own past, when he had been the same kind of shooter to Ria's. But at least he found Ria's rear end preferable to the old crow. All right, secure the sister first, and then he'll put on a show for the devils in town. Sounds good, Azazel proposed. Issei mulled it over before nodding with a sly grin. I'll join in on the theatrics. I've got a knack for drama. Do you plan to spill the beans about your time-traveling escapades to them? Just thought I should be in the loop if you do. No, not now. Not soon. Timing is key, and we're still miles away from the right moment. If I start blabbering about the future now, he'll be signing up for devil duty, and trust me, I'm not into that 9-to-5 demon gig. And as for the Holy Thanthu angels, well, they can have their halo-waving fun without me. Rainier couldn't help but smirk at Issei's irreverent take on it, and Azazel cracked a smile in response. But here's the deal, Issei continued, Ria's Gremory will likely try to recruit me, and she probably will if I end up as a crispy critter in the next few days before Sere. Before Sere? Yeah, you see, it'll still be weak enough for her evil pieces to work their charm on me, Issei explained. Oh, what was your piece by the by, Rook? 8 pawns, replied Issei, all which mutated at some point in the future, but I'm not planning to wait that long. Thus your gamble with your own body, Azazel nodded, confirming his hypothesis. So, do you need some backup until then, or you're too manly for that sort of stuff? Absolutely, Issei admitted with a shrug. Pride left the building a long time ago. I just want to rewrite a few plot twists. You see, Rainier over here, he gestured playfully to her, originally gave me a one-way ticket to the afterlife after our date, which led to my reincarnation as a devil. I'd like to avoid that rerun. Azazel skimmed at the foiled murderer. I can trust you to not do that, can I, Rainier? Of course, not a chance. The governor nodded dully, facing the human boy again, his expression thoughtful. Now, most of the town belongs to the devils, but that didn't stop Rainier from approaching you. I'd rather we steer clear of any unnecessary skirmishes. Issei shrugged. I've had a few run-ins with some fallen angels in the past, but that was when I was already a devil. Not sure if they'll try to stir the pot again. Azazel leaned in, curiosity gleaming in his eyes. Recall any of their names. Issei scratched his head in contemplation. Names. Their name is what's-his-face guy with fedora, Issei decided. Calla Warner with her big bosoms, and that yellow-haired brat in goth dress. I think that's all. Donna Seek, Calla Warner, and Middlethay are all under my command, Rainier muttered with a mix of irritation. He'll tell them he'll flay them alive if they touch your hair, better. My buy-in, Issei hummed. Must be frustrating for the fallen angel for suddenly turning into his protector. Welp, her fault for shoving a light spear on his stomach. Hey, what else here, Asia, Freed, Rainier, Cockabeel? He felt like he was forgetting something. Riser. Ah yes, handling the flamey peacock would be a challenge, especially since he had no interest in becoming Ria's slave, nor did he intend to ever participate in her raiding game or any games for that matter. Confronting the young phoenix not as a devil would be interesting, to say the least. He first needed Rias to look at him for help. Not that difficult. Give her a few more days and she'd likely have Kiba ask him to come to the Orc. He could adjust his approach then, once it did take place. At least, this was his temporary plan for now. With the list of concerns laid out, Issei felt like he was finally getting a handle on things. That's the summary for this month. Cockabeel might decide to drop by within the next month, but don't hold your breath. That's so anything else you're keeping to yourself. He briefly considered sharing information about the Excaliburs but decided against it, knowing the pivotal role they played in the 3 major factions' peace treaty. Changing that might not work in Azazel's favor when it came to convening the summit. Son of the fate of the world relied on him still. Look, I'm changing a lot of stuff here already, you understand, right? Azazel nodded with a grin. Absolutely. We'll be working double time to tie up those loose ends. And, just for good measure, if any fallen angel tries to take a shot at you for any reason, just drop my name. Tell them you're rolling with Azazel, and that should make them think twice, even if they are on Cockabeel's payroll. You don't need to tell me that, Issei said. He'll just have her around. Rainier tilted her head. What do you mean? Securing Asia should be a cakewalk for you, Issei began. Once that's settled, y'all stay with me as my girlfriend. Rainier's initial horror shifted to understanding as she grasped the potential advantages of the arrangement. You're thinking of using me to keep in contact with Lord Azazel, right? That, and the devils won't dare to touch you when you're by my side. It's a golden opportunity to spy on them and report back to me. Plus, you can roam their territory without a care in the world. Feels good, right? Rainier couldn't deny that the idea intrigued her, especially the prospect of vexing Ria's Gremory and the other devils. Azazel raised a valid concern. The one that raised suspicions about you. They are already aware of Rainier's presence no matter what form she takes. That's the point. I want the devils to notice me, Issei said. I need a valid alibi. I need to give them a reason to call me out one day, so I can slowly settle in instead of bursting through their door yammering me big strong dragon. Worship me, you devils. Trust me, they'll start questioning me sooner or later if Rainier keeps sticking around. After all, devils do love their interrogations. He couldn't help but think about Sona Citri, a formidable devil known for her shrewdness. Luckily, he didn't have to interfere much with her mojo, as she and her peerage were more than capable of handling their own affairs. Issei had no intention of becoming Sona's lapdog. She already had Saji as her loyal follower. Not that she'd ever allow him to sit on her lap. Has to be him. But maybe he could nudge him this time. Nudge him a bit to 2 other persons who he knew would fall head over heels to that Genshiru boy. So you admit it, you want to help our enemies. They are not enemies, he corrected her, effectively shutting her down. Our white piece should mean something, otherwise, they would have had you killed for trespassing on their land. You're not as smart as you think you are. Rainier lowered her head in shame. Yes, Lord Azazel, my apologies. Issei smirked. It was kind of funny seeing Rainier acting like a kicked puppy. He almost felt bad for her until he reminded himself that he was facing his killer. "Look," Issei said as he got up, ready to leave. "At the end of the day, I'm in it for myself. I'm a selfish prick, but that's what makes me predictable and why you can trust me. The future I want requires the three factions to bury the hatchet and move on like adults. Everything I do will gravitate towards that goal. It's not something I want to mess with, and I've messed with a lot of shit and been hit by it in return." That I can tell. Azazel let out a soft laugh, seeing the uncanny resemblance between this 18-year-old boy and one of his lab assistants who had aged into the hundreds due to the stress of their work. In a way, it was sad to know that the world Issei came from had placed so much reliance on him, reshaping his worldview from a witty-eyed idealist into a jaded man whose hopes had been crushed. Azazel could sympathize more with people like Issei, those who had been broken by their experiences, rather than those who always looked at the bright side of things. It made him wonder if the optimists were just blinding themselves or had truly never experienced the harsh realities of the world. But Azazel could sympathize better with that kind of people, broken kind of people, rather than kids who always looked at the bright side of things. Good for them, but he oftentimes wondered if they were just blinding themselves or had been blinded to tell what was real. "So what's your plan now?" Azazel asked as Issei walked past him to the exit. "Go home. Sleep," Issei replied with a yawn, his exhaustion evident. "Maybe get a better haircut, I dunno." "Mind your business, old man." "Have the gall of this guy," the governor managed to chuckle despite everything. "Deal with him, Rainier. Make sure he gets back safely." He nodded toward Issei, who was already on his way out, with Rainier obediently following. "In the meantime, he'll explore ways to help boost your strength gain." Issei paused, turning back to address Azazel. "Yeah, I can work with that. Just no pills. All right, had some bad experiences with those. Antidepressants. They simply refuse to work." Azazel reserved his question for a more appropriate time, nodding. "No pills. Okay, great. Awesome." Issei's grin turned mischievous as he prepared to depart with Rainier in tow. "All right then, let's go. You imagine time to introduce you to my parents, and I just know you're gonna love them," ting he. Rainier couldn't help but protest. What, how is that necessary?" "Because the devils need to buy the idea of you being my girlfriend. So obviously, I'm gonna flaunt you all day tomorrow in school, and y'all be waiting for me because you're love-struck with the loser you got yourself stuck with." Azazel smirked. Rainier muttered under her breath, exasperated. And really, she couldn't deny her bad luck. She owed Issei for sparing her from a meaningless death at the hands of the person she had once idolized. It was a humiliation that would haunt her, but now she was trapped, ensnared by this cunning human. Damn him. Damn this whole thing. Damn her idolization. And damn her for being so stubborn and trying to impress someone who had never looked at her. And damn this human for tricking her and being completely immune to her charm and body. And damn him for knowing her weakest spot and making her feel like heaven. And damn him for making her want to have that experience again. As Issei and the begrudging Rainier made their way out the door, with Rainier now appearing as someone of Issei's age, Azazel suddenly realized that he had forgotten to ask a rather crucial question. How did Issei get here in the first place? It was yet another item on the long list of things he wanted to ask, but Azazel figured that the boy deserved a break. Hopefully, Issei could find a way to shape a more peaceful future, a future that Azazel himself deeply desired. The revelation Issei had shared had reignited his determination. In his future, they had worked together, even if it led to unsatisfactory result that molded Issei to the disillusioned man trapped in a boy's body. Still, it meant that the peace he sought was achieved at some point before. It was not beyond his reach. Faith was not something Azazel expected to possess, having been tossed away by the big heavenly man himself because Azazel pointed out some humans were hot thus should be banged. But he did have faith in Issei's words. Nobody could change their personality so drastically in just a day, and that if there was anyone who wanted and capable of completely reshaping their own future, it should be someone cynical, though not necessarily pessimistic. The fine line between the two was significant. Pessimists often became nervous wrecks or deeply depressed due to their experiences of pain and hardship. Cynics, on the other hand, were typically abrasive and grouchy individuals who found it hard to derive pleasure from things. They tended to put a negative spin on everything, especially when it came to other people and their motivations. They were the kind of people who carefully assessed all the ugly possibilities and understood how the world operated. They knew where the pieces were before they were even set in motion. Hi to Issei. Azazel hoped he hadn't misplaced his faith in this cynical, yet potentially world-changing young man. The rest of the day unfolded quite smoothly. While Issei had preferred to always be self-reliant, never one to lean on others, not even his own abilities. But when facing the prospect of being blown to smithereens by a low-ranking fallen angel or even a lowly imp, some adjustments to your survival strategy were in order. So, securing Azazel as an ally had become the linchpin that could unlock a plethora of potential paths. The man had deep pockets, an extensive network of connections, a 3-digit IQ, a reasonable dose of pragmatism, and a knack for seizing opportunities. But what truly set him apart was his stark sensibility compared to the other two options on the table. Surzech would reel him into the hot mess that was the devil's world of politics. A spindly, encroaching web complete with flesh-eating spiders, always hungry to a brave soul who thought they could make a change without wanting to eliminate the opposition. Worse yet, this was no puzzle that brute force could solve. It took Ria's 2 entire years as the Lady of House Gremory to pat down the fires, the tiny embers of possible uprisings. Even then, recovery had been painfully sluggish. Finding individuals willing to dive headfirst into hell's political quagmire and do whatever it took was like hunting for a needle in a haystack that happened to be overflowing with used syringes. As for Michael, well, the issue lay not with the ever-smiling angel himself, but with his angelic brethren who always sought to carve out a moral high ground for themselves. Angels were all about peace, yes, but conversing with them often felt like dealing with a robot whose sole purpose was to preach the good book. Heavenly Father this, Heavenly Father that. Issei couldn't help but ponder how many of them would turn their pristine white wings to a shade of pitch black if they discovered their Heavenly Father had, quite literally, bitten the celestial dust. To be fair, the angels had suffered the most losses. First, they were ravaged by the evil dragons, and then, as if that weren't enough, they lost their most powerful archangel, Michael. It was a double whammy that had left their faith and determination in tatters. Their newfound pacifism was nearly monk-like in its intensity. If not for the combined efforts of Grisela and Dulio, the beacon of Christianity might have been twiddling their angelic thumbs while the worlds around them descended into chaos. However, all those calamities had yet to unfold. As long as Issei didn't march down the exact path he had trodden before, he was confident that his grasp of the situation and Azazel's cunning would ensure the nightmares remained confined to his past. The man with the distinctive goatee had become the key in his quest to reshape the world, hence the reason why he needed him. Yet, a cryptic message from Issei had echoed in his mind before his soul's journey. You can never be certain of events that have not yet unfurled. You aren't the only one forging a different path, and the future won't be solely dictated by your actions. Despite her penchant for mysticism, Issei had delivered a crystal-clear message: keep an eye out for unexpected twists and turns, those events he believed should never come to pass. After all, people weren't mere automatons, they were prone to making choices that could lead down unexpected avenues. And if those individuals held enough sway, they might force him into further adjustments. Returning to this particular juncture in time had been a gamble, akin to sitting at a global poker table in a pitch-black room. Each player had been dealt a unique hand, and any one of them had the potential to pull a wild card out of their sleeves and had all the possibility to potentially him in the ass. Well, at least he could be grateful they weren't playing strip poker. As long as the catastrophic entity known as Trihexer remained unsummoned, Issei had an unshakable belief that he could tackle any curveball this world hurled at him. He had conquered it once, and he could damn well do it again, even without relying on the boosted gear. He wasn't entirely sure whether this outlook stemmed from desperation, wishful thinking, or a coping mechanism for the fact that he had left his family behind in the future. Though he was young and currently devoid of power, Issei was not as stupid. Still was, but at least not as badly. He retained the wealth of experiences from his past, experiences that had honed his mind to a razor's edge. He was determined to reach his goals, and anyone who stood in his way could either join him or prepare to be broken. Now, the time had come to assess whether his fabricated girlfriend required any breaking. It was too early to make a final judgment, and quite frankly, it seemed like a bit of a waste. Rainier hadn't displayed any murderous intent thus far, which, for her, was a step in the right direction. During their entire walk back to his house, Rainier had forcibly restrained her curiosity, suppressing her urge to ask questions by observing Issei's every move. Not a word had escaped his lips, and if she didn't know any better, she might have assumed he had nothing on his mind except air, or perhaps thoughts of her or perhaps he was just painfully socially awkward. However, this new incarnation of Hayao Issei was no longer the same person she had been assigned to watch over. There was no telling what he might be pondering or calculating, and frankly, Rainier didn't trust him enough to be concerned. Her duty, as assigned by Azazel, was to guard him. She didn't need to believe in him, she simply had to perform her job. And perform her job she did, with aplomb. His parents loved her. They showered her with compliments, praising her looks, her manners, and expressing their astonishment that their son had managed to find such a high-quality girlfriend, given their extremely low expectations. Understandably so, their son was a loser whose thoughts often navigated the gutters of indecency. It might as well be part of the gutter itself. Issei, of course, played the part of the bumbling fool just as excellently. He scratched the back of his head awkwardly, before laughing with his father at a dirty joke his mother scowled at, who then profusely apologized to her. He even came up with an entire story of his own, that it was a love at first sight. As nauseating as the charade was, Rainier rolled with it. This was all for the sake of pleasing Lord Azazel, her chance to make him proud. It was all she desired. Well, Gorawi, his father, chimed in, glancing at the clock. Wouldn't you know it, it's that time when we conveniently head to the shopping district to pick up some groceries for dinner. That leaves our cozy abode in the capable hands of our young lovebirds until evening, doesn't it? Issei's mother, Miki Hayao, caught on to the blatant message. Is it? Oh, dear me, how could I have possibly forgotten? Even for Issei himself, who appeared to be in disbelief that his own parents had essentially given them a green light for some romantic escapades, the situation was painfully obvious. At least Rainier didn't need to maintain her Yuma form any longer. Back in her revealing attire, her enticing figure on full display but her wings carefully concealed within her back, Rainier cast a casual glance around Issei's bedroom, where he had brought her. It appeared to be the typical room of a Japanese teenage boy. She was almost surprised there weren't posters of skimpily clad girls adorning the walls. Her initial assumption had been that he was still harboring intentions of ing her, but she quickly realized how simplistic that idea was. "So, can I go now?" she inquired, folding her hands across her chest, while Issei proceeded to discard his white uniform, carelessly tossing it onto the floor. "Or do I still have to play nice?" "Stay," he replied instantly, more of a command than a plea. "I need you." The last remark was entirely unnecessary, designed to elicit a cringe, and it succeeded admirably. The bastard even snorted and let out a laugh, clearly intended to make her feel uncomfortable, which it did. "I need to make my own preparations." "Hayatu," she retorted, her exasperation evident in her tone. "There are other matters I must attend to, such as instructing my underlings not to harass you on sight, or possibly ending your life. Hey, don't worry about him. Him no devil, shouldn't just whack me in the streets. Don't want to be one either." She regarded him with a mix of prejudice, suspicion, and genuine curiosity. "If what you say is true, why didn't you simply align yourself with them? Aren't you risking changing the future too drastically?" "Because I refuse to be tethered to anyone in my pursuit of my goals, no matter how hot they are," he explained, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Moreover, if I were to retrace my steps, it would take an eternity to regain all of my cool powers. Have you observed the devils in this town? Have you seen them enjoying a day off? Have you witnessed the mountains of paperwork on Ria's desk?" Rainer couldn't help but make a face, the most neutral expression she had shown him thus far. "Point taken. It's a never-ending grind if I attach myself to any of them, or to any of the factions," Issei continued. "Far too inefficient and excessively stressful. Man just wants to be free, innit? Then why not join the Grigori? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities." "In that case," she countered. She didn't trust him, but Azazel was keen about him. "Why not consider joining the Grigori? We're more flexible with our schedules. Doesn't matter how we do it as long as we get the job done. Unlike those devils and their damn formalities. Because then I'd be trapped in Azazel's lab, or it would be harder for me to curry favor with the other two factions," Issei replied, maintaining his intense gaze. "Look, I'm not joining any of those three factions, or any other fan clubs, pantheons, or whatever. I'm playing Switzerland in World War II, but instead of just sitting there doing nothing, I want them to gather around a campfire and sing Kumbaya." Reina raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. "It was just a suggestion." "Noted," Issei said. "By the way, what makes you so attracted to Azazel's ass?" "Excuse me," Reina retorted, taken aback. "I mean, it's pretty obvious you're doing all this for him, not for me or the entire world," Issei explained with a shrug. "So, I'm genuinely curious. You are not the type to throw yourself on the ground for someone unless there's something in it for you." Rainer hesitated before replying. "Obviously there is. Not something I feel like sharing with you." Now Issei raised his palms. "MK. Just curious, is all. Besides, aren't you from the future? Can't you just tell?" "Can't. You kicked the bucket early, mate," Issei said as if he was describing the sun's surface was probably hot. What Rainer felt like she had been hit by a speeding truck. "How? I'm only telling you this because I think that's no longer your fate, at least if you don't do stupid shit, which I'm pretty certain you want." "And why is that?" "Because you want Azazel's balls," Issei bluntly stated. "And you're not an idiot. You are, however, easily swayed by your emotions, and that's actually why you met your untimely end." Rainer kept her gaze locked onto him. "All right, then explain how I died." "The first domino was that you killed me," Issei revealed, causing Rainer's eyes to widen in shock. It became evident that he wasn't referring to her failed attempt but rather her successful one. "I killed you." "Yeah, I mean, I was pretty dumb. It set off a chain of events, the most crucial one being Ria's turning me into her devil. Nothing much happened back then, other than me experiencing my cruelest heartbreak. Boo-hoo-hoo, woe is me. At least I can find comfort knowing I wasn't the only one being tricked at some point," Rainer bitterly remarked. "Ooha, good for you," Issei replied with a heavy dose of bitter sarcasm. "But then your other colossal mistake, the one that sealed your fate, was planning to take Asia's sacred gear for yourself. And guess what? You succeeded. But in my noble quest for vengeance, I struck you down, and Ria's landed the finishing blow, turning you into a pile of black soot on the old church's marble floor. So you're telling me that I succeeded in all my plans, and I still ended up dead?" Rainer lamented. "No," Issei corrected, "I'm telling you that your plan was stupid, and that's why you died." "What?" Rainer growled. "How is that stupid when it clearly worked?" "Hey, bro, you died. Any plan that ends with you dying for nothing is a stupid plan in my book." She cursed. "Like you can do any better." "And not you, I don't share your dreams," Issei snorted. "But you should have known the devils are miles stronger than you. Ria's pod one-shotted all your friends and you as well. She has a kino while you have some mafia boss wannabe, a real estate agent with unbelievable cleavage, and a lowly and gothic dress. But no, you're just too full of yourself to consider the devils or even on your level." Rainer bit her lip, a maelstrom of emotions churning within her. Issei's words stung, and the bitter pill of truth was hard to swallow. "Here's what I would have done if I were in your shoes," Issei continued, his tone laced with a hint of condescension. "First off, no frolicking with the devils. Leave their turf be. Never give them a reason to come knocking on my door. I'd do my own thing, keep the sister's arrival a secret instead of parading her around like a peacock, and hand her over to Azazel. Twilight healing is great, but if you have to offer to get it, that's a blow to Azazel's reputation. It'd be a clean operation, no mess, no conflicts with the devils, no need for a cover-up, and I'd probably get a significant promotion because sacred gears turn Azazel into a giddy schoolgirl. Catch my drift. Raynor maintained her silence this time, her face a battleground of defeat and shame. But that ship sailed, and it's not anchoring back, Issei continued, unwavering. In a way, I just handed you a get-out-of-jail-free card, Ray. Mother Raynor muttered under her breath, shaking her head in disbelief. All right, you've made your point. You're the clever one, the composed one. Bravo. Want me to fetch your slippers while you're at it? That we're putting you to shame? No, I'm not that petty. Maybe I am, if I'm like a character written by some deadbeat authors who value feelings over thinking. I was pissed at you for killing me and breaking my innocent, pure, maiden heart. He paused, drawing out the melodramatic phrase for effect, clearly enjoying her discomfort. Raynor couldn't help but gag internally at his theatrics. But that's old news, deader than the dead horse people like to beat around for some reason, Issei continued dismissively. I've got 100 other morons on my shit list, much bigger fish to fry. Raynor sighed, realizing that her attempts at getting a rise out of him weren't working. So what are you saying? Then is this your way of demanding that I grovel at your feet? Are you telling me all this just to massage your ego because you can forgive me? Issei's casual smile began to fade, replaced by a stern expression. Don't mistake this for pity, he replied coldly. My feelings don't matter, and neither do yours. Only the end goal matters. Am I supposed to feel grateful for this? Raynor couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine as Issei's anger, controlled and focused, replaced his earlier nonchalance. It was a level of control she hadn't expected, one she didn't have. His anger was cold, direct, pinpoint, and he was in control of it, not the other way around. And sitting alongside his anger was a scathing disappointment. I really thought you were more mature, Issei continued, his words sharp as a blade. Seems like I was wrong. Go ahead, keep acting like a child. I won't hold it against you. Children are free to express their emotions without consequence. She pursed her lips, throwing her eyes off his. Being told off by a boy, give her a break. Think, Raynor, think. Issei's voice remained calm, but the anger in it was evident. The tranquil fury finally sowed into his voice slapped her with each word. Use your brain, not your feelings. Emotions bring you nothing but trouble. Angry because you didn't get what you wanted, upset because you feel humiliated, offended because I'm speaking this way, well, tough luck. No one cares. Your sob story, your past, how you got here, nobody gives a damn. They need a reason to care about who you are now before they'll even consider who you were back then. Raynor stood there, grappling with her emotions, her hands still clenched into fists. It was infuriating to be on the receiving end of a lecture from a high school student, especially one who had manipulated her so masterfully and left her pride in tatters. Yet, begrudgingly, she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Gritting her teeth, Raynor swallowed her pride and muttered, hell can't believe him losing to a high schooler. Issei smirked faintly. See, there's the competitive mindset again. You need to drop that. Easy for you to say, Raynor grumbled. Winning and losing, it's all in your head, Issei replied. This world is like a game, but you don't have to be a player. When other people's problems become your problems, you've already lost. The key is to make your problems become other people's problems. Raynor scowled, trying to digest his words. Like what you did back at the hotel. Issei shook his head. No, that was different. I needed help, Azazel offered it, and now we're allies. We control the board, and you're the only player left. You're the one being tested here. Not me, not Fried, not Asia, you. And you're not doing too well so far. I'm giving you a nudge, but even if you mess this up, it won't matter to me or Azazel because we don't rely on your success. You're expendable. This is your chance to increase your value, Raynor. First step, get Asia. Raynor muttered an expletive under her breath. You smug bastard. Issei shrugged. Call it what you want, but you know it's true. Losing you won't affect us. So, what's your choice? Keep acting tough or accept it and improve. She sighed, her glare defeated. Her silence spoke volumes, and Issei knew she had accepted her position. Good, Issei nodded, satisfied with the outcome. He had put her in her place and made her realize her value, or lack thereof. It was necessary to prevent her from becoming an obstacle in his plans, an unnecessary setback. He then rolled to lay on his bed, groaning a sigh. Here we go, thought Raynor, nearly exploding into another fit of rage. Maybe he just was a pervert. He still was, but that was just a part of him. I'm going to take a nap, and while I do, you make sure nobody comes in through that door. What, you expect me to watch you sleep? Raynor asked with annoyance. It won't take long. 5 minutes, tops, Issei replied with a hint of amusement. And wake me up if you see me doing something weird. Something weird. Y'all know, Issei said, closing his eyes. He hated this bit, but since he didn't have a milligram of any sparkly magical powers to shoot big lasers, he had to make do. He steadied his breathing as Raynor watched with slight confusion, nonetheless keeping her silence and leaning against the door. Within 10 seconds, he passed out. The world shifted from darkness to light, and Issei couldn't help but grumble, gotta admit, leave the light on, want you. HMMH, the giant Welsh dragon, D-Drake, who had been slumbering in the dreed-up lake at the center of the meadow, stirred awake. The ground rumbled as he yawned, his emerald eyes locking onto Issei. Oh, it's you. Oh great, you were sleeping through my entire spiel. Issei couldn't resist a snarky remark. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with his presence. Rise and shine. Lil Drakey, I've got a special gift for you, my left hand, in mint condition. D-Drake took a moment to register the reason for his host's rude awakening. Wait, right now. No, next year, when it's a collector's item. Of course, right now let's get on with it. In trading my left hand for a smidgen of your mighty powers. He inched closer to Issei, studying him with groggy curiosity. All right, but you do realize the cost, right? Issei quirked an eyebrow. Catch? Nah, him just doing it for the fashionable accessory. Of course, I know there's a catch. What's a little limb lost between friends? D-Drake pondered Issei's audacity for a moment before sighing dramatically. Very well, you crazy human. Then at least tell me, why are you doing this? Is it all about power? Issei leaned in, his expression turning thoughtful. Well, power is like ice cream, D-Drake. A little bit is nice, but too much and y'all get brain freeze. I just need some leverage, in case I find myself in a tight spot or if trouble comes knocking. It's like having an extra umbrella on a rainy day. D-Drake blinked once, digesting his answer. You don't seem all that attracted to power. Got him right in not, the man huffed. Trust me, I've had my fill of power trips. Your brand of power attracts all sorts of show-offs with flashy abilities who think I'm here for a showdown. It got old faster than a melted popsicle on a summer day. The dragon tilted his head, his massive eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and sympathy. But what alternatives do I truly have? Yeah, I'd rather be a glorified power bank, Issei quipped, raising an eyebrow at D-Drake's earlier remark. D-Drake reeled his neck backward, slightly taken aback. Well, of course not. I've been stuck here for nearly 1,000 years, changing hosts but never truly escaping. My role has been to help them defeat the White One. I know, Issei said with a weak smile. He didn't want to see D-Drake like this. Didn't want to hear that again from the dragon. It's a cruel cycle for you, HRMA, D-Drake admitted, tucking his colossal head between his mighty, scaly arms. After hearing your words earlier today, I've been contemplating my existence, the souls I've ended, and whether redemption is even attainable. I thought that perhaps offering my strength to you, in the hopes of a brighter tomorrow, might be a path to redemption. But then, I arrived and declared I didn't need your power, right? Issei finished for him. D-Drake affirmed, his gargantuan form adopting an almost pup-like demeanor. How a dragon could resemble a kicked puppy was beyond him. Unlike his host, D-Drake had no need to conceal his emotions, making his vulnerability more evident. It wasn't rare to find him mulling or being down about particular events. Don't worry, D-Drake, Issei said, stepping forward to pat D-Drake's colossal nose. I don't want power, but I do need it. Y'all have your chances. Remember the promise I made to you in the future. I promised you to find a way to remove your seal. What his emerald eyes brightened, filled with surprise as D-Drake rocketed to sit down. The tremor he caused threw Issei off balance as he stumbled to his back. Is it even possible? D-Drake exclaimed, his voice a blend of hope and disbelief. Hey, easy down, will you? He grumbled, though he couldn't help but smile at D-Drake's excitement. I don't have all the answers yet, but it's possible. God slapped that seal on you, and it's a tough one. So, it'll take time before we even get the ball rolling. But if I can gather the brain power of Azazel, Adjuka, Michael, and a certain genius Valkyrie in the future, I'm pretty damn sure they can figure it out. It'll be a slow process, and they'll need your help along the way, but I don't break promises. D-Drake blinked in astonishment, his colossal eyes nearly sparkling with hope. Are you certain you're willing to give up the chance to become the most powerful being in existence? Sure, I'm sure, Issei nodded resolutely. You got him right, I don't want that. I've been at the top of the power food chain before, and it's overrated. I owe the future to you, my scaly friend. You've already met my conditions, looking back at your past and pledging to be better. So here's my promise to you, a bit earlier than expected. It won't happen overnight, but trust me, I hate seeing you all gloomy. Chin up, you big lizard. Let's work on breaking you free from this damn prison. D-Drake, once again, was at a complete loss on what to say. Dragons shouldn't cry. Dragons never cry. But he didn't know if dragons were ever treated with such a kindness that he felt like a hole had been punched through his chest. Oh boy, here comes the waterwork. And I know D-Drake sniffled, lying poorly as he looked up at the bright skies. The sleepiness hasn't yet left my eyes. Issei rolled his eyes, a mix of happiness and frustration dancing in his gaze. Sure thing, Drakey. Let's not get carried away just yet. I still need you to munch on my arm and share some of that fantastic power. Of course, replied the Crimson Dragon, still gazing at the endless azure sky. Just give me a moment. I can sense the sleepiness fading away. All right, as Issei faceplanted into the grassy meadow, emotions swirled within him. He was content, yet he also grappled with a sense of emptiness. His joy wasn't as potent as it used to be. It felt more like a muted sense of gladness. Over the years, his heart had become weathered and worn, like a dragon's tough hide. Had grown desensitized to the world, with happiness fleeting, sadness barely leaving a mark, and satisfaction nothing more than a laugh that lasted 5 seconds tops. He could still smile and enjoy himself, just not with the same fervor as before. The old world had changed him, damaged him in ways he couldn't fully repair. However, Issei remained resolute to spare his friend from ever experiencing the same hollowness he now carried within his heart. Break. The school bell's melodious chime couldn't have arrived at a better time for Issei. Today marked Asia's anticipated arrival, and with a bit of luck, she'd be under Azizul's care. Of course, Issei hoped Rainier was taking a deliberate and methodical approach to this matter. Waiting for the bell was like watching paint dry, and he couldn't even indulge in that, as he was seated right in the middle of the classroom instead of the classic protagonist spot by the window. He sighed, wishing he could look cool while gazing outside. Actually, she should just text him now that he thought of it. So Issei took out his cell phone, and realized he was still living in the early 20s with this outdated flip phone model. Not that humans' development in technology made any difference to his old souling job of whacking unreasonably of 'em all. Hyodu. But, before he could lament his lack of window view or send Rainier an email, a shout came from a few seats to his right. Issei's attention shifted to the source of the noise, and there she was, a brunette with a demeanor that could curdle milk, arms firmly crossed beneath her rather impressive bosom. Sup Murayama. He felt a bit conflicted for staring at her chest in order to keep his mask, but since it was necessary, no taboo was too much for him. Don't you sup me and act like nothing happened yesterday and eyes are up here, Hyodu. He reluctantly tore his gaze away from her chest and met her stern olive eyes. What a surprise! She quickly looked away, her cheeks adorned with a faint blush. Issei couldn't help but think, seriously, after 2 years of her despising him, it took only a day for her to forget it all and act friendly. He felt like he had stumbled into a rom-com anime with the fastest character development on record. But no, he had no time nor place for ordinary humans. He had 2 slots, and those were reserved by his 2 idiots. He needed to let her down. Gently. What? He asked, causing her to flinch as she remembered why she had approached him. If you're here for a rematch, sorry to disappoint, but I won't be battling you again unless you're up for a duel at my house. In his bedroom, chimed a voice from his left shoulder, courtesy of the bald Matsuda. On his bed, added Madohama from his right. And let the panties hit the... There was a moment of uneasy silence before both Issei and the trio yelled in unison, FLOOOR. The trio burst into raucous laughter, seemingly impervious to the disapproving looks and disgusted scoffs from their classmates. They were simply relishing the moment, and nothing could dampen their spirits. The poor brunette captain went beet red as she opened her mouth, her lips quivering. He could see the words jumping around on her lips. What's your game plan with our main man here? Mayamura Matsuda quipped, playfully patting Issei's shoulder. He's not yours to torment anymore, you know. He's a hero, Madohama chimed in, casually resting his elbow on Issei's head, the rest of his hand forming a precarious perch atop Issei's unruly nest of hair. Handle with care. Murayama shot them both a scornful look. It's Murayama, you baldy, and I'm not here to start a brawl with any of you, unless you're looking for a reason besides. Hyodu faced his punishment while the rest of you made a hasty retreat. It might be our day off, but the kendo girls never forget. Are you secretly an elephant? Matsuda quipped, earning himself a glare from Murayama. He quickly took a step back, raising his hands in a sign of surrender. Yikes, tempers, big scary, sorry eyes. Madohama also backed away in fear of being butchered by a dozen wooden swords. She's all yours. Wow, I didn't realize I'm friends with wusses. You handled her just fine yesterday. You've got this, Matsuda called out as he and Madohama made a hasty exit, their laughter echoing in the corridor. In their wake, one girl let out a startled shriek as they playfully pretended to pounce on her. So carefree and so out-offs. They might have been unpopular with the school's populace, but they never complained or spoke ill of their comrades. Whenever they were around, it was hard to feel down. Without realizing it, a tranquil smile graced his face as he gazed out the door they had exited through. His smile seemed to have an unexpected effect on a certain young lady who, for the first time in her life, felt a strange sensation stirring within her, one she couldn't quite decipher and initially mistook for a stomachache. So, Issei turned his attention back to Murayama, who seemed unusually tense. Got something on your mind, me, perhaps? It's nothing much on, no, she lied. Her gaze darted nervously from side to side, a finger idly twirling a strand of her brown hair before tucking it behind her ear. Her heart pounded in her chest as though she'd just completed a rigorous training session. Her face felt slightly flushed, and she couldn't quite pinpoint why. This was bad news for him. Worse for her. He had no desire to break hearts, but it didn't mean he wouldn't do it if necessary. I was just wondering if other rumors are true. Finally, a card he'd forgotten he possessed. Oh, you mean my new girlfriend, he exclaimed with the enthusiasm of a boy who'd just snagged his first girlfriend. Murayama's demeanor crumbled before him. Her nervous smile gradually faded into a frown, then transformed into a tight-lipped expression. Well, never mind. Then I thought it might have been another baseless rumor someone made up. Good for you. Hyodu, maybe now you can keep your eyes on her and only her, right? Yup, he maintained his exaggerated smile, watching her wrestle with her emotions. Definitely. I didn't see that coming, to be honest, she mumbled aloud. I thought if there's anyone who could tolerate your perversion, it would be Irina. What? Issei blinked. What she referred to couldn't be just a random girl named Irina, it had to be that Irina. And still that made no sense to him as to why she knew her this soon. Come again. Murayama blinked several times, peering at him through a veil of newfound pain she didn't even know she had. Irina, your childhood friend. All the girls were surprised, you know, because you two were so close but never seemed to take it to the next level. Right, Issei blinked owlishly, rubbing his eyes then nose, sniffling, sobering, thinking he was drunk. Irina, huh? Yes, are you feeling okay? Hayao Murayama asked, beginning to worry that she had accidentally knocked some sense out of him the other day. Something was definitely off here. Either things were very right, and he was expecting them to be wrong, or vice versa. And just as Issei began to contemplate the unusual turn of events, another girl entered his classroom. Her cheerful and slightly annoying tone, her characteristic chestnut twintails, the same bright smile, and an overall Genki girl vibe that was unmistakable. She was skipping her way to his table, sporting the same radiant smile she always reserved for him, even though deep down, he knew she longed for a real husband. But that wasn't what was important right now. And I'm here to tell you that and escort you there since I'm so nice. Come on, quit looking at me like that. Shido Irina was here. Prez wants to see you. And she was a devil. Hey, Ikon, where are you scampering off to? Toilet, fancy joining me? You, know the girl with sunrise-like energy exclaimed. Just don't take too long, it's not every day someone gets invited to our club. And indeed, it wasn't every day that he got to see her either. He hadn't expected this meeting to happen so soon, he was completely unprepared. At least her smile remained the same. The mystery of how an angel devoted to Gabriel had ended up as a devil worried him. Her family was religious, not Satanists, and, most importantly, they were good people. Secondly, what about Zenobia and Kiba? Was Kiba even still around, or had Irina somehow switched places with him? Drake, fill me in on everything about Irina. Yes, she's my childhood friend, but she shouldn't be appearing this early. This is exactly the same timeline I recall. So, tell me what you know about her. Orphan a dynamite this soon by Gabriel's heavenly tits, what else had been changed? Drake trailed off, perturbed by his host's extreme reaction. Yeah shit, no need to hit the panic button just yet. Let's keep going. Continue, Drake reminded him. Balls Irina orphaned. Why her but Issei knew better than to keep firing questions into the abyss. Alright, that's not expected, but that shouldn't change things too much. I can work with this, thanks bud. No, don't beat yourself up, Drakey. You're just being outshone by a future version of you who's had the advantage of becoming much wiser, and far more jaded, depressed even. He might as well be called the Jaded Dragon Emperor, though Issei decided to keep that thought to himself. And much more arrogant too. Him actually surprised you're introspective so quickly. You're definitely less of a pain in the ass, so probably yes. The thing is, I've got no grip on how significant those changes are. I hate being in the dark, but I hate overthinking while doing nothing even more so. Onwards to the devils, I suppose. Yeah, enough of the sentimental speeches. Issei heard a hearty, rumbling chuckle that sounded like rocks shifting as Drake severed their mental connection. After he washed his face, emerging from the bathroom stall, Issei meticulously played out his facade, casually pushing down the handle to conclude his fake bathroom session. One perk he relished about being in a formerly all-girls school was the impeccable cleanliness of the restrooms. Even the boys' facilities were immaculate and void of any unpleasant odors, all thanks to the judicious use of magic, of course. But now was not the time for contemplating toilet maintenance. As he exited the bathroom, he spotted Irina leaning against a wall not far from the entrance. Although her past appeared to have undergone some alterations, she still wore that familiar troubled expression when she thought no one was watching. But he always noticed her subtle nuances, even after not seeing each other for a year or more. Discovering that she had silently cried herself to sleep because the Egyptian gods had required his help in capturing escaped souls from the Styx when they were supposed to be cherishing their rare moments together was like driving another 5-inch nail into his chest. He had vowed to protect her smile, and he couldn't let that slip through his fingers again. Issei greeted her, causing her to flinch slightly. What's with the long face? Are you jealous that he'll be meeting some hot chicks? Nah. Rather than taking his bait, Irina gazed at him and asked, do you love her? Issei blinked. Your new girlfriend, she clarified, her face a blend of concern and, oddly, not jealousy but rather sadness. Are you in love with her? Issei blinked, taken aback. Well, I mean, she did confess to me, and she's pretty, so not love yet, but I tend to like people who like me. Is that so? Her smile returned, and this time, it seemed genuine. Just confirming that he wasn't in love with Rainier seemed to lift her spirits. Hopefully, it stayed that way for the right reasons. MK then. You like who you like, Ikon? Good for you. Anyway, let's go. Irina took his sleeve and practically dragged him along. The prez is waiting. Before long, Irina started to run ahead of him. A challenge accepted, although it was obvious she was holding back. Well, so was he. He might not have regained his full power yet, nor did he intend to use it unless absolutely necessary. But by sacrificing his left arm, he had regained some semblance of it, just enough to fend off any pesky fallen angels who weren't on Azazel's payroll. Tomorrow, when he met with Azazel, he would focus on keeping the dragonification in check. Otherwise, people might freak out when they see his hand covered in crimson scales. For now, he ran, past the irate teacher shouting about no running in the hallways, past Genshiro Seiji, who was currently occupied posting something on the bulletin board. Good, he was present, and then through the schoolyard, deeper into the old school building. By this point, it was time to pretend to be winded, so he slowed down, grabbed his knees, and bent over. Alright, you're not bad. Still hunched over, he took a deep breath and let out a loud exhale. Well, call it a draw. A draw, Irina exclaimed, still full of energy. Yeah, right, you were eating my dust, Ikon. Maybe better luck next time. You had a false start. Glad the race started when I said so. She snickered, wiping a bead of sweat from her chin with the hem of her school uniform, inadvertently revealing her toned stomach. The definition in her abs was faint but more pronounced than what she had back then. It seemed she had been putting in more effort at this age than she did in the future and of the past. Issei couldn't help but flash a grin. Nice abs. It should be known that this comment was genuinely heartfelt. It came straight from the depths of his slumbering perversion, which was clearly alive and well, even if he hadn't had many chances to let it run wild lately. Irina didn't blush, but she did give him a toothy grin. Perv, let me touch it. No, oh, come on. Just a little stroke. No, Irina giggled, protecting her stomach with her hands and playfully swinging her head, using her long twin tail as a whip that smacked him in the face. Smack. Boy, ask your girlfriend for that. You could be my girlfriend too. Problem solved, Issei quipped, half joking but with a hint of genuine interest. Why settle for one when I could have both? For a moment, her smile softened, and it almost seemed like she was hiding something, protecting him from some unseen truth. Then her toothy grin returned, accompanied by a cheerful tee-hee. Dream on, self-proclaimed harem king wannabe. Well, well, how the turntables. The self-proclaiming king now proclaimed someone as self-proclaimer. Probably the biggest twist so far. Just you wait, he'll prove to the world that I can satisfy 2 or more girls all at once, he boldly declared, even though he had, in fact, done that multiple times. There were even orgies held in his name, both Yuli and affectionately. Now Irina began to blush, only due to his lack of shame. What are you saying, you idiot, perverted idiot? Pervekayek Issei rohayadu. Do those insults mean anything to me? Issei smirked. I'm immune to them. They are not insults, they are my badge of honor. Shidu. Irina stuck out her tongue, and Issei quickly grabbed it between his fingers out of habit. Curse their silly adult games. Before she could be surprised by his reflex, he smoothly played it cool by making a shit-eating grin. Hog out your tongue. MLM, bleh, you taste like sweat. Yeah, can I taste what y'all taste like? Irina froze, her face turning a shade of red that could only be described as comical. If there were fumes shooting out of her ears, it wouldn't have been surprising. Whatever, pervert, get away from me, you deviant, I am puree. Their sprint continued, with Issei chasing Irina through the corridors and up the stairs. As they reached the upper floor, Issei's eyes fell upon a striking figure standing outside the occult research clubroom, gazing out of the window. Long, flowing black hair was tied into a ponytail with a large white ribbon, and her crimson eyes shimmered like smoldering embers. Her figure was nothing short of enchanting, capable of making hourglasses second-guess their shape, and Issei's thoughts predictably ventured into his classic perverted territory before he could rein them in. Wait, white ribbon, since when did Akino start wearing contacts? The answer was never, because that ponytail was not Akino's, despite the uncanny similarity of their shape and form. Suzaku-san, we didn't keep you long, did we? Suzaku. Issei's confusion deepened, and he quickly initiated his disguise, focusing intently on Suzaku's appearance. While they carried on their conversation, Issei held a mental conference with himself. Not at all. I just came here for some fresh air. Well, I got the boy his prez inside. And he thought he was immune to surprise after Irina's arrival. Suzaku here now, how whomstvelfsis? Diedrag popped in. I've been hit by 2 curveballs in a day, Diedrag, Issei grumbled, keeping his eyes at her childbearing hips now. Whatever that was supposed to mean. I know her, and I also know she isn't supposed to be here. She's Tobio's companion, supposedly. This is getting worrying. Irina. She has a name? Diedrag. Don't be rude. The dragon corrected himself. That's fine. I'm just shocked, is all, at least so far, only the minor actors have been popping up sooner than the old script. His girls were top priorities for him. But to say they all make an equal impact on his previous world would be telling himself a lie. But big or small, no matter their role, he loved them all the same. But now I'm no longer sure of any of their backstories. He'll spill the beans to Azazel about everything, Issei replied without missing a beat. He needs to know about this, and I can't have him thinking I was embroidering the truth about certain aspects when, in reality, not everything is following the same script. Offey's mentioned something related to this. I initially assumed that my actions in the past would reshape the future, not that the mere act of time travel would cause certain events to swerve off the beaten path. Ikon, what on earth are you staring at, you leech? Come here and go inside. Issei jolted back to the present when Irina's voice pulled him out of his trance. He must have appeared like a drooling schoolboy, which suited him just fine. Pretending to shake his head as if to dispel his delusions, he staggered toward the clubroom, briefly giving Suzaku a mischievous, perverted grin before entering. Where Akino would have giggled, Suzaku responded with a stern glare, which was reassuring. Their personalities seemed to be holding up relatively well. The clubroom remained as Issei remembered it. The windows were open unless it was swelteringly hot outside, and the air conditioning was off. Riaz had called it a small effort to save the Earth's dying atmosphere. The furniture, the wallpapers, the paneled wooden flooring, everything was exactly the same. But one glaring difference awaited him, and he had mentally prepared himself for it. The short white-haired girl, enjoying her rice ball on the green Victorian couch, caught his eye with her bright amber gaze. Please stop staring. It's rude, she chided. Oh, right. Sorry, Issei stammered. quietly spoken, yet her words were as pinpointed as a bee's sting. That was Kaneko, all right. Except Kaneko wasn't supposed to have that much of a chest. She should have been as flat as a board, providing balance to the otherwise chaotic spectrum of sizes in the Occult Research Club. She was meant to bring harmony, not further disrupt the scale. That said, good for her. Had missed the times he was able to tease her for her chest. Nonetheless, he couldn't help but think that it was good for her. He would miss the times he could tease her about her chest. Kaneko had also grown a bit taller. This was how she would look if she kept her Shirona mode active, with her white, fluffy ears discreetly tucked away. Something must have happened to her in the past, something likely related to Kuroka. His best guess was that the trouble her sister had stirred up had either been resolved or had never occurred. But where was Kuroka? Well, Issei muttered, feigning amazement and using the opportunity to discreetly scan the room. The crimson-haired heiress wasn't here yet, but he could hear the sound of a running shower coming from the bathroom in the far corner. His gaze shifted to Akino, who was currently preparing Ria's usual Earl Grey tea. Devils loved their tea, but Issei wasn't a fan. It was too sweet for his taste, and he felt pretentious because he couldn't discern the difference between cheap supermarket tea and the expensive, hand-picked variety. All in all, Issei didn't mind tea, but he preferred water, a refreshing drink that was good for both body and mind. It should be much more accessible. He continued to survey the room, mentally counting the heads. There should be one more, a blonde and handsome young man who was ambiguously sort of gay. Yuito Kiba was conspicuously absent. A troubling suspicion began to creep into Issei's mind. If it turned out to be true, it could complicate things, but he reassured himself that he could handle it, or at least that's what he told himself. Well, don't just stand there like an idiot, Irina barked behind him, playfully kicking his butt. Go take a seat, Prez is showering right now. You should probably freshen up too, Irina, Suzaku suggested in her soft-spoken manner as she walked past, settling on the same couch as Kaneko, leaving an empty spot in the middle, likely reserved for Rias. Feigning nervousness, Issei scratched his head, fidgeted with his fingers, tapped his toes, and swayed back and forth like a jittery schoolboy surrounded by beautiful women. He knew he had to stay attentive. He noticed Kaneko and Suzaku shooting suspicious glances at his left arm, confirming his suspicion that they had sensed a change in him and were biding their time. Kaneko, with her newfound growth and ability to read the flow of life force, could easily detect that his left hand was no longer human. Suzaku, having a sacred beast that shared her name, was an expert at sensing supernatural presences. But none of this mattered to him, as he was prepared for this discovery. The sooner they realized he was aware of them, the better. However, he couldn't reveal the truth right now. It would only make them more suspicious and less likely to trust him, hindering his goal of gaining their cooperation with Azazel. If he allowed surprises like these to throw him into a panic, then the world would have been in ruins. Issei remained calm. He knew what he needed to do, confirm some key facts with Azazel and ensure that the major players in the Trihex's situation, Azazel, Surzech, Michael, Odin, and Rizum, remained in their roles and personalities. As long as they did, he was on the right track. Steam billowed out from the stained glass door of the bathroom, announcing Ria's Gremory's exit from her shower. Unabashed as ever, especially when she knew how to use her stunning body to her advantage, she strutted out with only a towel wrapped around her enviable curves. Her radiant crimson hair was tied up in a bun to keep it dry, exposing her graceful neck and smooth back. She was as breathtakingly beautiful as he remembered. Biba, Raya-senpai, Irina stammered in shock, using the proper honorific as she panicked behind him. Close your eyes, Ikon. No, Issei responded with a lecherous grin. No, I don't think I will. It's fine. Relax, Shidu, with a confident chuckle and an equally confident stride, Rias said calmly, much to Irina's petulant frustration. With her grace and even steps, Rias approached the table and took a seat between Suzaku and Kaneko, still covered by only one white fluffy towel, a fact that didn't escape Issei's attention. Issei flashed his trademark grin, causing Kaneko to cast a disgusted look in his direction. He noticed a small triumphant smile on Ria's lips, a sign that she had bought into his act. However, this particular act required minimal effort. Ria's was stunning, and while she could be a bit prudish, so were most of the devils he had encountered, with only a select few exceptions. She might not have been his first love, but he was her first love, and that was what mattered most to him. Afternoon, Hayao-kun, Rias greeted him with an unassuming smile, casually crossing one slender leg over the other, revealing a generous portion of her upper thighs. The old Issei might have been sporting a noticeable reaction by now, but the current Issei required more than visual stimulation. Nonetheless, he pretended to be captivated by her enticing thighs, keeping his gaze fixed on them for several seconds until Irina smacked him in the back of his head. Oh, he winced, feeling the actual pain. A good afternoon, Gurumori. Rias chuckled lightly. You can call me Rias. Sweet. Issei pumped his fist in silent celebration of his minor victory. The devils were fully convinced by his act of feigned low intellect and ape-like behavior. Then, you can call me Issei. Yeah. Afternoon, Raya-senpai. You have a nice club here. It's very European. Why, thank you, Rias replied. Have you been to Europe before, Issei-kun? Nope, but I've seen some pictures. My mother really wants to go there sometime. It's a beautiful continent, Rias said. but I still think Japan's natural beauty and culture are equally beautiful, if not more so, with its unique blend of tradition and modernity. Of course you'd say that. Damn Japanophile. Yeah, your thighs are very beautiful. I'd like to go there sometimes, he mumbled, inwardly reveling in the girl's reactions to his remarks. Even Ria seemed momentarily caught off guard. Akino, as always, found humor in his candid statement and giggled as she set steaming cups of tea on the rather large coffee table before quietly retreating from the conversation. Issei's enjoyment was about as fleeting as a snowflake in a sauna, thanks to Irina's relentless head poking. You got some guts, don't you, Ikon? But let's not stray from the matter at hand, Riaz interjected, giving a nod of appreciation to Irina for her perfectly timed distraction. Issei-kun, I'm simply curious about this new girlfriend of yours. Would you be so kind as to indulge me with a few answers? Depends, why do you want to know? We were actually thinking of paying a visit to her school, Riaz explained, and I thought having some background information might prove quite useful. So you dragged me here just to be your personal Wikipedia, Issei muttered, and Riaz visibly paused, holding her breath. Then Issei deflated with a sigh. Man, I thought my popular phase was finally here. Riaz let out an audible sigh of relief, and the collective tension in the room eased up. It was a classic case of people underestimating the intelligence of those around them, but that was somewhat understandable when an entire school practically worshipped them, reinforcing their already inflated egos. Yufufu, they say that girls love a good sense of humor, Akino chimed in with a playful smile. You really think so? Eikno-senpai, Issei shot back, casting an impish glance at her. Is that your subtle way of telling me I have a shot with you? I wonder. She didn't say you were funny. Ouch, Issei replied, wincing at Kaniko's sharp retort. He couldn't help but wonder if she had been using her newly developed assets to sharpen her tongue, those soft grinding stones Kuroko would undoubtedly be proud of. Ria skillfully navigated the conversation back to its original course. Now, back to my initial question, may I proceed with my inquiries? Sure, senpai. I probably don't know much since, well, we kinda just met yesterday, he feigning cluelessness with a strong alibi check. But what do you want to know? A fair bit. And here it comes. The interrogation. Too bad for her, Issei was no stranger to dancing around the truth and weaving intricate webs of deception. He never displayed defensiveness, diverted questions, or resorted to cliché phrases like to be honest to dodge inquiries. Instead, he offered up everything he believed Riaz wanted to know, all while pouring on the enthusiasm for his new girlfriend to the point where it was a wonder he didn't start blushing himself. In the end, Riaz gained no substantial information, except that the boy remained blissfully unaware that he was being duped by a cunning fallen angel. But Issei's convincing act as the clueless guy failed to deter the curious devils from pursuing their line of inquiry. As he exited the school building, Irina managed to catch up with him, disguising her presence under the pretense of wanting to visit, while in reality, she likely intended to rummage through his place, searching for any hidden fallen angel surveillance devices or magical espionage gadgets. Great, no Azazel for the day, it seemed maybe at night then. Issei couldn't risk calling Rainier either, as it might compromise her mission to rescue Asia. She needed to tread carefully in Freed's dangerous territory. Speaking of Freed, the unhinged fallen angel was a considerable threat, even to someone like Rainier, given her current circumstances. If the rogue exorcist could match Kiba's abilities at this stage, it was a clear indicator that Rainier was treading on dangerous ground. Speaking of which, where the hell was Kiba? Kiba's sudden disappearance was another perplexing mystery. Had some divine prankster found it amusing to transform him from a vengeful devil into a full-fledged paladin of God? Did he cease to exist altogether? Did his vanishing act somehow tie in with Irina's sudden appearance in the school? Issei couldn't simply approach the devils with these questions. Azazel was his go-to for seeking answers, but his inquiries with the devils might risk revealing his extensive knowledge of their world. It was a delicate balance, though there might be a chance Kiba was still in the school, just serving under a different devil, namely Sona Citri. But if Issei asked about him and he was never a student and the devils knew of his name, then that would be like stepping into a landmine. Taniko's physical growth was a puzzle as well, hinting at a dramatic shift in the Nekishu sisters' storyline. Whether this change would prove positive or negative, Issei couldn't determine yet. But he wouldn't mind an earlier encounter with Kuroka. She brought an element of fun and excitement to their otherwise brooding lives, and when her issues with Kaneko were resolved, she became twice as entertaining and twice as passionate. Irina's unexpected arrival was a surprise within a surprise, possibly signaling a spanner in the works. It was conceivable that his knowledge of the past might not be as reliable as he had hoped, but as long as key figures like Azazel, Surzech, Michael, Odin, and Rizim remained consistent, these deviations could likely be managed. However, he did confirm Rainier's scheme was still the same. So was Freed's insanity, as confirmed by her and Azazel, and Cockabille's ongoing rebellion. Surzech and Michael seemed to have the same identity and personalities as well, and so as long as the important players retain the same roles, these unexpected changes should be nothing big to put extra worry about. However, one thing was certain, he needed to inform Azazel at the earliest opportunity. Building a relationship of trust was essential, and Issei wanted to maintain a strong bond with the governor. The fate of the peace negotiations rested squarely on Azazel's shoulders. Yo, Ikun, Hey oi. As Issei mused over his concerns, Irina's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. She had caught up to him, and as usual, she couldn't resist ribbing him. What? Snap out of it, what were you thinking? You went all serious-like for 3 straight minutes. Oh, you know, Issei replied, his tone full of mock innocence. Well, I mean the girls in your club have some seriously serious badonkers. They made me think about them seriously. Like, what'll happen if I smush my head between them and sorta just go brrrrrrrrr? As he pantomimed a rather enthusiastic motorboating of invisible S, Irina groaned and rolled her eyes in exasperation. Never mind, I don't want to know. You really can't get your mind out of the gutter, can you? Hell no, the gutter is my home. It's where my thoughts belong, Issei declared with a heroic flourish, placing a hand over his heart. Irina chuckled at his antics, and Issei took the opportunity to ask her a few questions about herself. By the way, when are you planning to visit my place again? He began innocently, noticing the sudden shift in her demeanor. Mom and Dad miss you, you know. I think they like you more than they like me. Maybe sometime in the future. But first, I want to be a strong, independent woman. Irina fist-pumped the air, still with her vibrant energy. What adorable creature was this? She was like an energetic spaniel, especially with how she stylized her hair and the color. Maybe even strong enough to protect you, Ikon. Oh yeah, protect me from what? Exactly, misbehaving girls. Bad girls, she said, her tone unexpectedly genuine and directed toward Rainier, revealing her true purpose as a devil, to shield him from the wicked. So this was it. This was the only hint he needed to connect the dots. Irina had become a devil to protect him, likely making a deal with Riaz or the Gremory devil herself. Issei couldn't help but curse the unseen hand that had tampered with the past, causing profound changes in the lives of those he held dear. It wasn't just Irina, Suzaku, and Kaneko who had been affected, there were likely others. It was now his responsibility to set things right. If Irina had been orphaned during her travels while she mastered her holy sword, it was plausible that they fell victim to the same forces that had experimented on Kiba. But Issei didn't want to make any assumptions. He made a mental note to confirm these details with Azazel, the man who held many of the answers. He'll make it right, he swore. His resolve was firm, but now it was steeled. Irina and Suzaku and Kaneko couldn't be the only ones whose past had changed. Those were on him. His fault. No excuse about it. Hayao Issei never made excuses. Anyone who was good at making good excuses was rarely good at doing anything else. He was good at both, but that's besides the point. He would make it right for all of them, securing their futures and setting things straight. As his phone buzzed, Issei retrieved it from his pocket, expertly flipping it open with a playful grin. He concealed the screen from Irina's prying eyes, flashing her a teasing expression that widened into a victorious smile. It was from Rainier. Asia was safe. For a porn addict, your room is pretty average, Azazel remarked as he assessed Hayao Issei's bedroom, his tone light with a hint of sarcasm. Issei shot back without missing a beat, your face is pretty average. The two men exchanged banter, their words laced with a playful edge, sharing a moment of laughter, nothing uproarious, just a brief, hearty chuckle that lightened the atmosphere. Azazel's initial assessment of Issei's room wasn't far from the mark. It was a rather ordinary space, adorned with white walls occasionally marred by creamy splotches in the corners. The bed and furnishings were unremarkable, with no particular standout features. The only exception was a small bookcase tucked away in one corner, which housed Issei's collection of forbidden tomes, some harder to obtain than others. Earlier, Azazel had arrived via his trademark burst of black feathers, bypassing the front door to avoid the presence of the devils. While they could have met at the hotel, Issei had chosen his own abode for this impromptu meeting at 8:30 in the evening, implying that he had a compelling reason for doing so. If not, Azazel was prepared to give him a reasonable scolding. Issei's voice carried a hint of nonchalance as he spoke. The porn's over there, gesturing toward the bookcase with his foot. Take 'em if you want 'em. You don't want them. Grew out of it. They're just drawings. I want the real thing. The things I can touch and squeeze. A playful exchange ensued as Azazel contemplated the allure of the limited edition lewd stored in the bookcase, anticipating the appreciation of fellow collectors. He wondered aloud, well then, don't mind if I do. Sure you don't want to give them to those two friends of yours? Issei's response was swift and resolute, revealing a hint of detachment. I don't need them to hold on to mementos that might remind them of me in some contrived future plot points. There was no hesitation in Issei's words. He seemed unfazed by the idea of parting with these treasures. Azazel couldn't help but wonder if this wasn't the first time Issei had taken such a step. Why do I get the feeling this won't be the first time you did this? Issei's shoulders lifted in a casual shrug, and he offered a candid explanation. Because it ain't. I've done it before, but it was too late, and I had no use for them. I made them forget about me, but those pesky malevolent gods and goddesses already knew they meant something to me. And nothing in this world can be as petty as insulted manchild deities who like to throw tantrums. They'll hold your goldfish hostage if they know it means something to you. Azazel nodded in sympathy, offering a wry smile. Had it rough, eh? Want to give me a hug while I cry ugly tears on your chest, or are we diving straight into the stuff I should tell you part? Issei asked, a dry chuckle escaping his lips. Both he and Azazel shared a laugh, appreciating the humor in their exchange. Issei may have been emotionally scarred, but he had a knack for handling it with a level of stability. The second offer, pretty please. All right, let's make this quick, Issei began, and Azazel casually took a seat on the floor, unfazed by the unconventional choice of seating. Actually, do you still carry those rolls of cancer around? Azazel raised an eyebrow, curious about the unexpected question, but he reached into his right pocket and retrieved a palm-sized box, adorned in red and gold, appropriately labeled the governor, his personal favorite. Smoking now? Azazel inquired, a hint of amusement in his tone. Don't see the wrong in harmless convenience goods. Won't kill me, or gave him cancer either. Nor did it make him stink like normal human cigarettes did. Developed by the R&D team of the Grigori Research Institute for quite some while ago, they have successfully mitigated all the unhealthy side effects of smoking these magically enhanced white cylinders. Better filters, healthier substances, no usage of tar, and safe to consume without worrying their teeth would rot away or their lungs be burned. It was an astounding success and took the market by storm. Several noble houses of the devils willingly paid high prices to get these tiny white rolls in their pockets through the black market. The two men soon had a roll each tucked between their lips, and scentless gray smoke swirled into the air. Issei tossed Azazel's black and golden Zippo lighter over to him. You know what's funny? You invented tons of things, but I still think this one takes the cake, Issei said as he rested the roll between his fingers. He didn't have to worry about being stung by the falling cinders or having to clean his floor or bed either. The paper and its content didn't turn to ash, they simply disappeared after being consumed by the fire. Not sure how I feel about that, Azazel replied with a smirk. You didn't call me all the way here just to give you some smokes, did you? No. Issei took another drag. The ghostly gray fumes seeped out his mouth and into his nose, and came out from his mouth again. The faint mint mixed with the particular bitterness of the tobacco cooled down his throat and mind. Potentially bad news, Zazel. Not everything's the same. Oh, I met people who I should encounter far in the future, namely Irina and Suzaku. All right, this was getting interesting. How impactful were they during your past? Irina was Gabri, no, Michael's ace in the Brave Saint system, Issei began, a system you helped create. It's based on the evil pieces, but replaces the Agrias crystals with your artificial sacred gears. They use playing cards as their gimmick, just like the devils with their chess pieces. Azazel blinked, his body momentarily frozen while his mind whirred with theories. Fascinating, I helped them, you say. Well, Michael better have groveled for my assistance. Hey, I guess they can't rely on the Heavenly Father to create more angels for them. Hey. That's the idea, Issei explained. With Dad out of the picture, they wanted to fill the sibling vacuum and couldn't wait for divine intervention. Azazel chuckled. But if that's the case, then turning your friend into an angel might be a tad challenging. Humans into angels, sure, but reincarnated devils. That's a whole different ballpark. Unless they've been tampering with their system, but those guys wouldn't touch their father's legacy with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, but at least now I know that the biblical God is still dead in this reality. What about the old Satans? Did they all get their tickets punched during the Great War too? Yep, Azazel confirmed, a hint of resignation in his voice. All 4 of them, the whole shebang. Forget about those old fogies then. Can you fill me in on what happened to Irina? She flew off to Italy, trained there for God knows what. The Vatican is a no-fly zone for my fallen angels and supposedly the devils, but one of them decided to crash the holy party, resulting in the Holy Maiden's dramatic excommunication. Fast forward a few years, and her family mysteriously pops up on the news, blown to smithereens in an explosion. Smells like a cover-up, if you ask me. Thing hell, Issei muttered, his face contorting in genuine anguish. Azazel noticed the sincerity in his expression. For several months, she stuck with the church that took her in. Then I received word that she was sent back here, to your neck of the woods. But before I could swoop in and snatch her sacred gears, those cunning devils had already beaten me to the punch. Sacred gears. Hold on a sec, Issei interjected. She's a possessor too. Azazel blinked in surprise. Isn't she? Issei shook his head. Nope. Irina trained to wield holy swords, not sacred gears, at least not the legit ones before you went on a sacred gear production spree. What kind of sacred gear did she have? Sword birth. Heard of it. The curse slipped by. That was Kiba's. Yuito Kiba's. Azazel tilted his head quizzically. Kiba, you say? Never heard that name before. Right, he got it from Rias. His original name was Isaiah. Isaiah. Azazel jogged his mind, searching files stored inside his library of memories. Nope, can't say I heard of that one yet. What about Zenobia? Issei pressed. Zenobia Quarta. Another shake of Azazel's head. Zenobia who? I recognize the Quarta part, but I don't recall anything about Grisela having a kid or adopting one. Could they have swapped roles with your friends? Your buddy and this Isaiah? Or maybe Zenobia? Issei leaned back, his hands casually crossed, his second cigarette already in the books. You know, it's possible, but it doesn't quite add up. Something's fishier than a seafood buffet in August. What about Suzaku? Azazel asked. Does she still have the vermilion bird on her side in your version? Yeah, she's supposed to be the head honcho of the Hanjima clan, filling in the big shoes of, Sir Husatafa cares. Obviously she isn't now that she's with Rias. She did spend some time working with us, Azazel noted. Issei raised both of his brows. Did she now? Related to Barakil. Oh, you betcha, Azazel replied, his expression momentarily darkening as he took another drag. Smoke curled lazily in front of his face, momentarily parting around his golden locks. She tried to pull the strings behind the scenes, rallying the principal clans to open their arms to Barakil. She saw their conservative traditions as old-fashioned and in dire need of a makeover. She viewed Barakil's wedding to her aunt as a golden opportunity to bring her clan into our fold. It was a well-intentioned effort, but the clan elders took it as heresy. Traditionalists, you know. When she caught wind of their plot to off Shuri, she tried to put a stop to it. Didn't exactly pan out. Issei frowned. And the devils found Akino first. They did. And not long after they found Barakil's daughter, we led them to find Suzaku. Wasn't a hard decision for her to side with Ria since she had Akino. The two's like sisters now, I reckon. You let them find her? Issei asked, a hint of disbelief in his tone. Azazel sighed, offering a wry smile. If it were solely up to me, I wouldn't give them the slip. Suzaku's a stand-up gal with a level head on her shoulders. But Barakil happened, and well, what else can I do? Issei nodded thoughtfully, huffing a snort. Can't leave his daughter alone, can he? Seems like some things never change, Azazel chuckled, pulling out another roll of cigarettes. He used the burnt end of the previous one to ignite the new one before discarding it. Anything else that struck you as offbeat in your neck of the woods? Taniko. The Nekashu. Azazel acknowledged. Issei dipped his chin in a nod, also taking a new roll as Azazel tossed him one. The shortened cigarettes burned in his hand shortly after lighting the other. What about her? She's stacked. Azazel blinked. Stacked? Yeah, her chest. They're big. A quirked eyebrow from Azazel. And why is that an issue? Because she wasn't. She was as flat as a pancake, you could have used her as an ironing board. Azazel coughed, not seeing that comment. Hard to believe, right? Well, in my version of the past, she took ages before even considering tapping into her Nekomata powers, thanks to her big sis keeping her physical growth in check. But apparently, that's not the case here. So where's Kuroka these days? The Black Cat, Azazel mused. Yes, I've heard of her. Was she a criminal in your world? Is she? She was, Azazel muttered. Gone stray, then got caught by the devils, last I heard. Likely doing her time. What did she do on your side? Pretty much the same, Issei replied. Killed a devil who was conducting experiments on her and planning to do the same to her sister. Same here. A confused wrinkle appeared between the governor's eyes. What's the difference then? She didn't get caught, which bothered him greatly. Unless the devils used her sister to lure her in, he couldn't think of any other reasons for Kuroka to allow herself to be this sloppy. Yeah. Mildly perturbed, Issei scratched his nose. She's never caught. Where was she now at this point in time in your past? Dunno. Issei shrugged, which wasn't a lie and therefore unable to be detected. He had speculations about her, such as likely wandering around wherever Volley went, possibly siding with the Chaos Brigade. But speculations weren't necessarily the truth, which, if it wasn't as crucial to his growth as a character, Issei would have warned Azazel to keep an extra pair of eyes on the troublemaking Lucifer. Now, before we continue, any of these lovely ladies end up as your wife in your timeline? All of them or? Issei replied without bragging. They weren't trophy wives to be bragged about. They still will be. Azazel chuckled. Impressive, not getting ahead of yourself, are you? Nah, I've learned my lesson. I made the mistake of not sealing the deal before. No way I'm repeating that. Speaking like a true Casanova. Issei laughed. Casanova. Nah, those guys never settle down. Like you, always staying free. Azazel nodded, acknowledging the truth in that statement. Indeed, fallen angels aren't big on commitment. Barakil was an exception. But enough about my love life. Let's get back to the fun stuff, he said with a grin. Any particular order in mind? Who's going to be the first wife and all that? I don't care as long as I get them back, Issei said with a disinterested huff. They loved him. That was more than enough. He broke their hearts. He'd take anyone. Rias would be upset, but she'd likely get over it and mature with time. Azazel nodded in approval. A respectable attitude. Look, Zazel, you don't need to worry about who I'll bed first, all right. Issei quipped with a playful grin. You'll know soon enough. Azazel acknowledged, as they say, break a leg. Shaking his head while still chuckling, Issei took a final drag from his cigarette, reducing it to a stub. Let's get back on track, he continued as he exhaled a plume of harmless white smoke. These glitches came out of nowhere, and their personalities remain mostly the same. Rainer's as hot-tempered as ever. My family's the same. Rias and her peers haven't changed much. Irina's her usual cheerful self, and Suzaku is as calm and collected as ever. He added, noting Suzaku's resemblance to Grafia. Azazel smirked. And what makes you think of that? Issei replied straightforwardly, because you trust me, Azazel. You took my words at face value and didn't question a thing. Plus, I can see it in your eyes, you still care about Barakil and hold yourself partly responsible for his actions. You want peace. You're a good man, Azazel. I'd be a fool not to trust you. Azazel chuckled, impressed by Issei's insight, though he secretly pitied the boy's desperation. Perceptive and desperate, aren't you? Issei grinned. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And, honestly, it's exhausting lugging these big metaphorical steel balls around. Azazel snorted in laughter. I get what you mean. So, what does all of this mean for your plan? Any changes or drastic measures? Can't say for sure, but if their personalities haven't changed significantly, it implies that the major players' goals and motives remain mostly the same, Issei explained. So, my plan remains intact. Get you in contact with the devils, have you build relations and earn their trust, and ultimately convince the devils to work together with us. That's a pretty basic and straightforward plan. Any plan that takes more than 4 steps is just wishful thinking. Azazel raised his brow. I said that to you, didn't I? Yep, cheeky bugger, Azazel sniggered. Now, why does this plan have so much me and not so much you? Issei shrugged. Hey, you're the leader of the Grigori. My position's practically worthless at this point. Azazel nodded in agreement. So you want me to handle all the PR work with the devils? I'll help, but all glory should go to you. It's their trust in you that I'm more concerned with. With how prideful Riaz is, I can't guarantee she'll roll out the red carpet for me, Azazel admitted, a hint of cynicism creeping into his tone. In fact, she'll probably fold her arms tighter than a chastity belt, even if I handed over the holy maiden. Good of him to remind him. The glitches had made him forget about the most important thing at the moment, Asia's safety. Where is she, by the way? She's in my office. Rainier spirited her away there, and Penemu's watching over her. She'll be fine. You have my word. MK. That's awesomely awesome, Issei blandly stated, allowing a small smile. Just a tiny tight-lipped one. Hate to treat her as our bargaining chip here, but you gotta do what you gotta do, Amorite. Azazel nodded in agreement. Results should never come at the expense of your principles. But sometimes, you have to be pragmatic. Exactly. Issei shifted the conversation back to Riaz. I'll deal with her trust issues. She's stubborn, but she's open to opportunities that can boost her prestige. Azazel hummed, nodding in agreement. Being known as the first devil of her generation to receive a personal call from the leader of their old nemesis should tickle her pride a bit, don't you think? Issei responded with a smug snigger, opting for silence instead of words. All right, that's the Grigori and the underworld sorted. I'm still betting on your peace plan, but what about heaven? They're likely to see our new alliance as a threat, don't you reckon? Issei leaned back, adopting a contemplative expression. Well, you see, heaven's got its quirks. Michael's all about peace, and most angels follow suit. It's those chosen humans of theirs who tend to be a real pain in the halo. But I doubt the archangels would want to dive headfirst into another war, especially against 2 powerhouses. They'd be stuck in the celestial sandwich press. And by the way, I'd appreciate it if you quit asking me questions you already know the answer to just because you want to test my critical thinking. Azazel burst into laughter. You saw right through me, didn't you? My apologies, Hyodu. I just had to hear it directly from you. Just because you've come from the future doesn't automatically make you a master strategist, you know. Issei rolled his eyes playfully. All right, I'll humor you. I'll do anything to earn your trust. Azazel grinned mischievously. Trust, the sweetest tune to my ears. But remember, a desperate man is prone to believing anything. Issei nodded with a hint of seriousness. Trust me, Azazel, I am desperate. If I can't trust you, I don't know what I'd do. Heavy, Azazel muttered, turning semi-serious once again. Very well then, to address the big elephants, these glitches you spotted. Issei, too, put on his real talk face. I don't see any pattern yet. Most of it has been random. This hasn't been a simple trip through time. The world's the same, for the most part, but it feels like you're in an alternate world, Azazel offered. Issei nodded gravely. Exactly. Azazel pondered for a moment. Or perhaps someone else has traveled through time and disrupted the threads of fate, he suggested. How did you end up back here, implying this is even considered back? Off-eyes in great red. Azazel's eyes widened in surprise. Gabriel's heavenly bosom, I haven't even met either of them or believed they were real. They don't meddle in the affairs of mortals, Issei clarified. Great Red put it that way, not me. What made them meddle in the affairs of mortals then? Issei responded with a hint of humor. Terrorists, misbehaving deities, and naughty people poking them with sticks. Azazel couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Issei continued, either way, I don't think it's possible for anyone else to have done this. On the first they've sent back, and that act also erased the future I came from. Off-eyes confirmed that. Azazel raised an eyebrow, and they agreed to such a nihilistic condition. Issei sighed, his expression turning more serious. Great Red couldn't care less, but I made a promise to Off-eyes. I told her I'd find her again, and that will require your cooperation with the devils, potentially even heaven. I see you're an impressive man, aren't you? How old were you then? Azazel inquired, genuinely curious. 23, Issei replied, causing Azazel to nearly spit out his imaginary whiskey. 23. That young. I thought you'd be at least in your late 30s. Issei playfully pouted, feigning hurt feelings. Hey, it's not funny. You're hurting my feelings. Azazel couldn't contain his laughter. You're the oldest young man I've ever met. He laughed his heart out. If it wasn't for the noise-dampening magic he cast on the room earlier, Issei's mother would have shouted at her son to keep it down. Issei continued to whine like a child. Shut up. It's not funny. I don't want to be mentally old, I just want to be happy. The conversation with Azazel seemed to be helping him reclaim his younger, light-hearted side that he thought he had lost. But as all the gods said to him, he was too tough to be killed. His body would break first before his determination had a single dent. They could make him bow, bend him down, but never break him. Hayao Issei was still human. He just needed some therapy, preferably through laughter or those comfortable, tender moments he used to share with any of his girls. These old scars could still be healed. He reminded him of old Vali, and that only fueled his motivation. As the laughter subsided, Azazel mused aloud, I have to wonder, though. I see some parts of me in you. In a non-creepy manner of speaking, of course. Did I raise you to be like this? Issei shook his head. No, you raised me to be a good boy. Your life lessons got overruled by all the crap I had to go through. That's what turned me into this grouchy little bastard you're talking to. Azazel nodded solemnly, a tinge of regret in his expression for asking the question. We'll have to drink to that later. You drink wine? No, my tongue isn't refined enough, apparently. Still too bitter even for me. Shame. Hey, that doesn't mean I don't drink. Azazel raised an eyebrow. What's your poison then? Anything that isn't wine. Brilliant. I'll bring whiskey next time. Don't forget the glasses, Issei reminded, conveniently shifting the responsibility of drink preparation to Azazel. His family wasn't known for their drinking habits, except for his father occasionally enjoying a beer. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here, he prompted, eager to refocus on the issue at hand. Right, glitches. Yes, Azazel nodded sagely, humoring Issei. I do have one last guess. How many gods did you manage to piss off? I dunno. How many stars are there? Christ, that many, huh? It's a losing battle, Zazel, Issei grumbled, his frustration dripping from every word. You beat one, and suddenly their offspring are knocking on your door, demanding a rematch. You give them a thorough spanking, and next thing you know, their great freaking grandkids are lining up for a piece of the action. It's like trying to maintain a never-ending game of divine whack-a-mole with no time limit in sight. 4 long years, Azazel, of this endless merry-go-round, and they just keep popping up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. Honestly, it might have been simpler if I'd embraced my inner villain and decided to prune their godly family tree. Azazel couldn't help but be astounded by Issei's candor. This boy genuinely believed he could take on the divine pantheon, and it left the governor both bewildered and concerned. Whoa, slow down there. What kicked off this divine vendetta in the first place? Azazel inquired, genuinely curious about the catalyst for Issei's celestial grudge. Issei exhaled sharply, the bitterness of the past still fresh in his words. I got too strong. They felt threatened because a non-god like me managed to off one of their own, he retorted with a mixture of irritation and disgust. They couldn't stomach the fact that I became more renowned than some of them. It was their own damn fault, but nope, let's blame the kid and make his life a divine dumpster fire for all eternity. That's how it all started, anyway. After that, it's been one futile cycle of revenge plots after another. I've heard of fragile divine egos, but this takes the divine cake. Tell me about it, Issei muttered, clearly fed up with the whole divine mess. Azazel then steered the conversation towards speculative territory. Any chance that one of these meddling gods has the power to mess with time? Kronos could, theoretically, but he's not one to nurse a grudge, Issei replied. Unless, of course, Nick's sweet-talked him into it, which is about as likely as a snowstorm in hell. She's been doing time in some cosmic lockdown. Azazel, well versed in the art of humor, couldn't resist a playful tease. Are you the unofficial deputy for troublesome gods or something? Issei chuckled, shaking his head. Was never my intention. I just got roped into this divine drama, Azazel. It's like I got scammed big time. Scammed, I tell you, by the whole god-forsaken world, and I'm blaming you, Michael, Sirzech, the Buddha and Hindu gang, and a few more for good measure. Azazel retorted with a smirk, fully aware of the absurdity of it all. Should I issue an apology now for things I haven't even had the chance to do yet? As long as you don't have to deal with that divine circus again, Issei's mischievous grin shifted into a more sincere expression. Sealing Trihexa was the last straw. The world may have survived, but it never truly bounced back. Sacred gear users went haywire, their gears hijacked by the inner chaos. Chaos dragons saw the weakened factions as prime real estate to plunge the world into, well, chaos. Azazel contemplated the magnitude of the responsibility Issei and Vali had shouldered alone. Just you two handling that entire mess. That's a Herculean feat. Issei sighed, recalling those grueling days. Vali was in his element, reveling in the chaos. I've never savored such empty victories. Just the two of you. What of the others? Are there any other dragon emperors other than us two that can kill and are willing to kill a god? Fair point. Azazel nodded. And they were so young too. Burdened by the entire world. Shouldering it on their own. What a cruel fate, for Issei, at least. Vali would enjoy that kind of fate, which meant he would be trying to stop Issei from achieving this kind of goal. He shouldn't relay this information to that kid of his. Changing the subject, Azazel prompted, so, any impotent deities in your rogues gallery? Issei blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. Impotence. Azazel blinked. Omnipotence, my bad. Tisk. Issei broke into laughter. The first of this third life. if there wasn't a whiplash and a half. Azazel's smile was sheepish. It was very rare for the governor to be embarrassed, especially since he thought he was immune to embarrassment. Funny you mention it, Issei couldn't help but laugh heartily. But no, I don't think any of them suffer from divine erectile dysfunction. That'd be quite the divine comedy, wouldn't it? Issei snickered at the mental image of a divine figure struggling with such a predicament. As far as I know, none of these gods are truly omnipotent. If they were, they'd have likely smote me into next week by now. Your first misinterpretation at last. A sibilant whisper that sent shivers down even the unshakable Issei. He looked around his bedroom, but there was no one else present, only him and the governor. Who the heck was that? Issei questioned, but as he scanned the room, he realized that something strange was happening. Azazel wasn't blinking or moving at all. Time had frozen. An image of one cross-dressing garlic hater entered his mind. Gasper's balance breaker, but it couldn't be that. If it were Gasper, he would be the one frozen in time, not Azazel. Issei tried to reach out to D-Drag for answers, but the dragon remained silent, confirming that this was a power greater than anything he had faced before. Dread started to grip him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Then, from the corner of his room, a dark figure emerged, passing through his dresser like a spectral being. It was tall and gaunt, dressed in a black robe and silver steel armor, twice Issei's height. Dark mist flowed from beneath its robe, tainting the floor with darkness. It stood between him and Azazel. Shit, Issei muttered under his breath. The same deep and imposing voice invaded his mind without bothering to enter his ears. I believe good evening would have been more proper of a greeting, but who am I to enforce civility? Issei thought hard, harder than he ever had so far. Thought of a way out. He found none. Relax. I don't associate with tasteless acts such as murder. A good start, at least. Who or what the hell are you? Issei blurted out, the cold dread momentarily causing him to forget his manners. His eyes remained fixed on the hood, searching for any hint of a face amidst the vast darkness. I've never seen gods with this appearance before. Names, of course. Customary of you creations. The voice intoned, dripping with an air of ancient wisdom. Chaos. It is what most refer to me with. Occasionally caused by those who wish to feel more unique. Recognition dawned on Issei as he pieced it together. He muttered. He had heard whispers of this entity, mentioned sparingly by the gods he had defeated or imprisoned. The first proto-genoi, the abyss from which all else sprang. Nyx's grandfather, great-uncle. He corrected his thoughts, for the lack of simpler terms, like that was any better. Break. Her investigation had, thankfully, left her with empty hands. No signs of Issei being involved with the fallen angels, no magical traces, and no tracking spells to tie him to the supernatural world. It seemed that the fallen angel had merely tricked him into believing he had a girlfriend, and for that, Irina couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Issei should be safe, at least for now. Before pledging herself to become Ria's Grimory's knight, Rias had made a promise to never drag Issei into the unseen side of the world. It was an unforgiving realm that had cost her the loss of her parents. They had been kind and good, the best parents she could have hoped for, but this world didn't care about such things. Guilty or innocent, it didn't matter. Yet, Irina still believed that there was some good in this world, however rare it might be. Rias and her friends were living proof that it was worth holding on to hope. Even if there wasn't much goodness outside her little bubble, her little devil family, she trusted herself to be a force where injustice prevailed. Even if it meant forsaking her own dreams to protect her friend and his family, who had provided her with the opportunity to grow up without loneliness and spared her from a bleak fate that might have extinguished her spirit. It was around 8:30 when she left his house, saying her goodbyes to the Hiatus. They offered her to stay, but Irina had to get back to Rias first. They then told Issei to walk her back, but she had to refuse. The night was dark and full of terrors. Well, not really terrors. Well, it wasn't really a night filled with terrors. It was more like a night with mildly annoying ravens that enjoyed chirping loudly. However, the night was dark and full of terrors sounded much cooler than the night was dark and full of mildly annoying ravens that liked to chirp loudly. Irina gazed up at the night sky, where the full moon hid behind dark clouds. Not an ideal situation for devils, as it made them a bit weaker due to the reflected sunlight from the moon's surface. Still, it wasn't a significant drawback. She and her fellow devils could handle it easily. Irina-chan. Irina blinked and turned toward the source of the familiar feminine voice calling her. Her school's kendo captain approached with a bounce in her steps and a smile that could put sunshine to shame. The captain was decked out in casual attire, wearing a white hoodie adorned with an adorable panda face on the front. It was a striking contrast to her role as the resolute leader of the kendo team. In terms of femininity, she left Irina in the dust. But Irina wasn't concerned about fashion contests at the moment. Irina replied with a matching smile. What's up, Mayuruma-chan? It's Murayama. The kendo captain corrected, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Irina couldn't help but giggle in response. I just needed to clear my head for a bit, she admitted, not mentioning that she was also trying to banish a certain young man from her thoughts. And you? Oh, I just came home from Iken's house. The reincarnated devil replied, failing to spot the wince that crossed the brunette's face. Visiting mom and dad. You know, saying hi from time to time. MHMM, Murayama nodded approvingly. They're good people. Can't say much about their boy though. Did he try to do anything lecherous to you? He didn't pull any funny business, did he? It's fine. Irina gave her a toothy smile. I'm fine. If he tries anything funny, I'll just send him flying away. Like bam, and stuff. That's good, that's good. It's important for girls to learn self-defense. Murayama nodded seriously, then walked next to Irina as she went to wherever Irina was heading. Going back to the dorm, Irina-chan. You should head home too, Murasaki-chan. Murayama. Teehee Murayama-chan. Geez, who even started this trend? Murayama pouted sullenly. She was not only skilled with a sword but also adorably cute. The contrast between her tough kendo persona and her endearing personality was striking, and it made Irina feel a strong desire to protect her friend. Well anyway, you should go home. It's getting dark out here, and isn't your house in the other direction from the school? Yeah, I'll be fine. I wanted to walk a bit longer anyway, and besides, I brought my taser with me. Murayama patted the front pocket of her hoodie where Irina could see the rectangular shape outlined against the white fabric. They'll never see me coming. Surprise electrocution. An effective way to fend off perverts and evildoers in the streets. Yeah, Murayama giggled, happy that Irina was playing along with her nonsense. Their leisurely walk continued until they entered the park, which offered the quickest route to their school. Here, the warm yellow glow of street lamps and the gentle moonlight did their best to fend off the encroaching darkness. The park, usually bustling with running children and gossiping housewives, now lay in eerie silence, the shadows of the trees casting unsettling shapes. Eerie enough for the captain of the kendo club to clutch on her friend's arm. Ugh, thighs is triggering my repressed field trip memory. The one where you screamed the loudest. Murayama remained silent, her eyes darting left and right as if searching for hidden threats. Test of courage should be banned from future school activities. You can start a petition to Sona-senpai. Maybe she'll hear you out. But then anyone who does enjoy it won't be able to do it again. Irina realized. This was it. The reason for the strange feeling, the urge to protect. It wasn't about wanting to, but about having the will to do so. Don't worry, Murayama-chan. Irina smiled. I'm here with you this time. Thanks, I know I talk a lot about the way of the Bushido and stuff, but you can't really hit ghosts. Irina nodded in agreement. It was indeed challenging to apply the way of the samurai to ethereal entities. Luckily, she hadn't encountered many wandering spirits here, and even if she did, Akino and Suzaku would be the ones to take care of the naughty spirits. Do you believe in ghosts, Mura-chan? Murayama shifted uncomfortably. No, it was a blatant lie. Stop talking about it. You brought it up. I know, but stop talking about it. Irina giggled lightly, passing under the basking light as they continued their way through the towns. Her cheerful demeanor quickly shifted, replaced by the alertness of a hawk spotting its prey. Although faint at first, she felt it, a touch, gentle as a puppy's tongue, but gradually sinking in like a wolf's bite. Divine magic. The sensation grew stronger, digging deeper into her flesh as it drew nearer. Irina-chan. Murayama clutched Irina's arm tightly, sensing that something was amiss as her friend came to an abrupt halt. Are you okay? Don't tell me there's an actual ghost around. A figure approached them, and Irina's eyes fixed on a man clad in a green coat over a white shirt, red splotches staining his attire. Well, am I lucky or what? A devil? The grinning man's malevolent intent was clear, and Irina knew he meant to harm her. To make matters worse, he was unmistakably an exorcist, armed with the standard gear of his trade. In his right hand, a sword blessed by an angel gleamed with divine power, while his left gripped a handgun specially designed to fire holy water-infused bullets. Stay behind me, Murayama, Irina ordered, shifting her friend to a safer position behind her. Murayama complied, albeit with a mix of confusion, worry, and fear coursing through her. Stay behind me, The exorcist's voice dripped with mockery. What is this? An action movie? He cackled, and though he hadn't made any aggressive moves yet, Irina remained vigilant, ready to summon her sword at a moment's notice. But maybe it is a movie, and right now, I'm the star of the show. The anti-hero destined to cleanse the world from evil through necessary extreme violence. He continued, his grin widening. And you, my dear devil, you'll be another stepping stone to my soaring career. Irina sensed his skills, the sharpness in his eyes, and his unwavering intent to kill. He wasn't as foolish as his words might suggest, he was a true threat. Then again, so was she. Undeterred, Irina took a step forward, causing two falchions to erupt from the cobblestone beneath her feet. She grabbed each one, her gaze locked onto the exorcist's smirking face. Seemingly amused, the exorcist's grin grew wider. Showing your true colors. This'll be in. He paused, dipped his chin, and dropped his smile. Fun. Anyone who took him less seriously than he took them were idiots. Very dead idiots, with their limbs and head missing, and big fat red F carved onto their back. F meant for Freeding Selzen. It will, Irina declared, her eyes narrowing. Just not for you. With that, Irina surged forward, determination in her every step as she aimed to wipe that smirk off his face, permanently. The traces of fear had left his eyes. Issei was scared, but now he was thinking of an exit strategy, scraping the bottom of the barrel. He thought of every possible reason this primeval entity older than the universe itself would want to do with him. His heart was beating fast, but gradually steadying itself to a normal rate. Unlike the gods he had faced before, Chaos seemed to be one least likely to tell a lie or ruin his life. Because if he wanted to, then Issei wouldn't be here. An apt observation. Very important for a time leaper. Issei clenched his jaw. He couldn't even protect his own thoughts or the fact he was the one who messed with the timeline. You have nothing to hide from me, this much I can tell. No need to worry, either, not one fixated on me, at the very least. Chaos spoke. The words were there, just waltzing into his mind without bothering to pass through his ears. What's your deal here, or Chaos? Are you here to put me at a disadvantage because of what I did? Even out the odds, you still think you have the upper hand against the gods. I happen to have something they don't use often, a working brain. So it seems. He chuckled. It was like a volcano rumbling deep inside his mind, shaking his core, but also strangely warm. Not the type of warmth Issei would lay his hand into, however. To remove your unnecessary although understandable concern, I am never as petty as those beings who let themselves be blinded by their pride, nor do I share any sentimental attachment towards any of them. They are, such as you are, actors of this stage, where I am the only audience. An observer, if you will. So you're the passive observer, eh? Issei said, finding bravery in Chaos' uncanny casualness. All right, let's get this over with. What do you want from me? Fight for you. Be your champion. Be your chosen while I fight fate. As interesting of a proposal it is, I don't feel the necessity of tampering with your own fate. You shape your own, as does everyone else. I demand nothing from you, nor have I ever demanded anything from a single soul. I observe. That is it. Issei lowered his eyebrows, still seated on his bed. If he could light another smoke, he would. And through my observations, within the last 4 years of the world you left behind, you have done something nothing else has managed. Hayao Issei. A pause. Issei could feel the eyeless gaze boring deep into his soul. You surprised me. Issei blinked. So far from who you were, from those you love, from who you wish to become, far away from home, forced to forsake your own dreams so others may dream. You gave up your time so others may have it. Gave away your liberty so others wouldn't be taken away. You were loved and yet you stand alone. Alone, in the past you have grown to despise. Your hope has been so utterly crushed. Chaos lowered his cowl, as if to better see the human's expressionless face, almost like he was not concerned by any of it, almost detached. But Chaos knew. Chaos knew the boy was doing the same thing he did then. And yet you remain unbroken. While he appreciated the understanding, Issei wasn't a fan of being observed and being seen as an interesting anomaly in these stranger worlds. What he knew better than to be about it. He complained about it, from time to time, but never a who kept on ing. Hayao Issei was no, nor was he anyone's. What else am I supposed to do? Give up, keel over and die, he replied, trying to find solace in this self-defense measure called forced humor. If I was going to off myself, then I would have at least wanted to see how it all ended. And see it all burn. A grim glimpse to your thoughts. It turns out I'm not as virtuous as everyone thinks I am. Issei admitted. He really was on the verge of breaking. If not for Off-Eye's intervention, perhaps he would have shattered. If you're so impressed with me, can I at least know what you're here for? Taking a closer look. Well, Issei spread his arms like a certain gladiator of the old. Here I am. Not much of a looker, I know. I pity the fools who judge by appearance alone. You pity a lot of things then. Chaos let off another chuckle. Unfortunately so. But I am not here to talk. I am simply here to warn you and offer you some explanations. First, I am not a god. Gods are the creations who think they are clever and powerful to assume they are above everything else. They're underneath you, is what you're telling me. Yes, they bother themselves with the idea of good and evil, illusions for the creations to justify their actions to gain whatever it is they desire. Something you are well aware of. And this time, Hayao, although you are not entirely mistaken to claim none of them are omnipotent, yet they can and have felt the disturbance in the weaves of time. There is a ripple in the surface caused by a droplet which is the arrival of your soul. A stone called fate that has been reshaped. And time, endless as it may be, is not one for any mortals to tamper with. Not in this severity. Not even the Ouroboros dragon nor the protector of the dimensional gap. Shit, he didn't have anything else he could say to that. Those were the rules set by the gods. I don't care, but some of my nephews do. And their children and their children's children. Issei scrunched his face as he muttered a name, dripping with ire. Nix her and her daughters, is it? The night and her moirai, yes, to name a few. Great, there's more. The gods are angry, Hayao Issei. Childish as well. Immortals rarely concern themselves with consequences. Issei let out a frustrated sigh. They turned over every rock they could, and as you are made aware of their carelessness bred from their pride, some rarely take the time to properly set the stone in the exact same place they have found them. That explained all of the glitches he'd seen. Then why haven't they killed me yet? Issei frowned. Chaos cowl shifted down slightly. It appears those gods decided against letting you die without meaning. By their own words to see you suffer. Merciful, aren't they? They're mad because you've weaved your own threads of fate. Where they entangled themselves in their own petulant fury. But I digress. They think it is too much of a waste to simply cast you aside. Much like how you see that fallen angel. I am not like them. Not exactly alike. But there are similarities. He couldn't respond to that. They wish to see how you perform. But where you wish to test Rainier. They wish to see you writhe with these new challenges. Bad mistake, the human said confidently. I've outwitted them once. I'll outwit them again. So you assumed. A vague reply that wasn't to avoid telling the truth, Issei realized. You know of the future, don't you? You just chose to not know it. Excellent observation. The future you left behind is of the past. The future is the only knowledge I keep hidden away from myself. Discovery is an important thing and a source of entertainment. There is not much left for me to discover, Hayato Issei. We're all just actors to you, aren't we? Everything is. Bothered? No. Issei shook his head lightly. A god that doesn't do anything is better than the god who does something and causes troubles. You can watch all you want. You know I'm not here to entertain you or anyone. Indeed, if only all creations share your perspective instead of whining all the time. Perhaps things could have been different. He was talking about the future that was now the past. Why don't you just do that? Because then it won't be nearly as interesting. Chaos chuckled again, and Issei's mind shook again as he rolled his eyes. But the "this amuses me" type of primeval entities was far from the worst it could have been. Chaos, in spite of his name, found enjoyment in chaos, not by causing it. Not like plenty of other gods. Do any of the gods know of this? That you're telling me all this? Why should they? They've done things without putting any reason behind it other than being a god. It appears they have thought being a glorified deity meant they were free from the consequences. If so, then Issei simply had to prove them wrong again. Just not necessarily by him. If there were others who could kick their godly asses, then Issei could very much attempt to use them instead. As long as they weren't any of his girls or the people he cared far too much, no one in this world was untouchable. He simply required to use his power conservatively and grow steadily. He didn't need to be the strongest, just strong enough to protect those he cared the most and not die while doing it suited him perfectly. No need to draw unnecessary attention from any factions or leaders that would want to make use of his power. The world had used him. Now they should protect themselves. You said you're an observer, but you telling me this also changes things? But you know that, don't you? Why, yes, of course. You wonder why I told you so. Perhaps I wanted to give you a prize for surprising me. A not so impactful one, at that. After all, these tampering of the gods you call glitches are new to you. Something you must handle without prior experience. And I am hoping for you to surprise me once again. I will be watching you and the roads you take with great interest, Hayato Issei. Until we meet again, farewell. The room brightened, and the black haze swirled into the depths of his robe, before chaos faded away, leaving a single trail of black smoke that vanished not long after. And as the progenitor disappeared, along with the dark mists that had been pooling over the floor, submerging Azazel's crossed legs, time flowed once again. Well, that, Azazel paused, noting something had gone off. Hinted by Issei not sitting in the same way he was just a millisecond earlier, and by the grim look on his face. Something happened, didn't it? Issei clapped his hands. Good news, Zazel. I know what's causing the glitches, he declared with a face and a sigh. Bad news, Zazel. I know what's causing the glitches. Potentially greater news, it doesn't change our game plan. Break. Murayama couldn't comprehend the surreal scene unfolding before her. A gun, real swords with lethal blades, incredible speed and reflexes, nothing made sense. What did the man mean by a devil? Her mind raced with questions, but she was trapped in a nightmarish reality she couldn't fathom. Just what on earth was going on? Unaware of her friend's thoughts, Irina gritted her teeth in frustration as Fried continued to outmaneuver her. Each time she closed the distance, he parried her slashes and fired his gun, forcing her to dodge or change her trajectory to avoid the bullets. Bang! Another shot rang out as a sanctified bullet struck her falchion instead of its intended target. Irina's violet eyes blazed with fury and irritation. Deflecting bullets wasn't a challenge as long as she anticipated his aim and moved her sword accordingly. Stand your ground like a man, you pansy, she taunted. But you have two swords, the exorcist retorted, flailing his holy sword and waving his gun with a grin. But I've got a gun. Irina shifted her stance, lowering her upper body to adjust her center of gravity. She had the feeling that if it weren't for the full moon, she could have already incapacitated him. But you're good, Miss Young Devil, too frustratingly good, he muttered, pointing his gun at Irina but then shifted its barrel towards Murayama. But she can't be that good. Realization widened her eyes, but it came late. The exorcist wasn't just dodging, he had been slowly rotating their position, getting her away far enough from Murayama, whose only cover was the lamppost in front of her. Run! Irina shouted, but her warning came too late. A high-pitched noise pierced the air, and a silver bullet tore through Murayama's chest, leaving her gasping for breath as she staggered backward, wide-eyed and in disbelief. Irina's stomach plummeted into an abyss as her friend, whom she had vowed to protect, stared at her with a mixture of fear and bewilderment. Murayama clutched the growing red dot on the panda's right eye emblazoned on her white hoodie, and the crimson stain continued to spread. You're gonna drop your swords if you want to save her, little devil, the exorcist taunted, a cruel grin dancing on his lips. Or you can prove to us sad, powerless humans that devils are up to no good, using humans for their own gains. Your choice. How generous of me, right? Irina's grip on her swords tightened, but she forced herself to release them, letting them fall to the cobblestone road with a resounding clang. Good, obey me like the good you are. Gritting her teeth, Irina knew she needed to make contact with the ground to cast sword birth at a range and offensively. If she could trick him, then it was still possible to save her friend and herself. So she began lowering herself, slowly bending her knee, as sharp pain erupted from her back. She glanced down and saw a black blade, coated with her own, its holy aura searing her flesh, filled her mouth, and she coughed painfully as the holy sword was pulled away from her back. Her strength ebbed, and she slumped to the ground, her gaze locked with Murayama's growing terror and confusion. All for S sake, I had her. We're not here to dally with the devils. A stern voice came from behind her, methodically making its way around her, and kicked away her swords further from her reach. And we're not here to hurt innocents who have nothing to do with our business. All you're accomplishing is giving the devils a reason to hunt you down like a dog, Selzin. Vish, you're no fun at all. Let's kill her and leave if you're so pissy about it. And give the devils a motive for all-out retaliation. I thought you were smarter than this. If you want to anger both Gremory and Citri, be my guest, but not while I'm here. The exorcist grunted. Analog, whatever. I just want to slay Ease and get paid. Then let's move, the woman said. The devils will busy themselves by tending to her. The night should be ours. What were they planning? And why did the woman's voice sound so eerily familiar? So we, the male exorcist exclaimed, his voice lowering as they walked away. How many you got? 4. 6. Eat that. This isn't a race. But good work. It is for me. Give me the motivation, you know. As Irina's powers gradually slipped away, she strained to lift her head. She saw a blonde ponytail cascading from the woman's white robe, and her gaze met the woman's sharp, ice-cold blue eyes. These eyes had once held kindness until an event that diverged their fates and separated their paths. Yume, as the two exorcists faded into the distant darkness, Irina felt the last of her consciousness slowly fading away. As a criteria had been met for one summoning flyer to activate, and crimson light emerged from the pocket of Nuriyama's hoodie just as her last breath left her body. The wish that triggered it. I wish I could have protected my friend. Break. The next day, which was Sere, as promised, Hayao Issei devoted his entire day to sate Azazel's undying curiosity to his sacred gear, which was done entirely inside Issei's own bedroom that had become their temporary base of operation, but also the safest place as Azazel was strong enough to contain everything in a room this small. The governor's eyes couldn't be brighter with joy, and Deedrag couldn't be any excited when Issei finally activated the boosted gear, shifting its shape from twice critical to the crimson-spiked gauntlet every god's learned to fear. Done easily due to him sacrificing his left arm, a problem needed to be solved within the foreseeable future. After running a series of tests, mainly Azazel asking him details about how many form the boosted gear possessed, and how many he had unlocked during his past, and how many new abilities he had learned that was never discovered by any of his previous predecessors, Issei showed off his mastery and capability of using Deedrag's tremendous magical power to help mitigate his body that lacked any traces of the spiritual fuel called mana that was used by human magicians to conjure their own unique magic that was separated into 10 tiers. Clasping his gauntlet that had become ghostly and transparent in appearance, Issei released his concentration as the crimson color popped back into place. It was reaching midday, Issei realized as he checked his wall clock. Chill touch A. Azazel nodded sagely, a wide smile on his face. I think this is the first time a dragon emperor can actually use sorcery. Historically speaking. Your history, you mean? Azazel laughed. So it is. I've never heard of anything ever pissing off that amount of gods within the span of 4 years? Give or take, yeah. What other spells can you cast aside from the cantrips? The lowest tier of spells, easiest to learn, easiest to cast, and the least draining compared to the rest. Rather, what's the highest level you can cast right now? First is my limit, but give me enough time and I'll be able to bring meteors down again. Issei said without the will to brag. That aside, I can cast Fist. Azazel wrinkled his black-brownish eyebrows. First time I heard of that. What does it do? I punch people in the face. After a long silence, Azazel snorted and laughed. What about the limitations? Since I haven't done any physical training other than light exercises, I can only cast 4 of them per day before knocking myself out cold with the 5th, Issei sighed as he stretched his hands. I already showed you one, so that's 3 slots left for me until I take a long nap. Why, you gave me quite the shock, partner, blacking out like that all of a sudden. The gauntlet spoke, its green gem glowing as one word left it. I eagerly await the day where I can lend you my strength to the fullest. You sure will, bud. Then we'll take names and kick asses. You can keep the names, I get the asses. Not the worst bargain I've had. Why would you want to keep? Actually, forget I asked. Why not? I can give you a detailed explanation. Or Vali could. At that, the governor raised his eyebrow in a never-before-felt kind of interest. Vali, he's an ass man. Thighs too, actually. Anything from below the belt. Azazel made a face of mixed surprise and amusement. I learn something new from you every day. Who'd have thought the boy actually had it in him? Yup. He's just not as brazen as me when it comes to admitting our preferences. Issei's grin infected him. Oh, and what's yours then? A distinguished gentleman is a man who can appreciate the finer things in life with holy trinity of tits, booty and thighs. I see. A fellow man of culture, you are. Azazel nodded sagely, feeling a powerful bond had been created between them. Preferences are for kids. True men enjoy the whole package and make their women feel appreciated as a whole. Couldn't put it better myself. Issei nodded sagely, hands crossed. And Deedrag couldn't be more mortified. Cease this exchange at once. But the dragon got a point. Issei muttered. Some would find it demeaning, but dragons never saw mating more than a method to continue their legacy when their body perished. Deedrag simply found it to be an embarrassing talk. Which it was. Has Raynor said anything to you? And speak of the fallen angel, he supposed. Azazel picked up Rainer's present standing outside the gate of the time traveler's house. Here she is, Azazel said, and soon enough a shout came from downstairs. The boy's mother. Eyes, your girlfriend's here. Azazel temporarily phased out the magical soundproofing of the room, signing Issei with a nod as he then shouted back to his mother, just let her up here, Mom. Thanks. The boosted gear vanished in a brief flash of green light, removing itself from Issei's bare hand. The experiments were done and now was the time of discussion. Within a few moments, Amano Yuma entered the room and nearly jumped back out when she spotted the governor sitting next to the boy on the same bed. The girl quickly shut the door behind her and Azazel re-erected the sound barrier just as quickly as surprise flashed across her face. Hell, Lord Azazel, I didn't know you would be here, Rainer stammered, turning back into her real form and her scandalous outfit that put Brazilian V bikinis to shame. Sorry, Rainer, Issei said, I banged him first. Both the fallen angels turned their eyes at him, one in shock and the other in absolute state of confusion, before breaking away into a wheezing laughter, slapping his thigh and coughing out his lungs due to the perfect delivery and the perfect poker face, and how dreadfully shocked Rainer was. Oh gods, my stomach hurts now. Was I too rough? Shut up, Hayato, Azazel snapped, but still giggling. You're torturing the girl. Besides, I'm no cardinals. Choir boys don't excite me. Stunned, Rainer actually had to shake her head to compose herself. I have news, she muttered, desperately trying to maintain her jealousy from breaking out. She had spent years to gain Azazel's approval and to get him to just talk to her and laugh with her casually, never achieving it, while the boy did it all in one day. Here we go again, what kind of news? Azazel said, taking out his harmless cigarette pack and taking out a roll, offering the small box to the boy next to him. Issei took the offer. Nothing like a good smoke after a good. Got him at Hayato, Azazel snickered, lighting the white roll between his lips and then passing the lighter to the jokester, then extending the cigarette pack to the uneasy fallen angel before them. You smoke. Recreationally. Thank you, Rainer blinked. She would forever remember the day her Lord Azazel gave her something, even if it was just a tiny roll filled with vat-grown herbs. After Issei had his lit, he tossed the Zippo lighter to her. She caught and burned the tip of her cigarette, taking a drag and savoring its minty breath, imagining this would be how it felt like if Lord Azazel was ravaging her mouth with his tongue. Smokes billowed from their lips, lazily floating upwards, before fading entirely without leaving any smell or bothersome residues. Azazel began, okay then, let's start again. What kind of news, Rainer? Have you dealt with Fried yet? Bad, Lord Azazel, sir. And no, I haven't had the opportunity, but I will kill him. I swear, Rainer admitted grimly. I'm running out of time. Yesterday they were still preparing for the ceremony to detach a sacred gear from its host. She peered at Issei for a facial reaction. He showed none. The preparation was done just today. Right now they're sending me away because they want to see the Holy Maiden and proceed with the ritual. This soon, Issei muttered. While he did expect to have at least one more week before Asia's murder and revival, Chaos Warning had eased the blow of the news. That said, how come? The ritual needed sacrifice. 20 humans for one sacred gear user. I thought getting there would at least take them a while, but the exorcists sent here did it all the same night they came here. Azazel noted Issei's concern. Glitches? Yeah, balls. Rainer continued, though the word glitches caught her attention. Worse, one of the exorcists sent here was under Cockabeel's direct order, and her words carry more weight than mine do. She said Cockabeel wanted it to be done tonight. Issei scrunched his eyebrows. Fried's a girl. Fried. No, not him, the other one. Isaiah. What does she look like? Blonde hair, blue eyes, average height. Yes. Who was she in your version? Issei sighed. He had thought of this. He thought preparing himself would make it easier to swallow. It didn't. And he was Ria's knight. At that moment, Issei felt a punch into his gut, and a burning ire towards the gods that he swore not to spare in this new timeline. Whoever decided it was funny to turn his friend into his enemy, and worse, turning them into a girl to pour salt in his wound, deserves nothing less than a long, drawn-out death. All right then, Issei stood up and said calmly, though only on the surface. Underneath was a dragon prepared to bring cataclysm. Do you know what this means? He was testing her. Fine. She'd proved to him she could use her brain. I can't keep spying on them or Cockabeel. Not unless you're giving me another sacred gear user. MHMM. And I don't do well with sacrifices. Issei turned to the governor. This means we'll have to meet with the devils right now. You good now, Azazel? Me, I'm always good. Azazel smirked, standing up and flattening his burgundy suit, turning the remaining cigarette into dust as it disintegrated. I'm hiding behind you if they jump me though. Barrakeel's girl, most importantly. Ria should be able to keep Aquino in check. But sure, I'll be your damn hero. How reassuring. Rainer took one last drag and exhaled through her nostrils. Let me get my subordinates out from the crossfire, Rainer said, practically pleading although it hurt her pride to admit it. I'll be quick. If possible, you won't have to deal with 2 exorcists. Get your men out and leave them to the devils, Issei told her. She got Asia out. A shame about Fried, but as he had said, he didn't rely fully on Rainer to deal with all of these problems. I don't know much about Issei yet, but Kiba had a good head and if she got Cockabeel's trust, she's more dangerous than Fried. Rainer nodded. No use fighting or defending her pride since he knew better than her. Fine, I'll convince my men to get out. If you come back without the girl, they'll ask questions, Rainier, Azazel pointed out. A very good point. I don't need to come back to them. I'll set a place and they can meet me there. Azazel considered before asking, You trust them? Not all of them. Just 3. They listen to me more than to any of the exorcists, she said. I roped them into this whole mess. Let me at least get them off the stage. Azazel looked at Issei, who gave a shrug, and Azazel gave a nod to Rainier. Then get them before we move in. I won't be joining the devils as that'll risk exposing my interference to Cockabeel, likely jump-starting whatever plan he had in mind against me. Once I meet the devils, I'll be in the hotel. Gather your lackeys and meet me there. You and your pals will probably be out of a job. Jobs I happen to have. Lord Azazel, why yes. Thank you. Her violet eyes lit up, and to his surprise, Issei actually felt a bit happy for her. I won't fail you. MHMM. We'll see about that. Be quick, Rainier. Knowing Riaz and her impulsiveness, she won't want to waste any time after I give her the get-go. Yes, my lord. At once. As Rainier shifted back into a mono Yuma and rushed outside his house, probably surprising his mother watching Korean drama downstairs, Issei finished the last of his smoke. It clouded his vision just as doubts clouded his mind. Freed must die tonight. But what about Kiba? When Riaz arrived at the scene and discovered that her school's kendo captain had triggered the contract flyer, it felt as if a red-hot knife were twisting in her gut, wedged between her ribs. She had wanted servants, certainly, but not at the expense of the unsuspecting students in her school. These were students living their everyday lives, blissfully unaware of the callous supernatural side lurking in their world. Especially not Sanada Murayama. To make matters worse, Riaz found Irina unconscious and bleeding on the ground. The scratches on the ground hinted at a fierce sword fight, but the bullet wound on Murayama's chest was a puzzle. There was no sword that could create such an injury. As Riaz knelt down and felt the tiny hole in the girl's white sweater, her hand stung slightly. Silver bullets, exorcists, Vatican. Summoning Akino and Suzaku was her next move. Akino swiftly transported Irina back to the dorm while Suzaku remained to cleanse Murayama's wound. Suzaku Hanjima, blessed by the sun goddess Amaterasu and a natural purification expert, had only one flaw when it came to being the perfect bishop: her inherent kindness. Kindness, though valuable, could be a vulnerability when dealing with ruthless individuals. Show mercy to the lowest of lows, and they might exploit it, even stab you in the back. Who would be at fault then? Thankfully, Akino's less forgiving nature complemented Suzaku's kindness. If Akino wasn't available, Riaz herself, as the king and leader, would step in. As Suzaku performed the reverse cleansing ritual to heal the divine radiant wound, Riaz watched attentively, keeping an eye out for any signs or traces of the exorcists. She found none, but at least the ritual was successful. With that accomplished, the ritual to reincarnate the human girl into a devil followed suit, proceeding without any hiccups. However, the previous night's problems were far from fully resolved. Just minutes after learning that the Governor-General of the Grigori himself was at her club/office room's door, Riaz hadn't even realized his presence until Akino opened the door, which explained why her face distorted with disgust and anger within a flash. Azazel, she practically hissed, venom dripping from her words. If you're offering your head, I'll gladly accept. Well, I'm relieved to know I'm so welcome. Akino, Riaz commanded, and Akino stepped away from the door, her gaze a lethal glare. She despised the Grigori's crows for their audacity to roam freely within her territory. She patiently awaited the moment when one of them would make a crucial mistake, and she would seize the opportunity to eliminate their presence entirely. And if the governor couldn't keep his crows in check, she might just take matters into her own hands. What brings you here, Lord Azazel? Riaz questioned with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Azazel held his own position of authority, and while their factions had their differences, she believed in showing respect to those in leadership roles. Trust, however, had to be earned. She was well aware that Azazel wasn't a reckless individual who would casually enter and risk plunging the devils and fallen angels into a full-scale war. I've come with a mission of peace in the hope of fostering a more prosperous relationship between the Grigori and the devils of the underworld, the governor responded smoothly. Riaz recognized that it had been his charisma and negotiation skills that had secured a delicate peace during the Great War, extending the lifespans of both major factions. May we enter, Lady Gremory? We, a thought echoed, but Riaz stood up from her desk riddled with papers and walked towards her unofficial meeting couches. Please, take a seat. Don't mind if I do, and the burgundy-suited man stepped into the room, and Riaz couldn't help but wonder what had brought him here. She observed his entry and found herself further puzzled. Yo, Issei unceremoniously said as he threw a peace sign at his two bewildered seniors, then shooting finger guns at his past future lovers. Wish up. Looking good, Akino Payson. You rock that angry semi-confused look. Hayaudu. That's me, Issei sighed as he slinked into the seat next to Azazel, who was grinning and enjoying his presentation. Unfortunately, this wasn't the same pervert known throughout the entire school. Even a blind monkey could spot the difference. Lord Azazel, you seem to be hiding something from us. About him? Oh, yes, quite a few things, Lady Gremory, Azazel admitted, acknowledging the shift in focus from himself to the unusual visitor. He surprises me more often than a box of chocolates, but let's not digress. You can find out more about him yourself later on. What I have is a proposition for you regarding the fallen angels loitering around your town that aren't under my payroll. This should be interesting both him and Hayato. Subconsciously, Rias folded her arms, a gesture that somehow made her look even more regal in her casual weekend attire, accentuating the crook of her S. "I'm all ears," she said, signaling Akino to join her. While her queen had initially been furious at the governor's presence, Issei's unexpected arrival had added a layer of confusion to her emotions. "Good enough for Rias. My proposition is straightforward," Lady Gremory, as Issei began, leaning forward slightly. "There's a gang of rogue fallen angels, stray crows, you might say, nesting in a church on the outskirts of town. They're causing quite a ruckus, murdering innocents and engaging in various nefarious activities right under our noses." A crease formed between Rias's crimson brows. "Do they have any connection to our 20 dead clients?" "Yes," Azazel confirmed with a semi-serious expression. There was a notable shift in tone that didn't go unnoticed. "They're using the of their victims to perform a ritual, an illegal one, I might add. This ritual not only results in murder but also the death of the sacrificial lamb and the theft of any sacred gears they possess, provided they're not Longinus. Longinus. Longini. Issei chipped in. "In any case, he's saying you'll need to help out, and in return, you'll earn a favor from one of the big shots." It sounds almost too good to be true, but hey, that's life for you. The fact that it was the same leecher who was talking to her with suddenly more soundness in his voice and behavior still baffled her. Rias and Akino exchanged bewildered glances, still trying to wrap their heads around the transformed Issei. "I am sorry to interrupt this intriguing discussion," Rias began, hesitating for a moment. "But are you really Hayato Issei?" Issei leaned back in his chair, wearing an amused expression. "Yep, that's me. Who else would I be? His secret love child." Rias blinked in disbelief. "Are you my dad, Azazel?" Issei asked. "Did you place me at my current parents' doorstep when I was so very little to remember the details? Is that why my mother has that strange baby basket? Am I actually Moses' descendant?" No, and for the love of all things holy, absolutely not." That gave me chills. "Cease and desist, please." "Well," Issei muttered, breaking the tension, "I'm relieved you're not my long-lost dad, Azazel. So get on with the scoop then. Time is money, and all that." Rias could only exchange glances with Akino, who was just as befuddled as her. Well, I don't understand. You've never shown any signs of, forgive me if this offends you, supernatural awareness. And you haven't done anything to attract our attention until few days ago, right? With Muramasa-chan. Murayama, yes. Issei leaned forward, as if he were about to share a well-kept secret. "Let's just say I woke up from my delusions that I could live a normal life without getting dragged into the entire supernatural mess. Especially after learning why Irina's become a devil." Rias pressed her lips. "You know, that she offered herself so she can protect me and my family. Without any interference from me or Sona," Rias added. "It was her choice alone, and I didn't persuade her otherwise. Or discourage her, I assume. She offered a pact with the devil. I apologize if I've disappointed you by not turning her down," Rias explained, defending her decision. Irina had walked into her clubroom one day, offering her services and even revealing her blade blacksmith ability. Rejecting such a valuable offer, especially in exchange for not involving her schoolmates in the supernatural world, would have been senseless and counterproductive. Issei shrugged, unbothered. "Yeah, no one owes me an explanation. The milk's been spilled, and there's no use licking it. Wait, that doesn't quite fit, but you get the idea. Anyway, I'm with the guy on this one." "Is he working under you, Lord Azazel?" Rias inquired. I wish," Azazel replied, crossing his arms casually and laughing. "No, he actually came to me using Rainer's interest in him. The boy's craftier than he looks, I'll tell you that much." True to form, Issei hadn't been ogling Rias's chest, and that surly expression was a far cry from the demeanor of the notorious trio's de facto leader. "So then that would be 2 or 3 days ago?" Rias asked, trying to piece together the timeline. On Friday." Rias couldn't help but be impressed. "You managed to keep this hidden from us all this time, Hayato." "Fooled by what?" "By fooling around as a perv." "No, that was genuine. It wasn't him right now anyway. Still the old-ass fanatic dumbass known as Hayato Issei. That part kinda wilted during the 3 years of torment. But so is this one. We adjust how we act based on who we're talking to. Obviously, I won't be discussing supernatural stuff with my regular friends who can't shoot magical lasers from their wrists." "I see. What would Irina say about this?" Rias couldn't help but wonder. Then she turned her attention back to Azazel. "You mentioned having a shared interest with him. What is it?" "Peace, clearly," he said with a stern look. "White peace won't cut it. I want actual, long-lasting peace, and the major factions trio is the giant first leap. The entire world depended on it. At least, that's how I see it. There must be a reason why other factions haven't attempted to take over hell or heaven." "You know so much already," Akino muttered under her breath. "And to think everyone sees you as a harmless leecher. Well, they're not wrong. Not entirely, at least. I can be obsessed with ass and titties, but I know there's a time and place, and right now is not the time nor the place. There's a crow's nest needing to be set on fire, and while we speak, they might be killing more people willy-nilly." "Exactly," Azazel affirmed his statement, underscoring the urgency of their situation. "You help me on this one, Lady Gremory, and you'll have a first-hand gratitude from the governor himself." That should boost your standing significantly high. Riaz mulled it over, but couldn't help feeling cautious. While that's appealing, this all feels rather abrupt. Opportunities appear abruptly, as Issei said wisely, and you can either watch it slide away or grab it when it pops up. Aquino raised a pertinent question. How can we be sure this isn't some elaborate trap? Issei was quick to reply, his determination shining through. Because I'll be going with you. Azazel won't be joining us for obvious reasons. Yes, my reason being avoiding an internal war between me and my rather volatile cotter. I'll assist by cleaning up the scene and framing the extermination as a necessary purification within my faction, a way to weed out the bad elements, so to speak. Riaz took a moment to consider their proposal, still cautious. The last thing we want is to trigger a full-blown war. You have my word, Azazel said firmly. Riaz furrowed her brow in contemplation. Aquino brought up another point, one that Riaz had missed. You'll be joining us, Hayato-kun. We've heard about your little spar with our newest pawn, but she's a human. I don't mean to be rude, but I fear you might slow us down. Issei didn't like the sound of that. Not the accusation of him being a baggage, but the previous statement leading to that. Wait, what do you mean by your newest pawn? Did something happen to Murayama? While it's relieving to know you don't know everything as though you came from the future, it's regrettable that it has to come down to this, Riaz sighed heavily. But I'm afraid so. She was attacked last night by an exorcist. A rogue one, I hope regardless, the Vatican will hear of this. Issei's expression turned grim and cold. Another hiccup in the timeline. Azazel wondered. Or perhaps another unexpected turn of events. The girl's in safe hands now, the governor slapped Issei's back, pulling him out from kicking himself with guilt. And I can assure you those exorcists are yours to kill. They're strays, like you said. And you're sure of this? How? We're the Watchers, Lady Gremory. We watch things very closely. It's our job to know without being known. Creepy little spy subterfuge was essential in her line of work, but Riaz would rather not point out their sneakiness openly, as that would mean she not only praised their stealth, but admitted her security was imperfect. Not like she was willing to lower her pride to admit that outright. You seem rather eager to let your own kind die in the hands of their enemy. Azazel's response was sharp. Former enemies, and they've betrayed me. None of us take betrayals lightly. Aquino's voice dripped with anger. I certainly don't. Azazel smiled wryly at Aquino's seething tone, noticing the deep wounds that still festered in Aquino's heart, much like the wounds that tormented Barakil. Could Issei truly help them mend their broken bonds? Only time would tell. But exorcists are dangerous, Lady Gremory, Azazel cautioned. I'd prefer if you could eliminate them while taking down the church. But I won't insist. They've made it clear that they're dangerous when they harm my knight, Riaz responded firmly. We are fully capable of protecting our own, whether they are exorcists or not. Your concern is noted, provided it's genuine. Azazel flashed a grin. Of course, you're the Crimson Satan's little sister. Issei cringed internally. Nice choice of words, Zazel. Riaz narrowed her eyes. I am Riaz Gremory, co-overseer of the Devil's territory within this town. Azazel chuckled, seemingly unfazed. Right, of course, I don't dispute that. But you're still his sister. If something happened to you, and a fallen angel was responsible, that's like breaking a glass and trying to glue it back together. The glass being an allegory for peace. And we're allowed to let loose on the crows. The whole flock of them. That's right. There'll be no wars, no aggression taken, and you'll rid this town free of those lunatics. Riaz sighed, recognizing the truth in his words. Very well, Lord Azazel. While I don't fully trust you yet, I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I expect more than mere gratitude once we're finished, though. I don't fully trust you yet, Lord Azazel, but I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I expect more than mere gratitude once we're finished, however. Riaz turned to her queen as she stood up. Aquino, gather everyone here. Aquino's eyes sparkled with anticipation as a wicked smile spread across her face. The prospect of unleashing her electrifying powers on those troublesome fallen angels without consequences had her dreaming of this day. My pleasure. That's the spirit, Azazel applauded once, his enthusiasm evident as he rose from his seat. Lady Gremory, I always repay my debts. Well then, I wish you luck. You probably don't need it, but it's the thought that counts, right? I'll be off to instruct my men to turn a blind eye while you devils work your magic. He then casually tapped Issei's shoulder, who hadn't budged from his seat. You've got it from here, eh? Issei responded with a thoughtful hum. Before we go, Senpai Murayama is your pawn, right? Riaz wasn't surprised that Issei was aware of the intricacies of the evil pieces. She had a multitude of questions ready, but she decided to hold off until she was certain that she could trust Hayato Issei. Yes, Riaz confirmed. Then who's the injured knight? Issei didn't like the guilty look on Riaz's face. It's your foster sister, Irina. She'll be all right after a rest, I promise you. She was stabbed from behind, but they missed her heart. Missed? That didn't sound right. Was it intentional, or did this Kiba get sloppy? Unless she wasn't thinking clearly. Yes, she probably would have missed. But that was highly unlikely, but then again, he didn't know for sure if this timeline's Issei had the same prowess as Yuudo Kiba. She didn't have the blade blacksmith for one, and she was a stray exorcist. Why and how? But that shouldn't matter now as much as it would later on. Priorities. The old one was a wit who didn't understand and was unable to place emotions before actions. Right then, let's go. That was rather quick, Riaz remarked, still surprised by Issei's promptness. Oh, I'm concerned, but there's something else to do. Besides, you told me she'll be all right. Good to know my words have at least a smidgen of your trust. He noted the sarcasm. I do trust you. I hope you feel the same. We'll see. I'll leave him in your capable hands, Lady Gremory, Azazel declared as he made his way to the window. With a dramatic flourish, he leaped out, and his 12 black wings burst forth, causing an explosion of black feathers as Azazel disappeared from sight. Show off. Both Issei and Riaz shared the same thought. All that aside, I have many questions for you, Hayato. And I have answers I'll share once we've dealt with this mess, Issei replied, following Riaz out of the clubroom. But first and foremost, are you able to protect yourself? We won't shy away from killing them on sight, Hayato. I know, he replied, his tone serious. Those fallen angels had sealed their fate by allying with the wrong fallen angel, and Rainier had been luckier than the rest. Till away. I won't preach or shout killing is bad. You're like an entirely different person. I am and I'm not. After all, this was what the fool had become. The bitter, sassy, skeptical, and all in all fed up with every garbage he had to clean up. He felt more like the universal grumpy janitor rather than the protector of the world or whatever meaningless title they could come up with. Would you mind waiting here? I'll need to change into my uniform. What's wrong with your current one? School uniforms are a dime a dozen, Hayato, Riaz replied matter-of-factly. But before I do, can you protect yourself? I'd rather not have my outnumbered servants babysit you in case the worst happens. Issei extended his arm, as the green light of the boosted gear shone brightly as the crimson gauntlet manifested itself. On the other arm, he promptly withdrew his right hand and switched it with his left. Right, he hadn't stolen the divine dividing yet. Maybe he could ask Volley nicely this time to share. Is proof enough for you? Is this the boosted gear? Yay, very nifty, and it vanished within the same light before she could reach it. Another thing he found to like after he developed several brain cells was teasing the Gremory. You didn't think I'm tagging along to sightsee and be a deadweight, did you? Break. Azazel and Issei's plan proceeded smoothly, with suspicions arising briefly but being quelled before they could escalate. However, Rainier's situation was far from ideal. The plan had started well for her. She had summoned Donaseek, Calawarner, and Middle to meet her at the park at sunset, and they had arrived as arranged. When she explained her decision to them and revealed that the Devils were planning an assault on their temporary base, they had expressed understanding and approval. Everything seemed to be going according to her plan. However, her elation quickly turned to terror as they realized they were being tailed by the exorcists, and before they could react, they were ambushed. You ain't double-crossing bastards, Fried seethed, his voice a low growl. Donaseek's head snapped to the side, a silver bullet piercing through his skull. His eyes widened in the split second before life deserted him, and he crumpled to the ground, a lifeless heap. You think you're clever, don't you? Well, it sucks to be you. I'm smarter. And my partner is even smarter than me, smarter than any of you four caballeros. Fried quickly reloaded his silver revolver, the metallic clicks echoing ominously in the darkening park. Each bullet had found its mark, piercing through flesh and black wings, causing substantial damage. Issei had left the scene earlier to pack up their belongings while Fried dealt with the rest. Wait don't, another muted cry, and a bullet found its mark between Middle's eyes, instantly ending her life. Her body went limp and fell to the ground as she had been crawling. None of you wits are essential to the game plan, but you it all up anyway, Fried muttered bitterly. He thrust his sword into Calawarner's back, piercing her heart and ending her life in an instant. The last thing she saw before her death was Rainier lying beside her. All because of you. Rainier watched in helpless horror as her comrades were mercilessly slaughtered, their bodies twitching in their final moments. Her chest heaved, her heart pounding with dread as she knew she was next. She gasped for breath, her body riddled with bullet holes in her chest, stomach, and lungs, making each breath agonizingly painful. Filthy cunt whore, Fried spat, his voice dripping with venom. He landed a brutal kick to her jaw, her head snapping to the side. And saliva sprayed from Rainier's lips as she was sent sprawling backward. Her world spun in a nauseating whirl of pain and terror. You'll pay for this. Rainier's voice was weak, barely more than a whisper, as she tried to muster defiance through the agony. Another brutal kick to her bleeding stomach tore the air from her lungs as it exited through her mouth along with another gush of thick red. Her body convulsed with pain. G-H-A-H-A-H-G. Oh, G-H. Yeah, you're going to pay me back. Fried's laughter was chilling, a sadistic symphony of cruelty. He jeered at her helplessness. How? Drown me in your... Get up, she shouted at herself, puking out a sticky red substance. Get up, or she'd send her subordinates to die without being able to avenge their needless death. If not her, who would? She wouldn't delude herself into believing her Lord Azazel would lift a finger for these poor fools, especially because he couldn't. Issei hardly cared about her, let alone her dead friends. Rainier's world spun in a chaotic blur of pain, despair, and anger. The ground beneath her seemed cold and unforgiving, matching the chill that had settled into her heart. With tremendous effort, she pushed herself up from the soaked ground. Every movement was torture, and her vision swam with dark spots. She could taste the metallic tang in her mouth, and she spat out the sticky red substance. The pain in her back flared as she tried to move her wings, but they hung limply at her sides, clipped and useless. Fried's cruel actions had left her crippled and vulnerable. Think you can fly away? Tough luck, Fried taunted, his voice a cruel sneer. He showed no mercy, no remorse, only sadistic pleasure in her suffering. He wiped his soaked sword on her wounded side, adding insult to injury. Rainier felt a sharp kick that sent her sprawling to the ground once more. Her body convulsed with pain, and she could taste the dirt and on her lips. Her violet eyes, filled with a mix of hatred and desperation, could only stare at her clipped wings and the lifeless bodies of her subordinates. The torment continued as Fried sawed away the remaining parts of her wings, each agonizing moment etching the pain deeper into her soul. Flowed to fill the wounds, a crimson testament to her suffering. Know your place, whore, Fried spat, his words a venomous reminder of her humiliation. He carved his initials onto her marred back, branding her as his victim. Then he left, leaving her broken and battered on the wide cobblestone. Her breaths came in ragged gasps as she clung to consciousness. The plan had failed, her underlings were dead, and she was left to face the consequences of her choices. Fried huffed. Bastards had been dealt with. Cockabeel's grand plan had failed. There was no sister to kill. Time to pack up and get thee away from this mess before the damn devils sniffed them out. In fact, he could sense some pampered princess looming in the distance. Her and her small band of devils Fried would like to stay if he knew he could take them all on. Unfortunately he couldn't, and he'd rather flee in life to slay more evil another day. One of the hardest pills for Issei to swallow so far had been the transformation of Kaneko. Gone were the days when her bust could only be compared to mosquito bites. Now, they bore a resemblance to her sister's ample chest. It felt surreal to see her school uniform stretched to accommodate her newfound curves, adding a hint of femininity to her once boyish figure. Not only had she developed in that department, but she had also grown taller. No longer was she the height of his chest, now, the top of her white hair reached his shoulders. She might still be slightly shorter than Asia unless she had her nekashu ears out. As Issei contemplated Kaneko's growth, his thoughts wandered to Azazel and the experiments he might be conducting. He couldn't help but wonder if the fallen angel was behind Kaneko's transformation, and he hoped there were no hidden consequences. However, he knew better than to voice his questions and suspicions. Building trust with Rias was of utmost importance, and revealing too much would only raise unnecessary doubts. He could always ask them when the opportunity arose. From an idle talk leading to the discovery for Kuroka's fate, Kaneko's patience wore thin as Issei's gaze lingered on her chest. She finally snapped, "Can you please quit staring? It's disgusting." Issei seemed to have been paying too much attention to her bust compared to the rest to successfully cloak his curiosity as perversion. "It's disgusting." Without missing a beat, Issei responded, "Yes, I am disgusting," deadpanning his reply. His comment elicited a giggle from Akino and a groan from Kaneko. "Disgust me, please." Kaneko turned to Rias for support, seeking refuge from Issei's antics. "Does he really need to come? What if the crows seduced him and turned him against us, senpai?" Issei's suggestion took a more risque turn. "Surely you devils cannot seduce the fallen angels. Screw the fighting, let's have a striptease battle instead. It's way less violent and much more fun. Winner takes all." Kaneko's expression twisted in repugnance as she shook her head. "You're the worst." Rias, on the other hand, had a more diplomatic stance. "Tolerate him, Kaneko. That's all I ask of you. He brings an interesting dynamic to our group." Their banter was interrupted by Kaneko's sharp senses. She froze and whispered, "I heard a gunshot from the park." Issei hadn't forgotten that Nekashu's senses rivaled those of devils and were likely as sharp as a dragon's. "Another one," Kaneko added, quickening their pace. They were still a mile away from the town's park, but no one dared to doubt her hearing. Issei's expression soured as he heard the distant gunshots, a chilling sound that seemed to echo through the silence of the park. The group quickened their pace, driven by the urgency of the situation. It was clear that something was terribly wrong, and they needed to investigate. The park was devoid of human lives except for him. Azazel had likely ordered his cronies to hypnotize the humans to play nice and stay in their house, where they could watch some evening drama or fight for the remote with their wives. And Issei was damn glad he did, because people would be screaming and traumatized if they ever saw a glimpse of this carnage. Probably start a rumor that would end up transforming into an urban legend. His people loved those kinds of things. The once serene park was now marred by a gruesome scene of violence and death. The brick path was stained with crimson, and 3 lifeless bodies lay sprawled on the ground. Black wings, twisted and mangled, were a stark contrast to the orange bricks beneath them. Some bodies were slashed in half, while others bore countless small wounds. Issei recognized the fallen beings immediately. They were Rainier's lackeys. Questions swirled in his mind. Where was Rainier? Had she betrayed them? It seemed unlikely, considering her infatuation with Azazel. Committing such a brutal act would only push her further away from the governor's favor. Rias couldn't help but be deeply disturbed by the gruesome scene before her. Even though she was a devil accustomed to battle, the brutality of this sight sent shivers down her spine. It wasn't fear that gripped her but a chilling sense of unease. Who could have done this? Rias asked, her voice laced with a mixture of concern and dread. Could it have been Azazel? Rainier's lackeys, he spoke matter-of-factly, as though discussing the weather. Issei, however, seemed strangely detached from the horrifying scene, as if he had witnessed such carnage before and had grown numb to it. He separated himself from the group of devils and began examining the fallen bodies, kneeling next to one of them, Calawarner. He dipped his fingers into a puddle of her, which was still warm to the touch. Still warm. Rias exchanged uneasy glances with her servants, who were visibly distressed by Issei's apparent indifference. They couldn't comprehend how he could remain so composed in the face of such brutality. Little did they know that Issei had caused similar scenes in his battles, and his capacity for mercy had its limits. As the group of devils cautiously approached the soaked area, he noticed a trail leading from another splash of red onto the tree line behind the shrubberies. Black feathers were strewn haphazardly along the messy red line, and Issei's jaw clenched in growing tension as he followed the trail, ultimately leading him to Rainier. She sat on the ground, her head hung low, and her back pressed against the rough bark of a tree. Her trembling hands cradled what appeared to be her own folded wings. Jesus in Christ, Issei muttered under his breath, a mixture of anger and concern in his voice. He initially began to remove his jacket, intending to use it to wipe away the gore from Rainier's face. However, he soon realized he wasn't wearing one, leaving his lanky, not yet developed body on display, a stark contrast to the image of an action hero. "Hey, over here." As the rest of the devils rushed to his side, Issei knelt beside Rainier. His demeanor shifted from detached as he quieted himself to listen to her labored breathing. He pressed 2 fingers against her white neck, checking her pulse. "Lord Azazel," Rainier croaked, her voice weak and filled with pain, her words barely audible. "He's waiting for you in his office," Issei responded gently, now using his red shirt to wipe them from her face. "You wouldn't want to keep the man waiting, would you?" Rainier's eyes fluttered open, and she gazed up at Issei. Her breathing was still ragged, but she managed a weak smile. "Oh, it's you," she whispered. "Tell him I'm sorry for dying." "Don't be silly," Issei replied, his tone light-hearted despite the gravity of the situation. Soft gasps and hushed voices reached Issei's ears as the other devils arrived on the scene. He had not expected their assistance, but the grim reality was that Rainier was beyond saving, her body bearing wounds that were too severe to mend. "Freed," she rasped, her body slumping to her left but was caught by a hand on her shoulder. Her once beautiful wings had been cruelly severed, but as boiled as he saw the angry red FZ etched on her back. I spilled from her lips with each word. She was a broken and battered figure, hanging on to life by a thread. "Wide up." "Yeah, your head up all right," Issei sighed, squeezing his shirt as red liquid poured out from it, seeping into the ground between the blades of grass. He placed it back onto her stomach, right under her wings, letting it stay there without pressure. "Did he follow one of you?" Rainier nodded weakly, her eyes falling shut. Damn, Issei must have sniffed something was off, which meant she would be expecting the devils, or in the process of running. Either way, their time just grew shorter, and their ambush had been foiled. Would it matter? Not really. You still get any smokes? Issei sighed. "Smoking kills, you know." Rainier managed a painful laugh, which sent a sharp pang of discomfort through her chest. Despite the agony, a faint smile graced her lips. Issei reached into his shorts pocket, retrieving a black and gold cigarette pack. He extracted the last remaining cigarette, well aware that Azazel's stinginess had left him with just this one. He carefully settled the white cylinder between Rainier's trembling lips, allowing her to rest against his chest due to her lack of strength. A tiny red flame danced on the tip of his thumb as he lit the cigarette. It flickered to life briefly, but without the necessary draw, it quickly extinguished. Without hesitation, Issei reclaimed the cigarette, positioning the red and white filter at the corner of his mouth. He lit it himself, the soft glow of the ember illuminating his face as he inhaled deeply. A cloud of dull gray smoke billowed from his lips as he then placed the lit cigarette back between Rainier's lips. Another lazy plume of gray wafted into the air, accompanied by Rainier's coughing fit. Her head slumped down, her strength waning. Issei moved quickly, catching the still-burning cigarette before it could fall into Rainier's damaged wings. With one last, deliberate drag, he finished the cigarette, transforming it into a pile of ashes. In the heavenly evening days, the sun set as Rainier died. The assault was a breeze. Well, for the devils, that is. With her senses greatly attuned thanks to Kaniko's prematurely activated Nekashu powers, the traps laid in the entrance were promptly defused by letting Issei activate it. Being drenched in purified and sanctified holy water was about as effective as a splash of cold water for a human part dragon hybrid like him. And when his soaked entrance triggered a barrage of a dozen light spears blindly hurled at him, Rias and Suzaku erected barriers woven from demonic destruction and purifying flames, turning the low-ranking fallen angel's missile attack into an ineffective light show. Then Akino and Kaniko made quick work of them. Akino fried them to a crisp with her electrifying magic, while Kaniko dispatched them with ruthless efficiency, delivering palm strikes to their hearts that ended their existence in an instant. Issei didn't even need to lift a finger. He would be smoking right then if he had any leftover cigarettes. Or go home to get a new shirt, because why the heck would he be wearing his school's white uniform, other than the simple fact that Rias could only conjure this or an array of girly clothing. This wasn't even the male shirt, though it didn't look much different considering his lean build. It felt a bit tight around the stomach. And the girls wear this every day. Dear almighty God. As they descended the spiraling stairs leading to the basement where Asia had met her tragic end in his previous timeline, Issei kept an eye out for signs of stray magicians. So far, there was no sign of Fried or Issei, and while the devils handled the fallen angels effortlessly, Issei took the opportunity to search for any subtle clues. Nothing. It was as ordinary as an underground cultist meeting could be. The cross was there, but it remained unoccupied. The 20 lifeless bodies were conspicuously absent, suggesting they had either been buried elsewhere or spirited away by the missing exorcists. Issei was leaning toward the former hypothesis. Suddenly, a battle cry erupted from his side, prompting Issei to summon the boosted gear and mutter a quick incantation. Haste. Boost, roared the enthusiastic boosted gear, amplifying the effects of haste and supercharging Issei's physical abilities. He moved at twice the speed, his reactions 4 times as quick. His coffee brown eyes darted around, scanning for any signs of the exorcist's next hideout. With precision, he slammed the back of his gauntleted hand against a fallen angel's jaw, sending the intruder spinning through the air, disarmed and disoriented. The light spear the fallen angel had held landed harmlessly in a distant corner. Hitting with his left hand didn't hurt, thanks to the boosted gear absorbing most of the impact. However, if he used his right hand or legs, he'd likely end up with a few broken bones. Drake commented, his tone revealing a hint of unease at Issei's nonchalant demeanor. There was no doubt that Issei hailed from the future, but witnessing him handle a threat as though it were an afterthought left the Welsh dragon feeling perturbed. Issei let out a nonchalant hum. He wasn't seeking approval or trying to appear impressive, he was simply executing the necessary actions. If anything, he felt irritated that their initial plan had unraveled so spectacularly, thanks to Issei's shrewdness. Nevertheless, even in failure, valuable lessons could be gleaned. He had learned not to underestimate his adversaries, regardless of their identity, and to rely less on his knowledge of past events, as it had become increasingly evident that his previous experiences didn't hold absolute sway in this timeline. Plenty of similarities, but the differences were equally if not more jarring. After delivering a solid kick to the fallen angel's bruised jaw, Issei crouched down and seized him by the collar of his dress shirt. He dragged the hapless being to a nearby wall, where he could remain unconscious until Azazel's cleanup crew arrived. Dead men could reveal no secrets, but the living were often quite talkative. The fallen angel briefly regained consciousness, but Issei promptly slammed the unfortunate individual's head against the wall, leaving a small dent but no, as he slinked straight into unconsciousness. Not 5 minutes later, Governor Azazel arrived with 12 fallen angels in tow. Each of them sported a mix of casual and formal attire, with burgundy as the predominant color in their clothing, whether it was their shirts, ties, or gloves, matching Azazel's own ensemble. Dear, you nearly made our services redundant, Lady Gremory. I must say, I'm impressed. Azazel deadpanned as his subordinates worked with efficiency, paying little heed to the cautious glances from the devils. Their intense focus on their tasks was borderline insulting for the devils, though Riaz refrained from taking offense. We wouldn't want to leave you without a job, Lord Azazel, Riaz retorted, her tone tinged with tension, likely stemming from her resurfacing suspicion that this whole operation might still be a trap. I believe we've fulfilled our end of the bargain. Ah, yes, of course. Don't worry, I won't keep you any longer, Azazel replied. Thank you for your hard work. I will uphold my end of the deal as well, Lady Gremory. I'll see you first thing tomorrow morning, bearing gifts and my utmost gratitude for our shared cause. Then I'll hold you to your word, Riaz said cautiously. Saya, Riaz. The Gremory heiress blinked. You're not coming. Issei shrugged noncommittally, his lips forming a tight line, and his shoulders hunching slightly. Hayatu has other matters to attend to, Azazel added enigmatically. Matters that involve both me and that unfortunate fellow over there. He nodded his head in the direction of the still unconscious fallen angel slumped against a limestone wall. Feel free to stay and observe if you wish. Azazel's indirect approach was a tactical one, knowing that outright telling her to leave would likely result in her staying out of defiance. Very well, we'll take our leave then, Riaz decided. Good night, Issei acknowledged as he retrieved a cigarette from the box Azazel offered him. We'll see you all later. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow, Hayatu. Curiosity gnawed at Riaz, but it wasn't centered on what they aimed to extract from the interrogation. Instead, it revolved around the extent of violence Issei could stomach. It had been on her mind since the incident with Rainier and her group. While she and her servants, seasoned devils, were no strangers to gruesome sights and could handle the sight of gore, Issei was an unknown factor. He didn't flinch. He didn't even pause to register the grim scene. He simply walked forward as though it weren't his first time encountering such a gruesome sight, almost as if he were completely desensitized. This contrasted with his clean criminal record, making it even more perplexing. However, her concern for the safety of her servants took precedence over her lingering curiosity. The presence of their natural enemies had put them on edge. Kaniko's eyes darted around nervously, expecting trouble at any moment, while Akino and Suzaku were visibly distressed for obvious reasons. Gathering her party, the devils bid their uncomfortable departure. So, Azazel took the lead, puffing out smoke from his dark lips as he turned to Issei. I'm guessing you've done this often. Probably a bit too often, Issei admitted. No pride whatsoever. Just flat admittance. Azazel sniggered. I'll do the questioning. I want to see what you got, Hayatu. Issei agreed with a silent nod. As they approached their detainee, he bent down to pick up a chipped brick from the earlier massacre. Azazel summoned a bucket of magical water from a floating magic circle and dumped it over their prisoner. A crimson gauntlet materialized over Issei's hand, and he switched his brick-holding hand as he stood beside Azazel, their shadows looming over the drenched and distraught fallen angel. Ask away. That night, Azazel discovered that a simple rectangular block of hardened clay could be used in a myriad of ways. It was funny how it could be employed to support an entire building and simultaneously used to break down a person. Within his sea of consciousness, Diedrag contemplated once more about the future that had transformed the once naive, foolish, and shamelessly perverted yet well-intentioned boy. They say that when you stare too long into the abyss stares back. But what about those who kept staring until the abyss blinked? Break. The next morning, Issei decided to play hooky, just like many other Kyo Academy students who weren't part of the story's main cast. After all, it was Sunday, a day for rest and relaxation. But Issei's absence from school was a bit different from the usual truancy. Instead of heading home like most students, he made a beeline for the hotel in the red light district. There, he discussed the events of the previous day with the governor, strategized for the future, and even grabbed some spare clothes from his bedroom before heading to an unexpected destination. Riaz, on the other hand, had an unexpected encounter when she left her room to investigate some noises outside. Instead of stumbling upon a potential burglar, she found Issei in her midst. His comment about her negligee earned him a playful scolding, but he quickly shifted the conversation to explain why he was there in the middle of the night. Riaz listened attentively and understood his reasoning. His hands were dirty. "You didn't have to do that, you know," he told her, his breath carrying the scent of alcohol. While Riaz might have assumed he was drunk, his gait was steady and he didn't appear inebriated. The distinct smell of, however, was impossible to ignore. "Do what?" Riaz inquired, deliberately avoiding any mention or inquiry about what transpired in the abandoned church after the devils had departed. Bringing her back, Issei replied, adjusting the backpack containing his clothes. "It wasn't necessary." She allowed a smile. "If we do only what is necessary, then the entire world would have been a dreadful world to live in." "Amen to that," Issei muttered, but Riaz winced at the word. A tinge of pain struck her in the head. "Please don't utter that word around me or my servants." Right, Issei chuckled as they stopped in front of a bedroom door. "Still, you had no reason to do that. You're saving up your pieces, aren't you?" "How did you know?" Riaz asked. "Observation," Issei replied with a shrug. "You seem rather selective when choosing your servants." "Compared to most devils in my generation, I suppose I am rather conservative," Riaz admitted. "Would you like to know why, Hayato?" "If I say no, which I won't, because that would be rude, what will you do?" Riaz chuckled softly. "I'll likely scoff at your face and return to my room in mild annoyance." "In that case, sure. Why are you conservative with your chess pieces, Riaz?" "Because I believe in second chances for those who deserve them," the heiress explained with a serene smile. "That, or I'm simply desperate enough to seek the assistance of someone who can manipulate holy power to a significant degree without the weaknesses or prudishness of an angel." "Well," Issei huffed, mildly impressed. This level of maturity from Riaz was certainly new. Perhaps not all the glitches were negative. "Aren't you the paragon of virtue? We need to believe we're decent, don't we? It helps us sleep at night after all the things we do," Riaz remarked, her words coated with a sense of self-assuredness. Some people didn't need to delude themselves with feel-good justifications. Not everyone could cling to the comforting lie of their own decency. Some people couldn't afford such illusions. Some people admitted that they were the creatures parents warned their children to stay away from. Some people had no choice but to embrace their inner monsters, or else they'd be crushed under the weight of the harsh reality they faced, a reality where they had to maim and kill gods and their offspring to protect their loved ones. For them, morality was a complex web of gray, not a simple black and white. "Good point," Issei said instead. "I'm guessing your girls have gone through some rough patches then." "They have indeed," Riaz nodded with a hint of sadness softening her smile. "I've been fortunate enough to have a loving family and fond memories. It's impossible to erase their painful memories, but I can at least try to provide them with a new family, new memories they can look back fondly. Or at the very least, a future where they can gradually let go of their past." "I'm sure you didn't mean it as pity, but Rainer might misinterpret it that way. She's not one to appreciate being pitied." "Of course, it wasn't born from pity," Riaz replied, her voice holding a gentle firmness. "I don't think anyone truly wants to be pitied, do they?" She took a few steps toward her bedroom, which happened to be the closest to the clubroom. "Rainer is a friend of yours, isn't she?" "More like a colleague, I suppose." "Then I need no other reason. Or you can see it as a bribe for you to sate your doubt," Riaz smiled. "Good night, Hayato." Issei fell into a thoughtful silence for a few moments, his gaze fixated on Riaz. He couldn't help but marvel at the woman who had once been his wife in another life, now young again, yet exuding a sense of maturity beyond her years. He realized he might end up being the one to fall first at this rate. Hell, he might still be. Then he contemplated what set female devils apart from most human women. In devil society, there was no gender divide, their roles were equal. Women held as much power and responsibility as men, and vice versa. Implant that on human society and both sides will screech. There was a reason Issei often found it challenging to relate to ordinary humans. While some were undoubtedly decent, the bad apples were insufferable to the nth degree. So insufferable, in fact, that had he lacked moral constraints, he might have been tempted to deal with them more harshly. Banishing that errant thought from his mind, he entered the bedroom. Rainer lay on one of the beds in the corner, while the opposite end featured an empty single bed, presumably intended for him. Instead of making himself comfortable on his designated bed, Issei casually tossed his bag onto the vacant mattress. He then fetched a chair from the wooden study desk, positioning it next to Rainer's bedside, facing the same direction as her slumbering form, so as not to come across as a creep should she awaken first. Finally, he settled into the chair, released a slow exhale, and gradually surrendered to the embrace of sleep. As the morning light spilled into the room, Rainer found herself in a state of disbelief. Issei was slouched in a chair, his head hanging like a loose marionette, his hands casually crossed. Her initial confusion deepened when she realized that she wasn't in her usual revealing attire, nor was she wearing the modest clothing of her former life. Instead, she was adorned in soft, silky, and rather disgruntling pink pajamas. What kind of pajamas was this? But her confusion quickly gave way to disbelief as she registered the fact that she shouldn't be alive. The memories flooded back, the sensation of darkness engulfing her vision as life drained from her body, the helplessness of witnessing her friends being mercilessly executed one by one, and the overwhelming surge of anger and an insatiable thirst for one person's, a thirst she hadn't felt in a very long time. You're up, Issei mumbled, stirring from his slumber, his voice laden with sleep. He yawned and shook his head to dispel the remnants of drowsiness. Rainer, now fully awake, stared at him in disbelief, having already assumed a sitting position. Explain, she demanded harshly. Why am I not dead? You were, Issei replied lazily, his brown hair looking even messier after his nap. He offered little in the way of comfort or explanation. Ria's brought you back. Rainer froze and snapped. She what? That was a harsher tone. Expected, he supposed. He replied with two nods. I'm a devil. Think of it this way, if you're dead, you're no good to Azazel. How can I do that when I'm a young devil? Furious, Rainer managed to react physically. Her frustration manifested in the form of charcoal black wings resembling those of a bat, and they burst forth from her back, their pointy edges nearly poking the tip of Issei's nose. She stared at her new wings with a look of clear disgust before shooting out of the bed and grabbing the collar of his red shirt. Unfazed, Issei allowed himself to be manhandled, making no effort to break away as Rainer brought her contorted face up close. You could have stopped her. Not my place to tell her who she should or shouldn't raise as her servant. Rainer's frustration reached a boiling point, and her words erupted like a torrent of emotion. I don't want this. Do you think I'll blindly obey a devil? Play nice, fetch things for her, and lick her boots clean for her. Be her young slave. No. Issei gently pried her hands from his crumpled red shirt, his gaze unwavering. You'll do it for Azazel. What? Issei untwisted her hands off his now crumpled red shirt. He wants to broker peace between fallen angels and devils. You are both a fallen angel and a devil. And Ria's, well, she's the sister of a Satan. Do you see the bigger picture now? Now fully awake, Issei rose from his chair, observing Rainer's mixed expressions of doubt and realization. Still not enough. Consider this, your friends are dead, and Fried managed to escape before we could catch him. Guilt gnawed at her as she processed the information. She didn't revive them, did she? Issei's response was matter-of-fact, his tone unapologetic. Devils aren't known for their charitable acts. Rainer clenched her jaw, her frustration mounting. Then why did she bring me back and not them? Issei locked eyes with her, his silence deliberate, waiting for her to grasp the weight of his words. She found herself unable to maintain eye contact and finally broke it. Then he continued, his words carrying a significant message. Because they don't matter to the right person. Not to me, not Azazel, not Rias. Just you. He waited patiently, his unwavering gaze inviting her to see beyond the surface. He wanted her to understand that his words weren't meant to hurt but to convey a deeper truth. He hoped she had matured since her last encounter with him, not just physically but in her perspective and priorities. She was a few years older than Rias, but if her mental age didn't match her age, and she instead acted like some angsty teen who couldn't put their priorities straight, then Rias had just wasted 2 pawns for her. Rainer had been careless, leading to her subordinates' deaths and Fried and Issei's escape. Issei refrained from rubbing salt in her wounds, leaving that task to Azazel, who was more than willing to do so. Their conversation during a celebratory drinking session had revealed their pragmatic approach to Rainer's situation. She's obsessed with me, Azazel had commented. Any obsession is just a way for damaged people to damage themselves more. She'll do better without constantly trying to lick my boots. A change of working environment might be just what she needs most to get over it, and hey, that's a bridge built. For both Issei and Azazel, Rainer was a means to an end, and her personal struggles took a back seat to their pragmatic goals. Rainer hissed through clenched teeth, her emotions in turmoil. If you're so imperfect, try standing in my shoes. Perfect. If he was perfect, he wouldn't be here, talking to her. He would have stayed in the future and be with his wives instead of having to go through all these shitstorms again. If he was perfect, the gods would have fallen in love with him for being so damn flawless, not spite him for butchering their kin flawlessly without a shred of guilt. But he didn't let his emotions control his words. Get stronger. Harness the power of both your devil and fallen angel sides. Being impervious to both holy and unholy forces is a significant advantage. Learning to wield them effectively is even more crucial. And then, find a way to settle the score with Fried. Of course, it was easier said than done. You're not a fallen angel. Do you even have any idea what it's like working under your enemy? True, and I can't fully comprehend your predicament. But trust me when I say there are far worse devils than Rias out there. deodorizer before he got his comeuppance, those lunatics in the Chaos Brigade, the despicable Rizvim, the list goes on. Rainier remained obstinate. She's still a young devil. Issei closed his eyes for a moment, a faint hint of disappointment emanating from him. Rainier could sense it, but her stubbornness refused to waver. He sighed. If you can't let go of your resentment or swallow your pride, you won't make a difference. You'll end up dying again and squandering your second chance. If you run away, Riaz will hunt you down as a stray. Hell, just say the word, and I'll end it for you right now, sparing us all the trouble. His tone remained measured and diplomatic, but a simmering annoyance lurked beneath the surface. But you've experienced death. It's empty, dull, and monotonous, isn't it? No gleaming gates, no radiant light, just nothing. I've been there twice, and both times I wanted to get thee out. But that's just me, so do you want to go back to that place and be nothing again? Rainier felt anger bubbling within her. Anger at his frustrating logic and anger at herself for starting to see the sense in his words. She had always been quick to anger, her wrath both a source of power and her greatest weakness. She hadn't considered it a weakness until recently. Like I have any other choice, she muttered bitterly. We rarely ever have that much freedom, Rainier. We just deal with the bullshit cards we're dealt, Issei responded with a hint of sadness in his eyes. It was a sadness that Rainier couldn't ignore, even in her current state of agitation. I'm not telling you that everything will magically turn out fine or spewing nonsense like look how much stronger you've become. Those kinds of people mean well, but they're infuriating. They make it sound like there's a silver lining to your friends' deaths and your own suffering. Like it was worth it, somehow, as long as you're a stronger and better person, with more character and more interesting stories to tell. Them, I say. Rainier fell silent, her anger still present but muted. She didn't want to look at him right now because she felt absurd for conceding that he had a point. His words carried the weight of experience, the words of someone who had endured trials and tribulations beyond her imagination. Not at all the words of the teenager standing before her, making her feel more immature with each passing seconds, but the time-traveling, know-it-all scoundrel. Go take a shower, he suggested, gesturing towards the white bathroom door. Clear your head. We both smell like death. Clicking her tongue in annoyance, Rainier ran her hand through her black hair, muttered a curse under her breath, and left the room. Their day had only just begun, and already it felt like a never-ending ordeal. Break. For the 6 years he had served as a devil, this was actually Issei's first time having breakfast in the dormitory's lounge area. The windows facing the lush forest remained shut to ensure no curious students could catch a glimpse of this lavishly decorated room. It was neatly furnished, complete with various table games and even a fully stocked bar area at one end, complete with a countertop and a fridge brimming with cold drinks. Issei had a feeling this would become his go-to spot during idle moments, a place to potentially share a drink with Azazel and, of course, Rainier, who would likely want to distance herself from the devils for a while. Still, even the fallen angel couldn't stay angry after her cold shower and discovering this establishment hidden away in some old-school building. Breakfast, however, promised to be awkward. He could break the ice with some stupid jokes or force an awkward atmosphere to dispel the earlier tension. But Issei was more interested in observing how the devils would act around Rainier and how Rainier would interact with them. From the devil's side, only Riaz and the Heinjamas had awakened so far. Riaz had been up earlier, and when she had encountered Issei and Rainier in the hallway, she had led them to this room. She was dressed in her usual semi-formal casual attire, a long-sleeved red blouse paired with dark blue jeggings and sandals. Riaz had always been effortlessly beautiful, and her choice of attire hardly mattered. Rainier, on the other hand, was back in her revealing outfit, displaying her characteristic indifference. Riaz seemed slightly uncomfortable with Rainier's attire, but she chose to overlook it, considering what Rainier had been through. Issei refrained from commenting. After all, Rainier wasn't his pawn, and it wasn't his place to make demands. It was, however, quite amusing to watch the subtle tension. With only one long table in the center of the room, Issei could already foresee Rainier eating alone on one of the lounge couches, either because she felt like an outcast or simply to make the devils uncomfortable in her presence. They both took their seats as instructed and waited for their meal. Riaz hadn't mentioned Rainier specifically, always addressing them collectively. It was clear she was trying not to provoke the volatile situation, to not step on the walking landmine that was Rainier. As they waited for the Hanjima siblings to work their culinary magic in the kitchen, preparing breakfast for the rest of the devils, Issei nearly couldn't contain his blank face for noticing how badly Riaz wanted to break the ice with Rainier. She probably thought she was discreet, but Issei had honed his people-reading skills under the tutelage of Serafal and Azazel. He observed her incessant finger-tapping, her anxious glances searching for a conversation starter, her eventual surrender as she propped her chin on her hand. Finally, she decided to address Issei instead. "Have you informed your parents about your whereabouts, Hayao?" Riaz asked with a concerned tone. "I texted them I was staying over at my friend's house," he said. "Happens all the time." A smile played on Riaz's lips as she chuckled. "Your two accomplices, I assume. They'll think it's them. Easier to believe than saying I'm staying at a girl's home, and won't cause as much ruckus either." Riaz nodded, her thoughts clearly elsewhere, before she broached a rather sensitive topic. "I've been thinking lately, Hayao, about you." Issei raised both eyebrows, feigning surprise. "Confessing so soon? You've only known me for a day." "That's not what I meant." Ria sputtered, her cheeks reddened, and even Rainier couldn't help but emit a snort, an understated, quiet exhalation through the nose, nothing like a pig's snort. Darned, I got my hopes up for nothing. Realizing she had been had, Riaz calmed down. I meant to ask about what you did last night. You don't have any idea how suggestive that sounds, do you? What? Riaz blinked, before, once again, blushing. And no, that's even further from what I meant. Sure did sound that way. Pull your head out of the gutter, Hayato, she sighed in mild exasperation. Can't, it's stuck there, he blandly declared. Everything is an innuendo if you're degenerate enough. Riaz couldn't handle this. She preferred his old, fake persona. Well, what I'm trying to ask is, what happened with Lord Azazel last night? I mean, her eyes widened as she realized that what she had just said was hardly an improvement but instead far worse. Gah, forget it. A suppressed chuckle escaped Issei, much to Riaz's chagrin and embarrassment. Rainier, driven purely by curiosity rather than pity for the devil, inquired, what happened last night? Well, Issei course-corrected himself. She and her girls stormed the place and killed everyone there. And the exorcists fled when we arrived. Good, Rainier muttered. She had forgotten to ask earlier, but now she had a clear objective in mind, to kill freed cells and, with torture before the final blow being optional. Freed his mind. She wisely refrained from asking further questions about topics that might concern the fallen angels, knowing that Riaz was listening. Despite being her master, Riaz didn't need to be privy to the inner conflicts within the Grigori leadership. It would make them look weak and disorganized. Maintaining the image of her true kin was still her obligation even as a devil. This was precisely what Issei had hoped to achieve through her, keeping Riaz out of the equation and unaware of certain matters. And did your hostage reveal anything useful? Riaz probed, undeterred. Issei put on a convincing expression of annoyance as he lied smoothly. Nah. Azazel hit him too hard. Crushed his skull. Riaz sighed in disappointment. We would have exercised more restraint if you had informed us. No worries. It's Grigori's business, at the end of the day. Not mine. Or yours, Issei replied nonchalantly. Now, setting that aside, I'm starving. As if on cue, the door to the kitchen swung open, and Akino emerged, carrying a large silver pot of steaming miso soup with her mittened hands. Suzaku followed closely behind her, carrying an array of Japanese-style breakfast dishes. They look like twins, Issei remarked promptly, especially when they're dressed the same. Shrine maiden outfits on the weekends. Really? They have their reasons, Riaz explained, her tone tinged with sadness, undoubtedly connected to their past. Thank you, Suzaku, Akino. We're lucky to have you as our cooks. Our pleasure, Riaz, Akino responded with a playful smile. I hope our guests enjoy our cooking. Well, they certainly look appetizing, Issei said, his stomach growling in response to the delightful aroma filling the room. The spread included crispy salted fried salmon, boiled broccoli as a side dish, a classic bright yellow rolled omelet, and of course, the comforting miso soup. Reminds me of home, he added casually, only to notice a flicker of sadness briefly crossing both Hanjima's faces before they quickly masked it with smiles, one sardonic and the other neutral. It appeared that their past traumas were far from resolved. While it might have been a somewhat underhanded way to confirm this, Issei didn't hesitate to seize the opportunity to gauge the situation better. The meal proceeded in silence, with neither party eager to bring up a topic that could make the atmosphere awkward. It was still unclear how Rainier would react to becoming one of them, and Issei was equally intrigued. She didn't offer any comments on the food, but she refrained from making any biting remarks as well. Instead, she simply ate, and when she had finished, she remained seated. For now, the silence was mutually ignored and set aside. However, Issei had an inkling that a new storm might be brewing on the horizon. Nope, just Azazel. The governor arrived just as the devils, along with Issei, had finished their breakfast. Issei was immediately called to pick him up from the empty clubroom. Akino and her cousin remained behind to wait for the others, while the rest followed Issei to greet Azazel. Riaz had obvious reasons for joining, and so did Rainier, who appeared noticeably more nervous all of a sudden. Issei, too, was anxious, though he didn't wear his emotions on his sleeve as most people did. Seeing Asia again after all the glitches and shifted backstories had him concerned, particularly about her innocence. He hadn't asked Azazel about her because he feared that the sweet Asia he remembered might have changed, dyed her hair black with pink stripes or lost her faith in her lord. Now, they were about to see her for the first time. Issei opened the door and allowed Riaz and Rainier to enter first, not out of chivalry, but because he didn't want them to witness the initial expression on his face before he could hide it. "Oh, there you all are," Azazel greeted casually from the couch, a lit cigarette dangling from his lips. He didn't even bother to stand up. There she was, the girl with blonde hair framing her small face and large green eyes. Her nun's attire was etched into Issei's memory, the veil covering her hair, brown boots, and her short stature, which made her look like someone you want to pick up and put in your pocket, though that would likely lead to an arrest for attempted kidnapping. He didn't remember her hair being this short, though, barely reaching her shoulders. The tips looked uneven, as if she had given herself a hasty haircut. Even her bangs were shorter and sharper. Issei swallowed the dread, not realizing he was holding his breath as he hoped. Don't change too much. Asia's eyes widened slightly as she recognized a familiar face. She beamed with her lips, cheeks, and eyes, a real living sight. Miss Rainier. Oh, still breathing, aren't you? Rainier responded in her typical standoffish manner, her usual demeanor toward people other than Azazel, her superiors, or Issei. Azazel, however, hadn't looked at her yet. Asia nodded shyly. Yes, and Mr. Azazel told me why. Thank you for rescuing me. Issei finally exhaled, his relief concealed behind a cough. She hadn't changed. She hadn't changed. Who's the girl? Lord Azazel. She isn't a fallen angel. She isn't, Azazel replied, observing Riaz as she took a seat. He noted her glare at his cigarette but opted not to react for the time being. Go ahead and introduce yourself, little lass. Yes, Asia stammered, clutching the skirt of her dress so her hands wouldn't shake too much. I'm in exile from the Vatican. I'm excommunicated. Actually, a nervous giggle decorated the end of her trailing sentence. Excommunicated. Riaz furrowed her crimson brows, while Issei retreated to stand behind her. For what reason? I am helped the devil, Asia admitted bashfully, as if conflicted about whether she should be proud of it. She was hurt, so I healed her with go, earned the blessings from the from God, Issei interjected, causing both Riaz and Rainier to experience a slight headache. Why yes, Asia perked up, gazing at him. But Sir Azazel said not to mention it because it'll cause harm to the devils. You helped the devil? Riaz inquired, redirecting the conversation. I thought you were raised to hate devils. I would hope not, Asia muttered. I think they hate devils because most think that devils can only do evil, but I saw what we can do to devils, and I don't think we're ever clean of evil either. No one is pure, but not everyone is impure, at least that's how I see it. Riaz was pleasantly surprised by Asia's open-mindedness, especially for someone of her background. Do you believe devils can do good, then? I think there's always good in someone, no matter what they are. Some are just buried deeper. Riaz found Asia's idealistic belief intriguing but wondered if it could truly fit within the devil world. And what kind of blessings do you mean? Are you perhaps the holy maiden? Oh, I'm not really holy, I don't think. Azazel stepped in to assist the nervous Asia. She is, he confirmed, addressing Riaz. She's Asia Argento, Lady Riaz, a possessor of twilight healing. Apparently, she cut her hair to avoid suspicion. Not all exorcists are as kind and loving as we might hope. I see. Riaz couldn't entirely hide her surprise but quickly regained her composure. And the reason you brought her here is, remember my gifts. She's one of them, Azazel explained smoothly. Not as an object, mind you, but as a form of both request and trust. Riaz was still a bit puzzled. I don't think I quite follow. The form of trust is that I trust you're able to provide her with the things she needs to grow up well, Azazel clarified. The request is because we fallen angels aren't exactly the best at dealing with human children, as you might already know. Riaz sighed, aware he was hinting at Aquino's tragedy. Her hatred runs deeper than her scar, unfortunately. Unfortunately so, Azazel responded with a wry smile, silently apologizing to Barakil. But she trusts you more than she'll ever trust any of us. Which raises the question, has she met Rainier? And if so, how did she react? Rainier felt a tight knot around her throat. Trepidation, most likely. She's one of ours now, Riaz confidently stated. Whether she accepts it or not, we won't treat her any differently than we would to any of ours, and I won't tolerate harmful behavior either. Rainier rolled her eyes. A craggy road, I'm sure, the Gremory continued, but we'll eventually come to terms. We haven't yet discussed the matter thoroughly as we should. Given what happened, I offer you my condolences. Azazel waved a dismissive hand. Don't worry about it. They're not irreplaceable. Rainier felt the knot in her throat tighten even further. Issei maintained a stoic silence, his apparent indifference a deliberate act. Azazel's plan was clear, to sever Rainier's blind adoration for him so she could focus on her new role as a devil without being consumed by thoughts of her former leader. If acting like an unfeeling jerk was the fastest way to achieve this, then he was all in. Riaz, on the other hand, appeared momentarily stunned by Azazel's cold statement. She struggled to find the right words. Well, I don't know what to say to that. Azazel waved off her concerns. Don't be so shocked. That's what being a faction leader entails, Lady Riaz. You must be prepared to lose people. Sometimes, not personalizing them is the easiest way to cope. But anyway, let's not get sidetracked. Right, yes, Riaz nodded, trying to put aside her conflicted feelings, especially given the Governor-General of the former enemy faction's arrival and the promises he bore. Before we move on, do you remember the devil you saved? Any name or appearance? Their hair color? Issei's mood turned foul. In no way would Deodora get his hands on her. Not even a hair. He'd find a way to break the bastard before he could even find her. Asia tried to recall the details. There was a she, and... Hold up, she. Not again, not that it'd matter if Deodora was still a rapist. She has blonde hair, very long and pretty. And, even if she dyed her hair, Issei wouldn't hesitate to kill him. Her bangs are tinted blue. Or was it green? Realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Riaz seemed to grasp the situation. That's Laisha Astaroth, she confirmed, providing Azazel with the information he sought. I don't know why she went to the Vatican, possibly related to her deceased brother, but I'll confirm it with her. The nun rapist, eh? Azazel clapped his hand as he flicked the dead cigarette, reducing it to cinders in the air. a permanent stain on her family's name, Riaz lamented. That aside, I'd be willing to take her under my wing if she wishes, but I can't appreciate the way you treat her as some kind of gift or bribe. Azazel chuckled. Well, this just proves why we aren't the best at dealing with children. Riaz sighed, relieved it wasn't the attitude of all the Satans. Asia, if you'd like, you can stay here. We can enroll you in our school, but please be aware that the language barrier may be challenging. Two can go to school. Those words and that hopeful look immediately triggered Ria's older sister's instinct that she didn't know she had. Yes, Riaz smiled, though hearing her heart just had a tiny crack. How did the Catholics even raise her? We have room in the dormitory for more. You don't need to be a devil to stay here. 2 of my servants are proficient in Japanese. They can help you learn the basics. Oh, tears welled up in her eyes, spilling almost immediately. Oh, sorry, thank you very much. I am sorry, I didn't mean to. Riaz consoled her. It's all right. Not all tears are evil. You've been through a lot, haven't you? Well, you can rest easy here. No more running or hiding. We'll keep you safe. Go and hug her, you fool, Issei urged with a soft laugh, now leaning against a wall. You're pretty much obligated to. Riaz blushed slightly. I'd rather not overstep and make her uncomfortable, much as I'd like to. Azazel smirked and offered his parting words. Enjoy your stay here. You'll have plenty of new big sisters now. Maybe some of them have more guts and will cradle you better. Determined to make a connection, Riaz got up, moved around the coffee table, sat beside Asia, and patted her head. Boo, you can do better than that. Riaz was resolute. I'm taking my time. She then comforted Asia, introducing herself warmly. You're a sweet girl, Asia. My name is Riaz Gremory, and I welcome you to my small family. Asia reciprocated the gesture with equal intensity, her need for comfort evident as she sobbed into Riaz's chest. Her trembling hands clung to the back of Riaz's blouse, releasing the pent-up emotions of homelessness, loneliness, and uncertainty that had weighed on her for so long. Issei smiled softly, feeling a genuine warmth in the room. His true smile still in place, Issei playfully nudged Rainier, trying to break through her tough exterior. You're in her family too. Go hug her. Rainier responded with a snort and a dismissive comment. Off. Despite the jesting, the atmosphere remained one of comfort and solace. With Rainier's fiery spirit subdued for the time being in Asia and the caring hands of Riaz, Issei knew he had more tasks to attend to, explaining things to Irina and, if she visited, addressing Murayama's potential concerns. Riaz would undoubtedly bring Murayama to the house later to provide Asia with information about her new role as a devil. Issei glanced at the remaining items on his checklist for the day, but for now, he savored this moment of peace, free from tension, anger, or dread over the uncertainty of their future. He understood that such moments were fleeting and all the more precious because of it. He knew it wouldn't last forever, but that very impermanence made it all the more valuable. And it was worth saving. To be continued. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.